Hashtag Cultivating Immortality in Two Realms English translation. Chapter 1 Reincarnation, Happy New Year's Day. Fang Qing exhaled and looked at the bright moon above the sky, looking a little dazed. Although the bright moon is still the bright moon, he seems to be wearing it. He really didn't know where to start with this. He remembered that he had never had any luck in his previous life. It seemed like he just fell asleep normally. As soon as he closed his eyes and opened them, he came into the body of a 15 or 16-year-old boy. No. Not seizing the body, but like, reincarnation? Did you just break the mystery of the womb? What is this? Without a large express delivery, I slept for 9 days? The young man's face was blank, and he rubbed the corner of his eyebrows, and the memories of the previous 10 years appeared in his mind, as well as his instinctive mother tongue. The land of ancient Shu, Bajuan, Bayou, natural and man-made disasters, displacement, the old uncle, thinking of the old uncle, his face is spread across the ravines, his eyes are dull all day long, and only occasionally the cunning face of the old farmer appears in front of his eyes, he is really close before his eyes. Yazzie, are you okay? The old uncle who had been leading the way turned around with a little worry in his eyes. My hometown suffered a disaster, and 9 out of 10 members of the clan died, leaving only this single seedling. Uncle, I'm fine, Fang Qing was silent as a memory emerged. The ravine Sanchuao where my family has lived for many years was suddenly hit by the plague this year. I became an orphan and is fleeing with my uncle. If it were an ordinary ancient alien world, although the refugees had a miserable start, there seemed to be a way to rebel. But according to my superficial knowledge, most of the ancient peasant uprisings were cannon fodder for the king, and they had to wait until small and medium-sized landowners and scholars joined in to become a phenomenon, Fang Qing complained silently in his heart. Fortunately, he had memories from his family, and even after a few words, his uncle didn't notice anything was wrong. The two fell into silence again, and under the moonlight, they came to a stream. The moonlight is hazy and the stream is gurgling like a jade belt. Uncle, what are you going to do? Fang Qing came to the waterside. The stream was still cold in the summer, and a young man wearing linen clothes with a gray face was faintly reflected. Only a pair of eyes were full of energy, as if to add the finishing touch. He has gradually understood his situation, but he just doesn't know why the old uncle took him to mysteriously escape from the army tonight. Well, the plague is still gathering. The key is that no one in the team is sick, which is strange. Fang Qing, who has modern health knowledge, is suspicious. What do you know? The old uncle smiled proudly and looked a little sad. We escaped from a place where the plague was prevalent. Even if we get to Tianfu City, I'm afraid they won't accept us. We have to make some arrangements. If we have money in our hands, we won't panic. Fang Qing was speechless for a moment. The reality was 10 times and 100 times darker than he imagined. In the past, he thought that he was lucky to escape from the plague land. Even if he sold himself to a wealthy family as a tenant, he would still have food to eat, but he forgot. Now it is lust. In an era when being a slave is unavailable, even if they want to sell themselves, no one may be willing to do so. What's more, if there is a choice, who would want to kneel down and be a slave? Fang Qing looked at the old uncle, his eyes lit up. His memory was clouded before, and he had a serious illness. He was confused and didn't pay much attention. Now it seems that most of the information about his hometown may be in the old uncle. He is indeed an old man. Ahem, what? Under the moonlight, I saw only the old uncle Zhen. Zhongji took out a package from his arm. After opening it, there was another layer of floral cloth tied with countless layers. When the old uncle opened it with a pious expression, Fang Qing saw that it was a book. This is a calendar enshrined in the ancestral hall? Fang Qing recognized it. Although most of this book was incomplete, it has been enshrined at the highest point of the Fang family ancestral hall and can be seen every year during ancestor worship. Every time there is a major event in my memory, the clan members will arriving at the ancestral hall. The old patriarch took out the worn-out notebook and read it carefully, thinking of those faces in his memory. Fang Qing couldn't help but feel a pain in his heart and felt a little sad. What calendar? Bah, this is a fairy calendar. Do you understand, Xianli? The old uncle took a sip, as if the old patriarch got up and opened the fairy object in his hand with great care. Fang Qing came over and was glad that he was literate. This was incredible. The literacy rate in ancient times was generally not high. If you can read by yourself and find a job like accounting clerk in the city, at least you will not starve to death. After a quick glance, I saw that although the pages of the book were old, they were very smooth. It was obvious that the previous owners cherished them very much. And on the title page, there was a neat line of font: the prosperity and evil of the years, the movement of the spiritual atmosphere, the transformation of yin and yang. These are all achievements at the end of the year. Value for the year? Fang Qing's heart moved. He had been in the game before and didn't think anything was wrong. But now, looking at it, he felt that every word seemed to be full of horror, revealing a secret in the world. The night was quiet, with only the rustle of the old uncle turning pages. Found it. Suddenly, he looked happy and pointed to a page. Yowzy, look at it, the patriarch is my second father. I saw him mark T's page with my own eyes, and I'm afraid I forgot. The old uncle sounded a little proud. Our Fang family can occupy the sanctuary, which is also true. Fang Qing seems to understand. The family seems to be relatively well off, and it is actually possible for school-age children to go to Mongolia to learn how to read and write. The investment is huge. The old farmers facing the loss cannot afford to rely on only the few acres of thin fields, so there are other incomes. 80% of them are from a certain sect. The craftsmanship that is not passed down to women is actually recorded in the book. The old man wants to use it to make money? Well, it is indeed a family heritage. Fang Qing glanced at it and said, in the last 8,412 years of ancient times, Kong Jin was in charge of the year, the 14th day of the 5th month, which was a good time for travel, breakthroughs, and energy gathering. He was surprised. This page was written in calendar format. He knew all these words, but why couldn't he understand them together? Could it be practice? Are there really immortals in this world? Fang Qing's heart was burning. Don't look at those words, they were written 100 years ago. Look at the words added by future generations. The old uncle reminded. Fang Qing nodded, and sure enough, in the cracks of the writing on this page, he saw a few more lines of ink. Take an ancient sword, soak it in the stream on a full moon night, and recite the 7-character secret mantra, but get a ray of moonlight. 100 strands turn into silk, 100 silks become the Tao. Yes, this is the secret qi gathering technique of our Fang family. This qi gathering technique is only passed down to the clan leader. If their whole family hadn't been killed by the plague, it wouldn't have been our turn. The old uncle beamed with joy. Our old Fang family ancestors also have a connection with immortals. 100 years ago, the immortal taught them how to see. Elect qi. Every year, they offer a few swords containing moonlight, and the rewards are extremely generous. It's a pity that I didn't know the 7-character secret before, and it will only be useful on this day. He sighed, took off the ringshow knife from his waist that had been with him all these days, and was about to dip it into the stream. So, this is a calendar from 100 years ago? It's been 100 years since it expired, brother. Fang Qing felt a sense of absurdity in his heart. Is it still useful? What big brother? I am your uncle. The old uncle glared. What's more, 100 years is nothing. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and the 12-year-old months are in charge. This has always been the case and will not change in another 11,000 years. The old patriarch does it today every year, that's right. While reciting mantras, he devoutly dipped the knife into the stream. I don't know if it was an illusion, but Fang Qing seemed to see wisps of light gathering on the blade, like human veins. Haha, it's done. I don't know how much time has passed. Just when Fang Qing's feet were a little sore, he saw the old uncle holding up the rusty ancient knife in his hand, with a face full of joy. If you get this to the Luo family, you can sell it for at least 12 or 8 taels. Have you collected a ray of moonlight? Why not pick more? Or even just collect 100 strands and refine them into one, or even 10,000 strands to achieve enlightenment? Fang Qing was a little surprised. It won't work. This qi collection will consume the earth's qi and aura. It won't be able to recover for months at a time. The old uncle shook his head. We once occupied Sanchuao with 3 streams, and we only produced 3 pieces a year, let alone 1 piece and 1 piece. He looked at Fang Qing, sneered again, and sent the knife away. Everyone knows that immortals practice qi practice, but you have no magic power. Even if I put it in front of you, will you be able to match qi? Even if a true qi is synthesized in the end, can you pick it? No mana? Can't do it? Uncle, let's talk about immortals. Are there really immortals? Fang Qing had more doubts in his heart, and at the same time he sighed secretly. This old uncle is indeed worthy of the rumors that he has been around outside and is well informed. Of course, I also know that the first state of an immortal is to be convinced. The old uncle smiled proudly, but also felt a little sad. Yazi, please listen to my advice. It's hard to find immortality. Although our family has the ancestral qi collection method, without the help of immortals, it will never be possible to synthesize a real qi and step into the realm of qi. The equipment obtained every year can only be sold. In other words, if you want to practice, you have to eat qi, but the real qi can only be processed by the practitioner? Fang Qing secretly guessed, if you want to step into the threshold of practice, not to mention whether there is any qualification threshold, and not to mention the skills and so on, the most important one, true qi is enough to kill many people. He was a little speechless. Without magic power, you can't synthesize the real qi. Without qi you can't step into practice and cultivate magic power. Isn't this a dead cycle of self-cultivation? According to the experience of novels in previous lives, shouldn't Cultivating an Immortal be a book that spreads the skills and can be practiced as long as you have spiritual roots? Why is it so troublesome? It becomes a Mobius strip problem that comes first, the chicken or the egg? Fang Qing shook his head and decided to ignore it for now. Then, did our ancestors of the Fang family become immortals? Of course, no. The old uncle shook his head. It is said that the ancestor lived for 2 decades and died without any illness, and he was not a monk. It seems that what my family gets can't be regarded as immortality. At most, it can be regarded as the coolie cows and horses under the immortals. Fang Qing is speechless. Aren't these modern cows and horses? They eat grass and produce milk. You can't say that. The old uncle also seemed a little tangled. Well, at least our family has got a share of income, and there is a lot of income every year. Fang Qing touched the hard object on his chest, and his heart felt a little hot. I must embark on the path of spiritual practice, see this higher scenery, and even, see the secret of, year-old. It is difficult to obtain the extraordinary world. How can we not pursue immortality? There is no doubt that if the realm of persuasion is just an entry point, you must have become an immortal at the age of 12, and only then can you thrive. Fang Qing immediately felt that he had an ambitious goal. Kongjin? The name of a person who holds the title of sway? He is still an ordinary person, but he knows the name of a powerful immortal, even if it is just a personal name. But when I think about it, it seems somewhat reasonable. After all, he could not name a few of the former governors of Eagle Country, but he must know who the president of Eagle Country was, and it would be the same in other words. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. Here. With a shout, a large number of scattered footsteps approached quickly. No, it's Ma Laosan's mangy dog. The old uncle's expression changed. Damn old Bangzi, I've been staring at you. He drew his knife and turned around, spreading his thighs, outnumbered, run separately. A new year, a new beginning. I wish all my book friends good luck and all your wishes will come true. End of this chapter. Chapter 2 Daosheng, please collect it. Run. Fang Qing turned around and ran away without saying a word. When individuals do not have extraordinary strength, the distinction between strong and weak is actually very obvious. That is, a thin person cannot defeat a strong one, an empty-handed person cannot defeat a person with a knife, and a person cannot defeat a group of people. What's more, he knows how much he weighs. In his previous life, he was a weakling who never learned how to fight. Who else do you want to fuck? After running a certain distance, Fang Qing sadly discovered that the pursuers seemed to be getting closer and closer. Damn, my body is too weak. Gone, please help me, my uncle brought me here specially to block the gun, right? Fang Qing feels like he has to answer here today. Sure enough. Even if a Diaosi travels through time, she is still a Diaosi. He felt bitter in his heart, and suddenly he tripped, his vision went dark, and he fell into a roadside ditch. I am really dead now. Hearing the shouts getting closer and closer, Fang Qing felt despair in his heart. At this moment, he suddenly sensed a beat in his mind. This is, his heart moved, and his figure disappeared instantly. After a while, a group of fierce men chased after them, holding spears and other weapons in their hands, holding up torches and taking pictures. Where are the people? Why are they missing? Crash. The sun is high in the sky, and the wind carries a salty smell. The sea is endless as far as the eye can see, but Fang Qing keeps his hands close to his trouser legs and his head tilted back, floating on the sea surface, not daring to move. Yes, he can't swim. The sudden appearance in the sea almost scared him to death. Fortunately, I remembered the self-rescue guide for falling into the water. Keeping your posture still can keep your nose floating on the sea and avoid drowning immediately. Since he won't drown for a while, Fang Qing didn't worry, he just I down and studied his golden finger first. He closed his eyes and saw a strange bead. This bead has a chaotic color and shines from all sides. The bead is surrounded by a dense haze, giving people a faint feeling of the opening up of a galaxy in the universe. The inside of the bead is unclear and turbid, as if there is a portal. Daoshengzhu? A message came, letting Fang Qing know the name and function of his golden finger. Isn't this the bead I bought online before I traveled through time? I also gave it a bracelet as a gift. Fang Qing understood clearly in his heart that this Daosheng bead has 3 major functions. The first is return to origin. This bead was born before heaven and earth. It can refine all energy and turn it into the most basic yuan qi. This yuan qi can transform into thousands of things, which is very wonderful. In martial arts terms, it means that all alien qi can be turned into the original qi, and then the mental methods of various martial arts in the world can be simulated. But I don't know any martial arts. If you want to simulate any kind of true energy or magical power, you must first obtain the corresponding skills. Fang Qing shook his head. The second major function is to travel to take me out of danger. It can also be said to be everywhere, but currently I can only shuttle back and forth between the anchor point of this water and the place where I came from. Is it an extra portal? As for the third major function is that the Daosheng pearl has its own immunity to divine calculations, divination and other functions. It is called Ruzai is in the calculation. The so-called Ruzai is in the calculation means that the Daoshengzhu can also weave a layer of false identity information such as fate for him, so as to deceive the calculation. If it is simply not included in the calculation and is just a dead object, it would be fine, but as the master, Fang Qing will inevitably become an information black hole. It may not be obvious at first, but with the many interactions with the monks, sooner or later the loopholes will be exposed in the pile of abnormal data around him. This, if it is calculated, is different. The weaving of false fate will allow the fortune teller to obtain a reasonable explanation. Okay. This magical object is enough to protect my fairyland. Fang Qing opened his eyes, looking excited, and then saw several seagulls flying over his head. He didn't take it seriously, and started to try paddling, learning to swim, and looked around. The water is salty, could it be the sea? I don't know if there are any islands nearby, or if there are any ships passing by. As for danger such as sharks or lack of physical strength? Fang Qing was not too panicked. Anyway, he could always go back to the small ravine where he fell. After half a day, Fang Qing began to feel tired. He looked in the direction of the sun, squinted his eyes, and suddenly his expression changed. In the direction not far away, trident-like ripples suddenly appeared on the original sea surface, and the gray dorsal fin could be faintly seen. There are several huge shadows under the water, approaching quickly. Bad luck, dodge. Fang Qing's heart moved, and his figure disappeared instantly. Boom. In a trance, Fang Qing seemed to see the birth and death of the universe, the opening up of the world, the endless chaotic airflow rolled, the clouds steamed and the clouds bloomed. Tao gave birth to one life gave birth to two gave birth to three gave birth to all things, flowers, birds, insects, fish, all kinds of things in the world. Is this the feeling of being omnipresent? Daoshengzhu appeared in front of Fang Qing's eyes again, and the clear and turbid air could be faintly seen rolling, like a door. The ancient Shu land. Mountain. The morning light is dim. With a flash of light, Fang Qing's figure emerged. As for the refugees, they had naturally left long ago. Hoo-hoo. It's not worth my persistence for a long time. Fang Qing looked at the sky and estimated in his mind, should the speed of time in the two worlds be about the same? He looked at the damp clothes on his body, couldn't help but smile bitterly, found an open space, and started to light a fire to dry them. After all, this is ancient times, and catching a cold is no joke. He has just seen many tribesmen die of illness. Huh? While sorting it out, Fang Qing touched the fairy calendar on his chest and couldn't help but scream in pain. When I opened it, I found that the originally incomplete calendar had been soaked in water for half a day, and most of it had been destroyed. Only some vague handwriting could be vaguely legible. January, void sun, holds the year. On the third day, dark stars are in the sky, avoid drawing talismans and refining elixirs. March, tail fire, August, ghost gold? Fang Qing sorted out the information he could read. And sighed again, why is there no secret text or interlayer when it is soaked? Are the ancients honest enough to deceive me? The ancients are just lying to me. As for the few-year-olds who can see clearly, it makes him understand a lot more about the world. It seems that these powerful powers are closely related to the daily production and sacrificial activities of the human race, and even the direction of mountains and rivers, the movement of the sun, moon and stars, and the changes of all things in nature. So they are recorded. How powerful is this? And it seems to be related to something I have learned. There is some connection with some ancient knowledge, the 28 constellations? Or the 12 zodiac signs? Alas, it's a pity that I can't even enter the door of cultivation. How can I know the secrets? After thinking about it, Fang Qing began to think about his future. I am too weak now. I have a lot of treasures in my possession, but I have no power to protect them, just like a kid in the city holding gold. The large group of fleeing troops must not be able to go back. Go to the county or prefectural city alone? There are many people and it is not conducive to crossing, and I will be unlucky if I am seen, so, why not just stay in the wilderness for a while, explore the world over there, and try to gain some self-protection power. Anyway, there is the sea over there. Where there is sea water, there is salt, so supplies are not a problem. Please ask for help in the wilderness. Are you alive? You have to make a raft first. Being soaked in sea water is not a problem. You can learn to swim by the way. Fang Qing gritted his teeth and was startled again. I seem to have forgotten someone. Forget it, uncle, please be lucky. If something happens to you, I will definitely avenge you and will not change my surname and divorce. 3 days later. Outside the cave. The aroma of barbecue fills the air, and above the fire, grilled fish are skewered on several branches. Fang Qing rotated it from time to time and sprinkled it with white salt. After a while, he opened his mouth wide and took a bite, frowning. It's a little burnt, and there are no other seasonings, and the taste is very ordinary. This level is not as good as the grilled fish from any stall in the previous life, alas. After forcibly filling his stomach, he returned to the cave, blocked the door, and with a thought, the world turned around. In the blink of an eye, we arrived on a raft. The water vapor on the raft was faint, and the dark clouds in the sky gradually dispersed. It was obvious that a storm had just occurred. The sea is really fickle, but fortunately the small wooden plank of friendship did not overturn. Fang Qing knocked on his raft with satisfaction and followed the current. He looked into the distance, at the junction of the sea and the sky, with a somewhat anxious look on his face. I thought too highly of myself, thinking that after watching a few seasons of wilderness, I could become the lord of the wilderness. As a result, I couldn't stand being a savage after a few days, so I had to wait 2 more days. If I still couldn't see any hope in 2 days, I need to go to the nearby city first. Perhaps God was not kind to him after all. Half an hour later, Fang Qing looked at a black line emerging in the distance, with a look of surprise on his face. Island? Jade Island. In the marginal waters, Old Man Cha was taking his granddaughter Zhuer out to sea in his own boat. The sea is dangerous. If you go too far out to sea, you may encounter monsters. His family cannot afford a big boat that can cut through the waves. Their own boat is said to be a small boat, but in fact it is just a small sampan. It only dares to wander in the sea near the island. If it goes too far, the boat may be destroyed and people will die. While taking care of the fishing net, Old Man Cha told his granddaughter, "We don't have much food at home. You can catch more seafood later." The old man brought all the red dragonwood fishing rods passed down from his ancestors this time. He may not be able to catch a precious fish. He watched his granddaughter, who was only 10 years old, busy, and had expectations in his heart. Wang, in more than 3 months, it will be time to test the qualifications of Baihaman. I can't say that Zhuer really has an immortal destiny. Even if there is no immortal destiny, eating a treasure fish can still lay the foundation of qi and blood, and become a martial artist. The islands in the overseas cultivation world are sparse and the products are not abundant. The monks naturally have a supply of spiritual rice, but the mortals can only rely on the sea to eat. Fortunately, mortals are the foundation of monks. When there are more people, there will always be spiritual wizards among them. Therefore, there are great spiritual planters who specialize in cultivating special seaweeds and seaweeds. After fishermen catch them, they re them and become food. The old man's children died young and he only has one granddaughter. The baby is like nothing else. Now his biggest wish is to pave the way for his granddaughter. At this moment, Old Man Cha, who was about to swing, suddenly rubbed his eyes and seemed to see something floating on the sea. When I got closer, I realized it was a young man holding a wooden board. Is this a shipwreck? Old Man Cha quickly drove the boat closer and took a closer look. Seeing the rough linen clothes on the young man's body, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief and shouted, "Is that young man still alive?" Fang Qing abandoned the raft when he saw the island and fluttered around with a piece of wood. Sure enough, not long after, he saw a fishing boat approaching, and the old man on top shouted. Huh? He blinked and found that he actually understood a few words. Originally, when he came to a different world, language barrier was the norm, but he found that this old man's language was somewhat similar to Ba language. Could it be? Fang Qing's heart moved and he replied loudly, "I can still breathe." End of this chapter. Time passes. After 3 months. Jasper Island. A fishing village. Fang Qing's upper body is red and she is showing off the internet. Ever since he was rescued by Old Man Cha and his family 3 months ago, he has been taken in by the other party and rushed to work for him, mainly to familiarize himself with the environment and practice the language. Although the language of Jasper Island is somewhat similar to the Ba language, it is still somewhat different and needs to be adjusted one by one. Fortunately, the old man Nacha thought he came from far away. There were long distances between the major islands, so it was normal for his accent to change. Fang Qing's explanation for his identity was, of course, the cliché of amnesia. He only remembered his name. After all, he was unfamiliar with the place and couldn't make up any good excuses. Fortunately, Old Man Cha didn't care and took him in directly. Although according to Fang Qing's observation, the other party just wants to have more labor force, and may have other intentions. Thanks to the seafood that can be harvested here, mortals can actually have enough food and clothing, without missing a mouthful of food from me. Brother Fang, it's time to eat. Just as Fang Qing was sighing, a little girl trotted over holding a sea bowl with a chipped mouth. Thank you, Pearl. Fang Qing took it and saw pieces of dark green pastry in the bowl, which tasted like seaweed and rice. This is food made from seaweed. Although it tastes average, it is still enough to fill your stomach. Occasionally, he picked up some seafood. In terms of the richness of the goods, it actually exceeded the Sanctuary Ao where he lived before. Of course, it was still incomparable with his previous life. Hee. Pearl was wearing a bright red short coat, with a braid on her head, her eyes were very cute, and she was squatting on the ground playing with shells. Jure, you are so cute, you must have the qualifications to cultivate immortality, eh? NDB selected by Baihaman to become an immortal, Fang Qing teased. After this period of understanding, he already has some knowledge of this sea area. Xiaohuanhai, Jasper Island. Xiaohuanhai is part of the East China Sea cultivation realm, located in the southeast corner. There are 3 sects in it, and all the ancestors of Jiedan are here to protect the people, and the monsters in the sea dare not attack. And in this small world, there are also small islands dotted here and there. Some of them have foundation building overhauls stationed on them, turning them into a small force. Some of them are protected by Chang Qi immortal masters, making it difficult to survive. Because the outer sea is very dangerous, mortals cannot survive on the island without the guardianship of Chang Qi monks. Mortals live together with monks, so many information are not secret. Fang Qing looked into the depths of the island with deep eyes. The Baihaman is considered a prestigious and upright sect. Every once in a while, children with spiritual roots will be selected to join. This is my chance. His eyes are hot. Although he is a bit older at 14 or 15 years old, in order to cultivate immortality, it doesn't matter if the old cucumber is painted green. What's more, the immortal cultivation techniques here are the kind that I imagine you can practice if you have the qualifications and will not be stuck at the threshold of the first Qi. There are many legends in the fishing village about martial arts masters who fell into the sea and found the relics of their predecessors, or poor scholars who found the secrets of cultivating immortals from the scriptures, and then started practicing and became immortals. Compared with the high threshold for cultivating immortals in ancient Shu, Fang Qing felt that the cultivation techniques here were more suitable for him. Of course, the greatest confidence lies in returning to one's roots with a golden finger. Even if you could the wrong path, you are not afraid. The greatest joy in life is to have the power to regret your moves. Therefore, Fang Qing is determined to win the Baihaman Immortal Fate Conference. At dusk, the sun sets in the west and there are thousands of golden lights. Haha, Xiaofang, come and help me. On the Cha family fishing boat, Old Man Cha jumped down with a wooden barrel. Fang Qing took it and found that there were sea fish crowded together. Unlucky today, there are only a few blue and white fish. Old Man Cha shook his head. It would be great if I could catch a treasure fish. Fang Qing knew that the so-called precious fish were actually beyond ordinary fish, but a different species with many medicinal values, even used by immortal masters. Among mortals, it is even more valuable. Sure enough, you can rely on the mountains to eat the mountains, and the sea to eat the sea. It is said that those who rely on the Qi chain to do major repairs, and their daily practice mostly rely on treasure fish. As for the foundation building power? Naturally, I have to eat real monsters. Compared with monsters, the so-called alien treasure fish are probably only at the half-demon level. Once they become real monsters, ordinary fishermen cannot deal with them at all, and it is easy for their boats to be destroyed and people to die. Pearl's parents are said to have died like this. You have caught red-scaled snapper when you were young, and you can definitely catch another one. Fang Qing chuckled, knowing how to say that Old Man Cha was the happiest. While coaxing the old man, he began to take action to deal with the mackerel. These mackerel had blue-scaled fangs and a fierce attitude. They even wanted to bite his fingers. The tails flapped with great force, making it difficult to deal with them. Thinking of this, Fang Qing's eyes darkened slightly, and his shots were like lightning. Red sand hand. The surface of his palm turned slightly red, he grabbed a mackerel. And with a little force, he crushed the fish's brain. Good boy, this red sand hand is a beginner. Seeing this, Old Man Cha nodded with satisfaction. The so-called red sand hands is a third-rate martial arts. It is not a big deal on Bu Island. Most mortals can learn 1 or 2 hands to strengthen their bodies. For the sea people in this fishing village, the most popular skills are the red sand hand and the 1000 Jing pendant. The former is the skill of catching fish and needs to be practiced with a kind of red sand unique to the beach. The Tianjin Peng is a lightweight skill, used to fix the body on the boat. Fang Qing wanted to get on the boat to help, so Lao Cha Tu naturally passed on 2 skills to him. Haha, Old Man Jia took out a cigarette rod with a bronze tip and smiled, resting against the board of the boat. Watching Fang Qing cook the mackerel one by one, he suddenly said, Brother, it's been 3 months since you've been here, right? Yes, it's been 3 months. Fang Qing kept holding on to his hands, knowing what Old Man Jia's intention was. You want to go to the Immortal Fate Conference? Although Bihai Xianmen recruits children, you are older and not from the island, so it will be difficult. Old Man Cha shook his head and said. Please give me your advice. Fang Qing packed up the mackerel and stepped forward to bow respectfully. He knew that the old fisherman might have saved him out of kindness for a while, but taking him in for so long and teaching him martial arts couldn't be explained by mere kindness. This person must want something and want to use me. But it's worth being thankful that it's worth using. At least they invested first. Fang Qing's expression did not change. Next to her, Zhuer blinked, stepped forward and knocked her grandfather on the back, with a milky tone in her voice. Grandpa, just help brother Fang, go. Old man Cha was so angry that he gave Fang Qing a hard look, and then coaxed Zhuer away, and then during this period, I kept going out to sea and wandered around the waters near the island, but unfortunately I didn't catch a single treasure fish. If there is a treasure fish to improve the qualifications, even if Sister Zhuer has no spiritual roots, she can still practice martial arts after the Immortal Fate Conference. Fang Qing said that he knew it. This treasure fish is worth at least 100 silver shells each. Old man Jia sighed. Our village does not dare to go to the deep sea. If we can catch 2 or 3 treasure fish in a lifetime, it is worthy of praise. But I know a way. In a few days is the Sea Dragon King's birthday. During the sacrifice, the Sea Dragon Reef will surely attract precious fish. The so-called birthday of the Sea Dragon King. Old man Jia looked gloomy and began to tell, it is a sacrifice for us fishermen. We need to use an old-style punting boat to rush to the sea, and deliver the sacrifices and the strong men who guard the sacrifices to the Sea Dragon Reef. When the big ship leaves at night, only a few strong men are left to look after the sacrifices. At dawn after spending the night, there will be a spectacle of thousands of fish worshipping. There must be a few treasure fish among them. With your current skills, it is still possible to catch one. After he finished speaking, he stared at Fang Qing expectantly. This matter must be very dangerous. I wonder where the danger lies. I have a few questions, please clarify them. Fang Qing looked solemn. Danger. Of course there are, but nothing major happened in previous years, Old Man Cha explained one by one, with a solemn expression. Brother, you are so tall and tall, you must not be a thing in the pond. The little old man guarantees it with his family name and ancestors. As long as you agree to participate in the Hailong festival, he will immediately vouch for you and let you settle in this Dahua fishing village and you will definitely participate. In the Immortal Fate Conference, it sounds like, it doesn't seem to be very dangerous. That's weird. Fang Qing thought in his heart, with the Blue Sea Gate here, there must be no big monsters who dare to act arrogant, but the so-called Sea Dragon King is still very suspicious. Fortunately, I heard this process, only people on the reefs are in danger. And the danger is at night, so you can avoid it directly. Although he had an inclination in his heart, a look of embarrassment still appeared on his face. I have to think about it carefully. Of course, little brother, think about it carefully. Immortal fate is a rare opportunity. At your age, if you miss this year, you may not be able to repay it next year. Old Man Cha smiled. In Fang Qing's opinion, this old face was somewhat similar to his old uncle. Late night. Fang Qing checked the surroundings, carried a bucket of red sand, and called out with his mind. Daoshengzhu. Boom. The clouds are steaming and the clouds are shining, and the sky and the earth are interchanged. The clear and turbid air rolled and formed a portal. In the blink of an eye, the world has changed. The land of ancient Shu, inside a cave. Fang Qing's figure appeared, and there were several jackal bones next to him. Their heads were sunken, and they were obviously beaten to death with heavy techniques. He touched his hands and pondered a little. I used the golden finger's ability to return to the original, to convert the inner energy of the red sand hand into yuan qi, but only a little bit of it? At this time, if Fang Qing looks inside the Daosheng pearl, he can sense that somewhere in the mysterious world, not in the body, not outside the body, the red sand hand skill he originally practiced suddenly turned into a white light spot 10 times smaller than a grain of rice, which made people almost ignore it. Fortunately, the power of the 1000 gene pendant can be transformed in the same way, and then added to Hongsha's hands. This is the reason why I have made rapid progress in my practice in the past 3 months. Although he rarely traveled back in time, he has been exploring the use of the golden finger. For example, return to one's roots. With a thought in Fang Qing's mind, that grain of yuan qi suddenly turned into Qian Jin Peng's cultivation, making his legs strong and powerful, equivalent to those of fishermen who have practiced for half a year. This is amazing. His face was filled with joy. It seems that if I practice a lot of low-level skills and then wash them all, I may be able to quickly increase the points of a martial arts to the peak, even to the point of perfection? Fang Qing thought for a while, then hesitated. However, efficiency and loss, as well as the bottleneck of advanced martial arts and other issues need to be considered. Rustle. Fang Qing's expression was solemn, and his hands were red, like sharp swords, which he kept inserting into the red sand in the barrel. This sea sand comes from the beach outside the fishing village. It is said that it is the place where a certain demon beast wept its blood. A large area of the beach has turned red and has not been used for hundreds of years. Using this kind of red sand to practice red sand hands has made rapid progress, which is better than many medicinal baths. Puff. A little sweat appeared on Fang Qing's forehead, but the movements of his hands did not change at all. As the sand continued to flow through his fingertips, the red color on his hands gradually deepened. The skill has deepened even further. Half an hour later, Fang Qing was lying on the ground without any image, breathing heavily. The red sand hand can only be practiced for 2 hours a day, but after removing its power, my body seems to be more able to withstand it, and I can practice for half an hour every day. This should be a small convenience for returning to one's origins, Fang Qing secretly remembered. After taking a short rest, he stood up again and began to practice the 1000-category plunge. Although these two martial arts are only third-rate martial arts, Fang Qing still cherishes them. After all, in the previous Fang family in Sanshuiao, there was no martial arts at all. Speaking of which, the martial arts from Xiaohuanhai can be used universally here. Is it because it is too basic, just the transformation of ordinary body force and strength? Or is it the power of Goldfinger? Fang Qing has always had some concerns, such as whether the extraordinary systems of the two worlds are compatible. But it doesn't matter if you have Daoshengzhu. What's more, he has no choice at all. Ordinary people's bodies have limits. 4 hours of high-intensity martial arts training a day must be combined with large tonic potions and meat. Not to mention, these martial arts have their own limitations. For example, red sand hands, you can practice for up to 2 hours a day, after which the body cannot bear it, but I use the golden finger to turn the time and experience of practicing 1000 Jing pendant into red sand hands, which is almost the same. Equivalent to doubling the experience value. Of course, it may not be completely transformed. After all, they are two different martial arts. If they are replaced by other second-rate and first-rate martial arts, maybe if I practice third-rate martial arts for 10 hours, I can only transform the skills of first-rate martial arts for 1 hour. In addition, practicing martial arts will also encounter bottlenecks. Fang Qing silently recorded the proportions and states of his various transformations to prepare for the future exploration of golden finger abilities. Now, I can barely protect myself, so I can go find my uncle. He looked outside the mountain and sighed. There was a mystery about the pregnancy before. The young man was ignorant and didn't know much. He only knew that this side of the world was extremely vast, and that the land of ancient Shu alone exceeded the area of the great country in the previous life, and that the Bajuan where the Fang family was located had many cities and was densely populated. According to what the old uncle revealed before, we are planning to flee to Tianfu City, which is the nearest big city from here and has a stable order. If he is hunted down and has a lot of money in his hand, he will definitely run to the city. Maybe we can go and have a look. Tianfu City. The city gate stands tall and looks a bit mottled with time. After entering the city, there is a huge flow of people. On both sides of the road, there are clothing stores, cloth shops, pawn shops, restaurants, brothels, rouge and gouache shops. All kinds of shops are lined up in rows, which is almost overwhelming. Fang Qing stood at the city GA. Looking at the notices and see arrest documents, his eyes darkened. I didn't say who I came here to seek refuge with. I'm looking for a needle in a haystack. Fortunately, when he came this time, he was looking for someone just in case. Seeing that the old uncle was not there, he turned around and walked towards Gulan, the restaurant next to it, Tianwaila. Although I really want to see the service industry in this world, I want to listen to the music. But Fang Qing had to admit that he was captured by the aroma of wine, coriander, and vegetables. For a wilderness traveler, a big meal is more attractive than anything else. After all, you can only think about things when you are full and warm. Wait, only children make choices, adults should want them all. Fang Qing turned around again and walked into a Gulan. This young master, does he have a familiar sister? A turtle man immediately came up to him with a flattering smile on his face. No, call me a few girls to sing songs. By the way, go to the Tianwei restaurant next door and order a good banquet. Fang Qing took out a broken piece of silver. The site on Jasper Island uses a kind of silver shell instead of silver coins, but its purchasing power is much lower than that on the ancient Shu side. Fang Qing doesn't care about money. Having mastered the passage between the two worlds, he will become the richest man in the world sooner or later. Huan is wearing a white snow-crimson skirt and cage, bending with infinite style. The mandarin duck quilt is holding the spring breeze. A moment later, in the box, two women with heavy makeup were singing while looking at the guests with resentment. After bathing and changing clothes, Fang Qing is now wearing a loose green shirt. Not to mention Yushu Linfeng, he is at least a handsome young man, much better than those 70-year-old and 80-year-old Buxiao. However, this guest really just listened to the music and didn't even look at them. Of course Fang Qing would not tell them that although he had never eaten or used it after being influenced by his previous life, his vision was still very high. What's more, there is something more attractive to him: meat. Braised pork. When you eat it, your mouth will be full of oil, and it has a fresh aroma from the pot. The rice is steamed until it is fragrant and soft. Mixed with the gravy, you can definitely eat 3 bowls in a row. There are also verdant green vegetables, mellow and delicious chicken soup. The only thing that Fang Qing didn't like was the squirrel mandarin fish. I was really tired of eating the fish. In Gukhan, 3 religions and 9 streams gather together. It is a first-class well-informed place. It's just 100 miles apart, but you don't even know that there is a plague in my hometown? Fang Qing was eating rice and thinking in his heart. After he had eaten and drank enough, he joked with the 2 resentful sisters again, rejected the other party's invitation to stay overnight, walked out of the hook railing, and stretched out comfortably. This is life. Unfortunately, he and Old Man Cha only took 1 day off, and for now, he still has to focus on Bu Island. It's getting late, it's time to leave the city. Fang Qing walked out of the city gate and walked towards the remote road. Not long after, he suddenly frowned. Who is it? Come out. As soon as he finished speaking, 3 big men flashed out of the dense forest behind him. The leader had a pockmarked face and a dagger in his hand. With a sneer on his face, the old one ran away, and the younger one, Ma Laosan? Fang Qing recognized this person immediately. He turned out to be the leader of the group of refugees who surrounded and killed him. He couldn't help but be very surprised. How did you find me? Hee hee. I have spies at the gate of the city. You really threw yourself into the trap. If you were in the city, we would still have some scruples. Now, Ma Laosan ped forward with a ferocious smile. There is something wrong with you, something very wrong. Fang Qing's face darkened. The value of me is not worth your pursuit for 3 months, right? Or, there is another hidden secret in this matter? Humph. Although Ma Laosan was a villain, he didn't talk much at all, and he rushed up with his people. If it were Fang Qing 3 months ago, he would have no choice but to be captured this time. But now? Fang Qing's hands were red, and they suddenly separated into 2 palms, like 2 dragons going out to sea. Bang bang. The 2 Ma Laosan's men screamed, their chests sunken, and they fell back. Huh? You know martial arts? Ma Laosan flashed. The dagger in his hand was like a poisonous snake spitting a letter, and he actually knew some rudimentary 3-legged cat kung fu. When Fang Qing saw this scene, he curled up his mouth slightly, reached out with his right hand, and grabbed Ma Laosan's wrist holding the dagger as if he were diving into the water to catch a fish. The next moment, he exerted force on his feet, exerting the force of a 1,000 gene drop. His right foot was like a hammer, landing suddenly on Ma Laosan's instep. Click. The ear-piercing sound of bone cracking sounded. Ma Laosan looked twisted, screamed, and fell to the ground. Let's go. Fang Qing mentioned Ma Laosan and disappeared quickly. Wildness, a hill. Fang Qing threw Ma Laosan away casually. How do you feel about this place being your burial place? Although Ma Laosan's face was pale and there was cold sweat on his forehead caused by pain, his face was full of sinister birds of prey. I didn't expect you to have good martial arts. I have nothing to say. Say, just die. It's a pity that my family died due to the plague caused by thieves, and I can't take revenge. Revenge? Fang Qing suddenly remembered that Ma Laosan was actually a refugee like him and his uncle, and he was even a fellow villager who was not particularly close to him before. You mean? This plague is a man-made disaster, not a natural disaster? His heart trembled suddenly, thinking of his family. That's right. I took refuge in the Luo family, and finally found out that we didn't have to die. It was just that thieves from the Black Sect were practicing the spell-refining technique in our hometown. Only then did the plague spread, leaving 9 rooms empty. But outside the scope of the spell, we were naturally fine. Ma Laosan gritted his teeth. Black Gate? Practitioner? Fang Qing already believed in his heart that if it weren't for supernatural power, there would be no way to explain why there was no plague in the large team after leaving the plague land. Wait, this is something between immortals. How do you know? Did the Luo family tell you? Suddenly, he caught another important point. Is it the Luo family? The Luo family is a real local power. In theory, a large area of land around the Fang family's Sanshueo is controlled by the Luo family. The Fang family's annual moonlight sacrificial vessels were all sold to the Luo family. That's right. Ma Laosan smiled miserably. I know I'm going to die today, but you will definitely take revenge on the Black Gate. It doesn't matter if I tell you. I originally just planned to flee my hometown, but the Luo family found me and asked me to pay attention to several families, including your Fang family. Tracing the remnants of our Fang family? What to do? Fang Qing was even more confused. I don't know, I just heard a few vague words, saying that your Fang family's fortune is very good, and that when the plague is over, you will continue to cultivate your literary style. Ma Laosan's eyes were also a little blank. Life is good, how about cultivating writing style? Fang Qing secretly noted it down, interrogated and reviewed the details several times, and confirmed that Ma Laosan was not making it up. Then he raised his hand, pressed it on the opponent's Tianling, and sent the oppo. Nend on his way. Jasper Island. On the seaside, big waves wash over the sand with an astonishing momentum. Fang Qing's mood was as turbulent as the sea, thinking back to the information he had obtained from Ma Laosan before. The fate is very good. Scholarship, family tradition? Qi collection method, immortal? Many clues were connected one by one in his mind, turning into a conjecture. The Luo family can rule one side, and 80% of the families have monks. It's just that the power is not as powerful as the Black Sect, and others can only sit back and watch when others spread plagues within his sphere of influence. But for us mortals, it is a giant. The mortal our Fang family met 100 years ago was not named Luo, right? The Luo family asked our Fang family to obtain the method of gathering qi, so that my family could get money every year, and then start a school to cultivate the literary style, and then collect qi for his family. Is this taking away from my family's fate or literary qi? I can't help but feel horrified at this thought. For the Luo family, the Fang family is like domestic animals that have been raised for hundreds of years. No wonder our Fang family is poor, but all the children can read. It turns out there is a reason for this. Fang Qing solved another doubt in his heart. According to common sense, even if the family has income from gas extraction, it cannot be spent entirely on education. In this way, the evil behavior of the Black Sect has actually disrupted the Luo family's plan. I guess the Luo family is a little overwhelmed now, otherwise they wouldn't have just let Ma Laosan, Immortal, deal with us, but then again, are all the monks in the ancient Shu land so insidious? One layout lasts for 100 years, and even after the plan fails, even if only our Fang family is left. There are 2 or 3 big cats and kittens, all of whom are working tirelessly to track down. To kill people and eliminate hidden dangers? Or continue to raise pigs? In comparison, Bu Island, where everything is on the surface, can be called simple folk. Fang Qing looked solemn. I can't go there recently, there are monks in the Luo family. After Ma Laosan's death, the level of attention will definitely increase. But now, he is not strong enough. If I want to deal with the monks over there, I must at least have magic power, right? For 100 years of grudge, our Fang family has lost more than just a few hundred strands of moonlight. There must be something more important. Fang Qing clenched his fists and was imprisoned for 100 years. What kind of grudge is this? One day, he will definitely find out the truth and give him retribution one by one. The only good news is that my uncle was not caught last time. I hope he will have his own destiny. Fang Qing sighed and returned to Dahua fishing village. As soon as we entered the village entrance, we were greeted by several young people. The leader is very tall and has dark skin. Fang Qing recognized that these were gangsters in the village, and the leader was named Ruanqi. Fang Qing, just left, why did you come back? When Ruanqi saw Fang Qing, his expression was a little ugly. Of course I don't want to see you bullying orphans and widowers. Fang Qing shook his head. In the past 3 months, he had heard a lot of news in the fishing village. For example, each family has quotas and obligations during the annual Sea Dragon King's birthday. Without him, Old Man Cha and his family would not know how much they would have to pay. Even, maybe you will be forced to destroy your family, which is also a deprivation in a sense. Humph. I'm waiting for you to die on Hailong Reef. Ruanqi's eyes were sharp, as if he wanted to take action, but he had no scruples, so he just sneered. Fang Qing passed by him and came to Old Man Cha's house. Brother, I have been out for the past few days, but have you found out? There is no way that there is an old man in his family with such good conditions. Old Man Cha touched the copper-tip cigarette rod in his hand, with an expectant smile on his face, and did not feel at all that he was forced into a dead end. This old man is quite calm. Fang Qing secretly laughed in his heart. If I clapped my hands and said I won't play anymore, I don't know if he would vomit blood. However, after all, he had saved him and formed a good relationship, so he definitely couldn't do this. Naturally. He nodded. Very good, the old man will take you to settle down immediately. A smile appeared on Old Man Cha's face, and he knocked his cigarette pot on the bluestone beneath him. The old man will take care of everything, so you can rest assured. He planned to settle Fang Qing in his own home, so that it would be justifiable for Fang Qing to contribute to the Dragon King's birthday. Yes, the so-called Baoyu was a cover thrown by Old Man Cha from the beginning. What he really wanted was for Fang Qing to offer sacrifices on his behalf, and that would be enough. If you can get a treasure fish, it is an unexpected surprise. If you don't, there is no regret. With Baoyu, Pearl may have a backing up after the Immortal Fate Conference, but if her family is ruined before the Immortal Fate Conference, she will have nothing. Yeah. Fang Qing said nothing and nodded lightly. Old Man Cha turned around and left, but after turning his back, his eyes suddenly darkened, as if he felt a little guilty, set up the sails, to welcome the Dragon King. On the birthday of the Sea Dragon King. Accompanied by the desolate and high-pitched voice of an old fisherman, dozens of small boats set off from the Dahua fishing village. Fang Qing was wearing a raincoat, his face was painted with oil paint, and he had an unknown feather on his head. He complained in his heart, "This dress is simply too good." But at this time, he stood with a serious face, looking at the sacrifice next to him. These sacrificial of fearings contain wine and meat, which are rare good things for fishermen. There is a faint medicinal fragrance on the surface of the dark wine jar. What surprised him even more was that after sailing a few sea miles, another wave of fishing boats gathered together like hundreds of rivers returning to the sea, turning into a large fleet. How many people are there in this Heilongdan? Fang Qing couldn't help but take a breath when he saw this. The nearby Heiyu village, Shanghong village, Xiaohong village, are all here. I don't know what the young man knows. This Sea Dragon King's birthday is a celebration of Arbiu Island. There are hundreds of sea dragon reefs alone. Next to him, a thin-lipped, dark-skinned fisherman laughed. Fang Qing recognized that this person seemed to be one of the gangsters who followed Wan Qi. Hundreds of sea dragon reefs? He exclaimed in his heart, "This scale is really scary. This Jasper Island is quite big, but it is normal when you think about it." It is said that the proportion of ordinary people who have immortality is almost 1 in 1,000. How many school-aged children can a village have? Hailong Reef. From a distance, this reef looks like a giant turtle lying on its back, with its limbs stretched out, and the gaps between its claws form an excellent berth. At this time, fishing boats docked one after another, and many fishermen formed a long snake and gathered towards the center of the island. This island is not small either. Fang Qing carried the drink with steady steps. Most fishermen have practiced the 1,000 drop, which is a basic skill. Everyone walked quickly and came to the middle of the island. They saw a lake with thousands of sunset lights, sparkling waves, and rippling golden liquid. We've arrived. Pan longbow. Sacrifice, start. A few old fishermen shouted, and a group of people began to place sacrifices, build fires, altars. Fang Qing noticed that everyone was moving very fast, as if they were afraid of being late and not having time to run. At night, there is indeed a great terror. He had no intention of appreciating it, just thinking about it silently. Sure enough, when the sacrifice was over, a group of people couldn't wait to run away, leaving only a few dozen strong men guarding the offerings looking at each other. In Fang Qing's eyes, he and others are more like real offerings than guards. After all, in ancient times, it was normal to sacrifice human beings, commonly known as stake driving, jinchuriki, etc. The night was deep, and the darkness outside was like a giant beast with its bloody mouth open, almost ready to choose people and devour them. Seeing this scene, Fang Qing silently made up his mind and took a few steps away. Wait, what are you going to do? The gangsters on the same boat had been staring at Fang Qing, and when they saw that he was about to leave, they immediately shouted. Just take a walk. Anyway, no ship can leave Hailong Reef after dark. This is an iron rule. And as long as the sacrifice does not leave the Panlongbo area, it will be fine, right? Fang Qing kept walking and soon disappeared into the darkness. On the altar, a huge torch flickered on and off, illuminating the face of the gangster who had just opened his mouth like an evil ghost. His face twitched a few times, and he sneered, "He is indeed from another village." During the sacrifice, leaving Panlongpa will only lead to a worse death. The warriors from other villages did not say a word, but moved closer to the torch. The night became darker. A stick of incense passed, half a moment, half an hour, rust. Rust. Suddenly, rustling sounds came from all directions, as if some giant thing was squeezing the gravel grass, causing the surrounding shrubs to scream overwhelmed. Come on the altar. All the warriors' faces were pale. They may not know the owner of the voice, but they can already imagine from the rustling sound what kind of giant thing is wandering and approaching, closer, closer. Finally, in the gangster's almost suffocating state, he saw 2 blood-red coquettish lights, which quickly grew in size, like 2 red lanterns in the darkness. Hiss. Ah. No. Don't. Sea Dragon King, spare my life. We have been worshipping and worshipping devoutly, on another desert island, countless warriors as sacrifices screamed and ran away, but they could not escape the huge mouth. If you look down from the clouds, you will find that it is actually a python with a waist thicker than a bucket. It swallowed up all the powerful men, rolled up the wine jar as a sacrifice with its tail, and drank like a wind and a lingering cloud. Its actions became more wanton and haphazard, and it casually climbed up a hillside and began to swallow and vomit towards the bright moon in the sky. Threads of purple mist linger around the big blue snake, making it look more and more like a dream. Okay. This snake can already breathe out inspiration. It has finally entered the first level and become a monster. A huge green leaf is suspended above the clouds. At the tip of the blade, there was a young man in blue shirt. Looking at this scene, he couldn't help but laugh. We have established 108 islands and reefs. We will be rewarded with many meritorious deeds when we go back. If this little blue is powerful, he can inspire a trace of dragon blood in his body in the future and become a second-order monster. I can't believe that our hope for foundation building lies in it, Senior Brother Yi. There is a young disciple standing behind the young man in blue, with a look of unbearability on his face. Is this a group of sea snakes with the blood of dragons that you perform blood sacrifices every year? I know that you are a fairy seedling selected from a fishing village, and you can't bear it. Senior Brother Lanchan Yi chuckled and said, but don't you think about it, without us immortal masters, where would the mortals come from? Without us protecting the island, these ants would have long become prey for monsters, let alone, we also gave spiritual food to feed all the people. What kind of merit is this? A mere blood sacrifice is just a slight flaw in white jade, which does not affect the overall situation. The young man surnamed Ji opened his hands. What's more, there is something inside these snakes. After the silk dragon bloodline breaks through the second level, it is more likely to give birth to a demon core, which is the main material for refining the foundation establishment pill. Without them, our Bihai sect would have to go deep into the demon sea to kill many second-level demon beasts before we can be lucky enough to obtain a second-level demon core. We have so much energy to refine. What will happen to the disciples' path? Junior Brother Zhang, if you disobey this, you will be disobeying the overall situation of our Bihai sect. Even if your master is a foundation-building monk, he can't protect you. Junior Brother Zhang could only remain silent, watching Senior Brother Yi make hand gestures and murmuring words. As the mana surged, a strange blood talisman was activated and fell into the body of the snake on the hillside. The snake kept struggling, but its strength was not enough. It is just a monster that has just entered the level, equivalent to a monk in the early stage of chi refining. How can it be the opponent of Senior Brother Yi in the middle stage of chi refining? What's more, there is also a demon control talisman that is specialized in blood restraint. Immediately, the ferocious light in his eyes quickly faded, replaced by a gentle look. Haha, good snake, come with us. Senior Brother Yi laughed and flew away with the green leaf. Magic weapon. In the blast of wind, the words of the junior brother were vaguely heard. Can 108 islands be achieved? Junior Brother is overthinking. Even with the medicinal wine we specially asked the villagers to brew, and the energy and blood of the martial arts practitioners to help, it's incredible to be able to achieve even 100% success. Most of the disciples of our sect will return without success. After becoming monsters, it will be difficult to advance to the second level if they are raised again. They must be brought back to the sect and assisted by the Hualong Pond to have any hope. This is still a snake with dragon blood, ordinary. The promotion of the monster to the second level is equivalent to the foundation building of our monks. It is a natural chasm. Then I heard that after the birth of the sea dragon, there will be a spectacle of 10,000 fish worshipping. It turns out that it is the half-demon treasure fish who sensed the opportunity to break through and came to fight for it. Haha, junior brother, you are really talented. You can draw inferences from one example. After all, we have to give some benefits to those mortals who feed snakes with their bodies, so that they can continue every year. The sky is bright. Fang Qing pushed away a stone and left the cave where he hid last night. This underground cave is naturally used to hide people's eyes and ears. Not far from the altar last night, he immediately dug 3 feet into the ground to hide. Then he returned to ancient Shu and had a good sleep with the help of the omnipresent ability of the Daoshengzhu pearl. Wait, what is this? He was about to leave, when suddenly there was some cold sweat on his forehead. I saw a strange tunnel outside the cave where he was hiding. I in the track, there was still a strange fishy smell, and after smelling it for a long time, it even felt a bit fragrant. Fang Qing followed the track again. After walking a few steps, he came to Panlongpa and saw a mess. Many sacrifices were lying around, the wine jars were missing, and the medicinal wine inside was missing. On the ground, he picked up a few broken blue scales, which shone brightly in the sun. It's so hard. With just a slight test, Fang Qing knew that he would definitely not be able to break the scales. There are masters among these warriors. Unfortunately, I survived in the end. He shook his head and looked at the track that was thicker than a bucket. He probably understood something. Snake path, a demon snake? If it is a snake monster, a mortal warrior will never be a match. Even, he discovered my hiding place last night, which means that this snake demon has excellent tracking and exploration capabilities. If I hadn't been on the island, I'm afraid the disaster would have been worse. Old man Cha, you owe this favor to Dafa. Just as Fang Qing was murmuring, the first ray of sunshine in the morning finally shone on Panlong Water Pond. Crash, a sparkling wave, like the waves of the sea that was not a wave, but a wave. It's the back of the fish, and countless big fish are crowded together, forming the wonder of 10,000 fish worshipping. This water pond must have a waterway connected to the sea, that's why there are so many sea fish, Fang Qing murmured, and his eyes suddenly condensed. Accurately captured several different species among a large number of fish. One of them, with scales as red as fire, is the red-scaled sea bream. The other one has a third eye on its forehead, which is the three-eyed sea bream. Br little green dragon, two-bow fish, autumn kill swordfish, golden tail spot. Fang Qing swallowed, feeling that the knowledge about treasure fish taught by Old Man Cha was too little, and he couldn't recognize it. Hurry! His eyes were a little red, and he immediately came to the edge of the water, plunged into the water, and squeezed into the fish tide. His face was filled with the joy of the harvest. Fang Qing's water skills were average, and he had learned it for several months, and he could barely use it. The key moment was the fish tide. He was completely drifting with the current. He paddled hard and got closer to a few precious fish. This is more energy-consuming than swimming. Fang Qing felt pain everywhere in his body. Suddenly, he caught a ray of red from the corner of his eye. Red-scaled sea bream. He shot like lightning, his hands were all red, and he accurately caught that touch of red smooth. Hard, following it, there was a majestic force, which made Fang Qing almost think that what he caught was not a fish, but a cow. Even though he was extremely careful, the feeling in the water was different from that on land. The red snapper suddenly escaped from the shackles of the red sand hand and converged on the fish. Gone, come again. Fang Qing immediately turned around and grabbed another little green dragon. Hurry, hurry up. Maybe we can catch up with 10,000 fish to worship. Old Man Cha mixed in the crowd and ran towards Panlongbo. As soon as he landed on the island, his face was a little ashamed, but also a little expectant. That young man. I hope he can survive. Wan Qi mingled in the crowd, but had more on his mind. When everyone came to Panlongpa, they saw that the altar was in a mess, and all the fish in the lake had dispersed, except for a young man, soaked all over, holding a small green dragon in his hand. Fang Qing? Old Man Cha's voice was full of surprise. Wan Qi's face was extremely gloomy, especially after not seeing his little brother. It seemed like he was about to drip with tears. I'm lucky, not only did I survive, and also caught a small green dragon. Fang Qing raised the blue sea fish in his hand, smiled, showing his white teeth. I just went back to give Zhuer a snack. Dahua fishing village. Fang Qing looked at the sky and prepared to eat. The main meal was still the pastry made of seaweed, with occasional dried fish. At this moment, Old Man Cha walked in, holding a large blue and white porcelain bowl. Fang Qing. Alas, the old man has nothing to say. This is the Qinglong soup, with a lot of precious medicinal materials added. Just drink it. Fang Qing took it, with a smile on his face. Uncle Cha, you are too polite. This was promised before. Why would I covet Zhuer's things? Zhuer has it, but too much will not make up for it. If you drink Qinglong soup, you will be able to gain at least 3 years of skill, and you can live on your own at sea. Old Man Jia took out another money bag with a few pieces of silver shells in it. These are your expenses. If you are not selected, just leave here. The Ruan family's qi has suffered a loss this time, and the old man is worried that he will cause trouble for you. Thank you. Fang Qing saw the look on Old Man Cha's face and did not refuse. He took the Qinglong soup. This soup is mainly fish soup, with some grass roots, stems and leaves in it. It tastes very ordinary. He drank it with a frown, and a warm current rose up in his lower abdomen not long after. Drink. Fang Qing clenched his fist and immediately opened his posture to practice the red sand hand. Once again. Twice. 3 times. The shackles that originally made my whole body sore after 2 hours did not show up at all this time. As if he had broken some shackles, he practiced the red sand hand over and over again without eating or sleeping. When he came back to his senses, the moon was already in the sky. So strong. Fang Qing looked at himself as he returned to his true nature, his hands becoming white and delicate. The me now can beat many of the me before. Is this Baoyu? According to what Old Man Jia said, can it be worth 3 years of skill? With a thought in his mind, the strength of the red sand hands instantly turned into Yuan Qi, and then into the skill of Thousand Jing Pendant. At this time, Fang Qingming discove. Read that his Yuan Qi was already half the size of a grain of rice. Thousand Jing Pendant. When he unfolded the Thousand Jing Pendant, his thighs suddenly became thicker, and it felt like wind was blowing under his feet. The Qianjing Pendant is a clumsy skill, but after practicing it deeply, it becomes more dexterous. At this moment, with a thought in his mind, his body seemed to slip away, and he ran directly out of the Old Man Chai's house and came to a deserted rocky beach. After entering a reef cave half surrounded by sea water, Fang Qingtong passed the passage to produce pearls and returned to the land of ancient Shu. Inside the cave, Looking at the two treasure fish that had their gills pierced and their bodies stretched into a half-bow shape, but still jumping around alive, Fang Qing nodded with satisfaction. As expected of a half-demon, their vitality is tenacity. Of course, my fish tying technique also deserves credit. This was a rare opportunity. Of course, he not only caught one treasure fish, but the remaining two were transferred here. Alas, I haven't eaten this grilled fish for a long time. Fang Qing sighed, took out the fish carving knife, and dealt with the three-eyed sea bream first. The most valuable part of this precious fish is the third fish eye between the eyebrows, which has the effect of improving eyesight. Fang Qing cut off a piece of raw, white, translucent fish fillet. After thinking about it, he still couldn't get used to eating sashimi, so he grilled it over a fire. It gave him a slightly numb feeling in his mouth. This three-eyed sea bream, the heat after eating it actually rushed to the head. It is different from the previous Jinglong soup. After a while, he touched his belly and looked at the last golden tail spot. This treasure fish is somewhat similar to the eastern star spot, but its tail is golden. Fang Qing thought for a while, cut off the tail and head, and stewed a pot of fish soup. Wow, delicious. This fish soup is just sprinkled with a little salt, but the taste is completely different from before. In addition to the umami flavor of fish, it also has a sweet taste, which is like a clear spring in the mountains and refreshing. What's more important is, the fish soup is constantly transformed into skill, and even Fang Qing feels like he is about to burst. Eating 2.5 treasure fish in one breath is indeed a bit weak. If it were someone else, they could only use the word vent to excrete the excess drug effect from the body. But I am different. Fang Qing took a deep breath, and turned the Daosheng beads around, and his own skill instantly turned into pure yuan qi. In an instant, his body was empty, like a sponge, absorbing the power of the medicine crazily. When the skill accumulation reached a certain critical point, it was transformed again, keeping Fang Qing in a state of desire. When the east became bright, he took a deep breath and looked inside the Daosheng pearl. I saw half a wisp of strange yuan qi inside the Daosheng pearl, with steaming clouds and rosy clouds, filled with light. Half a strand? According to the records of our family's qi gathering Ju, 100 strands become silk, and 100 strands become a tau. It is still very far away from a single strand. I just don't know if a complete strand of yuan qi can be used as the first breath of qi for monks in ancient Shu to enter the tau. Wait, even if it is possible, I don't have the skills to practice yuan qi. Fang Qing shook his head, put these distracting thoughts behind his mind, and began to try to transform the red sand hand skills. This time, I have my own active control. The strength in my body is extremely powerful, and there is no risk of spillage, so I can calmly pass the level. Crackling. The joints on his body exploded, and his whole body seemed to be a little taller. Drink. Fang Qing tore it up casually, and the clothes on his body were torn into pieces like paper. He looked at his leopard-like body, with his muscles that were vaguely stylish but not bloated, but more linear, and couldn't help but nodded. Is this the real me? My previous body was still too weak. The previous Fang Qing had grown up living as a small farmer for more than 10 years, and had never eaten anything good. Not only was he thin, but his vitality was also lacking. Even if you practice martial arts later, it won't make up for it much. But he feels that after this time, all his inherent deficiencies have been made up for. Not only that. Fang Qing stretched out his right palm and pressed it on the green rock next to him. I didn't see how hard he used it, but when he took his palm away, he could see a clear palm print with extremely smooth edges. Okay. The master of red sand hand is at least equivalent to 10 years of hard training. He is also a disciple of a wealthy family who has no shortage of tonic and meat. He retracted his palm and smiled with satisfaction. Although according to secular legends, no matter how strong a martial arts master is, he is no match for an immortal. But with this cultivation, it is enough to protect yourself in Dahua fishing village. Fang Qing has not forgotten that there is another Yuan Qi who has never forgotten him. It doesn't matter for the time being, just wait for the Immortal Fate Conference. He took a deep breath and looked to the outside world. As for the ancient Shu, we still have to hibernate. Chushan Town. This ordinary town is a little unusual today. The townspeople, under the leadership of the old mayor, have cleaned the only square paved with blue stones early, especially the high platform, which is spotless. After all, this is to welcome the immortal. How can there be dust where the immortals set their feet? Before dawn, parents from all over came here with their children of school age, either by horse-drawn carriage, ox cart, or on foot. Although coming a Fei W hours early will not affect the results of the spirit testing at the Immortal Fate Conference, they are just wishful thinking. There are quite a few children. Fang Qing was among the team in Dahua fishing village. Because he was the oldest, he seemed to be the king of children. Zhu Er followed him, a little expectant and a little nervous. Of course, every time there are thousands of children at the Immortal Fate Conference, old man Zha next to him was carrying a pipe, with a nostalgic look on his face. The old man was here too. As he spoke, his voice became deeper and his expression became a little sad. Obviously, neither Old Man Cha nor his children have immortal fate. What exactly is this qualification for cultivating immortals? Spiritual roots? Fang Qing was a little curious and looked at the team again. Yuan Qi is already over his age, has no relatives who detect spirits, and is not in the team. Moreover, during this period of time, he lived in seclusion and did not give the other party a chance to cause trouble. In fact, had it not been for a smooth transition, Fang Qing could have easily crushed the opponent to death with his current martial arts. Haha. The old man has heard from the mayor that humans are the spiritual beings of all things, and are born with all 5 elements. Everyone has the possibility of cultivating wisdom, but the qualifications of most people are extremely inferior, equivalent to having no. And the ones who can stand out slightly are those who have immortality. This immortality qualification is divided into upper and lower levels, but the old man is not sure. Since catching Xiao Qinglong, Old Man Cha has been very sincere to Fang Qing, answering whatever he asks. That's it. Fang Qing nodded, followed the others to the bluestone square, and occupied a corner. As the sun continues to rise, there are more and more people in the square. Coming. Suddenly, someone shouted in surprise. Fang Qing looked up and saw a GR. Leaf Dharma boat flying across the sky, with several colorful lights flying down from the boat. Wrapped in the brilliance, there are either women in palace attire or young men in blue shirts, each with a fairy-like spirit and an indescribable powerful momentum. One of the girls just glanced at her curiously, but it actually made people dare not look at her. So strong. Fang Qing lowered his head slightly. I am now considered a martial arts master in the secular world. Facing immortal cultivators, I feel like an ant. But there is nothing I can do, they can fly. In case I don't have the qualifications. Then think of other ways. I have the accumulation of 2 worlds, and I will definitely reach the top. He clenched his fists. At this time, the mayor and other senior officials came forward with flattering smiles on their faces. After a few words of flattery, Amin Zhuang immediately beat the gong and loudly said, "The Immortal Fate Conference will begin now. Each family will be called forward according to their household registration to have their spirits tested. Chushan Town." Huasandong. A rich-looking little fat man wearing silk clothes immediately stepped forward and was taken to the high platform. A young man in a blue shirt held a bagua stone plate in his hand and made a secret buzz. A ray of light emerged from the bagua stone plate, covering the little fat man. On the stone plate, 5 colors of light suddenly burst out, but it was very weak. Qualifications, none. Next, the young man in blue shirt announced expressionlessly, as if he had long been accustomed to this. Woo-woo. Mother, the little fat man continued to cry, and the mayor continued to call the name, Chushan Town, Wang area. Wang area's dress was a little worse than the little fat man before, but he seemed to come from a good family with no worries about food and clothing. Qualification, none. The young man in blue shirt cast the spell as usual, looked at the stone plate, and shook his head expressionlessly. Wang area immediately pouted her lips and her eyes were red, but she still saluted, then she ran down the platform and was comforted by her parents. Song Luque has no qualifications. Zhang Daiden has no qualifications. As the young men in blue shirts announced their verdicts one by one, the sound of sobbing broke out in the square, and the atmosphere became more and more solemn. Finally, after passing hundreds of children, the young man's eyes lit up. Li Yudan, his spiritual roots are partial to 5 elements, and he has medium qualifications. Passed. The crowd moved with a bang, and many townspeople directly congratulated the child. Congratulations, Master Immortal. Fang Qing looked at Li Yudan, and saw that his clothes were full of patches, and he was thin and dark. He looked stupid and could not tell how smart he was. On the other hand, his parents hugged him and burst into tears. This qualification. As expected, there are no rules, it just depends on fate. Wait, fate? Fang Qing's heart moved. Ma Laosan said. Our Fang family seems to have a good life? After Li Yudan, there was another series of failures. The young man in blue shirt tested hundreds of people in a row, and then he was exhausted and retreated to meditate. He was replaced by a woman in palace clothes, and the team also lined up in the fishing village outside the town. In the meantime, 2 more qualified children appeared, but they were both with lower qualifications. Fang Qing has martial arts skills and is extremely patient. He waited until the afternoon. On the high platform, a middle-aged man wearing Baihaman clothing had a trace of tiredness on his face and said numbly, "Next, Dahua Fishing Village." Luoping, Dahua Fishing Village. Fang Qing. Finally, I heard my name. Fang Qing did not hide anything, with the expectation and nervousness of a young man on his face, and stepped up to the high platform step by step. Huh? The energy and blood are good. It seems that the ordinary martial arts has been practiced to a high level. The middle-aged man in blue shirt nodded and said with a gesture, "Get up." Spiritual power surged, and an inexplicable energy enveloped Fang Qing. Fang Qing stared at the bagua stone plate, and saw 5 colors of black, white, red, yellow, and green flashing alternately on the stone plate. Finally, a black light flashed, growing several inches in length. Well, the 5 elements of spiritual root are water. The qualifications are average, qualified. The middle-aged man in blue shirt nodded slightly. "This junior brother, my name is Wei Gadong, and from now on we will all be disciples of Bihai sect. I have met senior brother." Fang Qing hurriedly clasped his fists and walked to the ranks of new disciples. "This junior brother, I am your senior sister, Gong Susu." The girl in palace clothes who was adjusting her breath opened her eyes and smiled at Fang Qing. Her attitude was completely different from those with inferior qualifications. Fang Qing was about to say a few words when he suddenly heard the middle-aged man exclaim, "Go. Superior qualifications." Huh? Fang Qing and Gong Susu looked over and saw Cha Zhuer standing helplessly on the high platform. Old Cha under the stage was so excited that he almost fainted. Superior qualifications? Except for the extraordinary and heavenly products, the superior qualifications are already top-notch, and there is no hope of building a foundation in the future. A Bihaiman disciple who had not spoken just now had hot eyes, and looked past Fang Qing with a smile on his face. "This junior sister, welcome to join Bihaiman. My name is Kenziming." Gong Susu no longer cares about Fang Qing, and also surrounds Cha Zhuer, with a gentle smile on her face. When Fang Qing saw this scene, he only found it very interesting, but felt relieved in his heart, anyway. It's great to have the qualification. NS to cultivate immortality. Whoops. Amid the strong wind, a green leaf boat tore through the sky and headed towards the interior of Bu Island. On the deck, Fang Qing looked at the cyan shield covering the Dharma boat. He couldn't feel the slightest feeling of wind blade scraping his face, and he couldn't help but marvel. Behind him, there was a little tail. It was Pearl. At this time, it was already the 3rd day after the Immortal Fate Conference. The disciples of Bihaiman gave these spiritual roots who passed the test a day to deal with their family affairs, and then set off towards the main gate of Bihaiman. Speaking of it, the price of cultivating an immortal is really incredible. Fang Qing sighed secretly in his heart, thinking about what happened last night. Hearing that Zhuer and I had detected spiritual root qualifications, there was an immediate response from Dahua fishing village. Wan Qi had been sacrificed to the Sea Dragon King, and it was said that it was his father and brother who did it himself. Of course, the one who has a greater influence may be Pearl. After all, she has a superior qualification. He looked at the pink and jade-like little girl behind him, with a smile on his lips. Zhuer left her relatives and went to the sect, so she was naturally very scared. It was reasonable to get close to her only acquaintance. And thanks to this, I can be somewhat thin-faced in front of Gong Susu, Wei Gadong, Kenziming, and other disciples. Sister Zhuer. At this moment, Gong Susu came over. "We are about to arrive at the mountain gate of our sect. This time, of the many soul-seeking envoys, I am afraid that few can surpass our journey, all thanks to you spirit-seeking envoys. Are there many ways left?" Fang Qing was a little surprised. Of course. Our Bihai sect has been guarded by the alchemy ancestor for generations, and it is powerful in all directions. Even those foundation-building forces outside the island will send their direct disciples to the sect. Gong Sus. You replied proudly, and glanced at Fang Qing with meaning. Obviously, Fang Qing's household registration is not a secret, but Bihaiman doesn't care. Senior Sister Gong, Sister Zhuer, and I don't know much about the matter of cultivating immortals. I wonder if you can clear up the confusion? Fang Qing clasped his fists and said sincerely. Of course, I know everything about it. In fact, after these people enter the sect, corresponding books will naturally be distributed, but I can say a few things first. Gong Susu thought for a while and said, there is spiritual energy in the world. We and other immortal cultivators have spiritual roots, so we can absorb the spiritual energy and practice. And spiritual roots are divided into different levels. For example, junior brother Fang, you can be called a middle-grade water spiritual root, and junior sister Zhuer has a high-grade water spiritual root. The better the spiritual root, the faster the cultivation speed, and the lower the possibility of encountering bottlenecks when breaking through in the future. As for the legendary heaven-grade spiritual roots, it is said that there are no bottlenecks before forming a pill. As for cultivating immortals, there are realms such as Qi refining, foundation building, elixir formation, yuanying, and so on. Those with great magical powers such as yuanying have long since disappeared in Zio Wanhai, and elixir formation is an ancestor. Our sect has 7 inner islands, and the island owners of each island are great monks who are above the late stage of foundation building. If my disciples can worship on one island, they will be among the true disciples. It is said that it is possible to build the foundation in the future. Once the foundation is established, you can live for 3 decades, and the ancestor of the Pil formation can live for 500 years. After Gong Susu's explanation, Fang Qing finally had a general understanding of Zio Wanhai Immortal Realm. D. By Heyman, Sister Zhuer and I, thank you, senior sister, for clearing up the confusion. He sincerely thanked me and asked, it's just that the road to immortality is difficult, so I would like to ask my senior sister for some guidance. This is actually a thief, which is equivalent to tying himself up with Zhuer. Gong Susu smiled inexplicably and said, after you get started, you must first pay homage to the ancestor, receive disciple identity tokens and other miscellaneous items, and then choose exercises. Some disciples start from the outer sect and are handymen, and then move to the inner sect and become true disciples. However, senior sister has a way to directly join the Dan Island and become an inner sect disciple. You must know that among the various arts of cultivating immortals, many small paths such as talismans and talismans are practiced by casual practitioners. Only through formations and other great avenues can we accumulate enough resources, Fang Qing summarized it, and the general meaning is that Baihaman disciples are also very competitive, and if you want to cultivate immortality, you must have a skill. There are too many competitors in crafts such as drawing talismans, spiritual plants, and raising spiritual beasts, and they have long since becomes a Red Sea. On the other hand, skills such as alchemy, weapon formation, and formations are considered to have high added value and high requirements. As long as you are willing to study hard, you can earn a lot of spiritual resources to help your cultivation. Thank you, senior sister, for making it possible. Sister Zhuer and I will definitely remember this kindness. Fang Qing quickly thanked him. It is always good to learn alchemy, although he also knew that he was just accommodating. The only one Gong Susu really cared about was Zhuer. Boom. At this moment, the Qingya boat came to a large green lake. The lake was like a lake. Rua Mingjing is deep and vast, and there seemed to be countless snakes tumbling inside. And in the middle of the lake, there are 7 large islands, arranged in a specific formation. Some of them are covered with magnificent buildings, and some are shrouded in a layer of mist. It looks like a sacred scene of the immortal family. This is my Baihaman mountain gate. Gong Susu parked the flying boat on a white jade square. She slightly raised her chin, which was whiter and more delicate than white jade. Now, the immortal seedlings with lower qualifications will go to the outer gate to hold an initiation ceremony. The immortal seedlings with medium qualifications will follow several senior brothers. Sister Zhuer, you wait. After Fang Qing and other disciples left, Gong Susu looked at the timid Zhuer, and the smile on her face became softer. How is it? Your halfway brother only wants to use you as a cover to gain benefits. You have to know that after you get started, the only people you can really rely on are your master and senior sister, and your grandfather. I have arranged for someone to pick him up, and he will arrive a little later than us. Grandpa? Zhuer's eyes suddenly lit up. As long as you bring my grandfather here, sister, I will promise you anything. Okay, very good. Gong Susu was overjoyed, and looked at Fang Qing's back again, her smile becoming more playful. I promised, I will naturally help you become an inner disciple and enter the alchemy island. But refining alchemy is not an easy task, especially in the beginning. If you refine a few pools, you will lose your family. This is your choice, not the senior sister who tricked you. The mid-level qualifications are not bad, but the foundation may be too low in the future. Zhuer is quite hopeful. In this case, we must let her get closer to me, and at the same time, let her get married. Fang Qing naturally doesn't know that Gong Susu is behind her. He followed a group of disciples with moderate qualifications to a large hall. The hall was majestic and guarded by Qi refining disciples on both sides. On the plaque, there were 3 characters Hanhai Palace written on it. As soon as he entered the Hanhai Palace, seeing several monks standing on the steps, all of whom were Yuan Ting Yuji, Ken Ziming, and other disciples saw them and immediately saluted. Greetings to the master, elders. He turned around and said to these new disciples, this is the master of our sect Uncle Linghu, and the 2 elders Wan Bao and Tianqing. Why don't you salute quickly? I have met the leader and elders. A group of disciples hurriedly followed and saluted. That's it, you are not bad in qualifications. After you get started, you should study hard and live up to your practice. The leader of Linghu, wearing a blue shirt and with a pale face, said a few words of encouragement, and then asked the 2 elders Wan Bao and Tianqing to lead a group of rookies to hold an apprenticeship ceremony, which mainly involved paying homage to the ancestors. Master. In the huge ancestral hall, there are rows of memorial tablets, many of which are still shining. On the silk painting, there is a young man in a blue shirt, with a face like a crown of jade, his hands behind his back, facing the sea. There is a green evil dragon in the sea. The founding founder of our sect is Jinren Bihai. Back then, Zhenjin came to Zio Wanhai and killed the third-level high-grade evil dragon that was making trouble, and then established the foundation of our Baihaman, Mr. Wanbao's face with a ruddy complexion and 3 strands of long beard hanging down naturally. He looked like a Taoist master with crane hair and a childlike face. As usual, he praised the ancestors of the Bihai sect and then said, all disciples of this sect can use their identity tokens to come to my Wanbao Island Tianshu Pavilion after entering the school, receive a copy of the basic skills, some miscellaneous items. In addition, 100 contribute ion points will be distributed. Most of our Baihaman's cultivation and daily life require contribution points, so you should use them carefully. After Elder Wanbao, it was Elder Tianqing, who had a stern face and was calm and self-respecting. There are 7 major commandments in our sect and 86. The first commandment is to deceive the master and destroy the ancestors, and the second commandment is to kill each other in the same sect. Fang Qing listened carefully, but his eyes couldn't help but fall on the picture of the Bihai Patriarch Fu Jiao. Being able to subdue the third-level high-grade demon king, Patriarch Bihai must have completed the elixir formation, right? I just wonder if he has broken through the nascent soul realm and lived for 1,000 years. How will the monks here behave when they arrive in the land of ancient Shu? Those disciples in the middle and late stages of qi refining, I wonder if they can destroy the Luo family, or do they need a foundation building overhaul? The complicated entrance ceremony lasted for several hours, and Fang Qingkai came to the lakeside with the entrance gift bag. This is where low-level disciples stay and practice. The spiritual energy is thin and not as good as the 7 islands in the center of the lake, but the area is very vast. Many lakeside villas have been built, and even the disciples who are just starting out can be allocated an independent house. After entering the wooden house, Fang Qing first looked at his gift package for newbies. There is an identity token inside, 2 sets of blue uniforms from Baihaman, a bottle of Bigu pill, a green leaf magic weapon, a stainless steel dagger. The entry benefits are not bad. Just when he wanted to lie down and rest, he heard a knock on the door, and when he came outside the house, he saw a slim girl. This senior brother, my name is Yu Peach Blossom, and I have a middle-grade earth spirit root. We are all new disciples, and we are neighbors. There happens to be a party held by a senior brother Hua Lianhua. I wonder if I would like to reward him. The girl smiled as if and opened her invitation. Senior brother Hua? Of course I want to go. Fang Qing thought about it and agreed directly. After arriving in a new environment, it is human nature for various small circles to arise. Even in college, there are associations from fellow students. He followed Yu Taohua to a small pavilion, and saw several new disciples already sitting in the pavilion, as well as a table of wine and food, and the aroma continued to overflow. You can get a table of fine wine and delicacies just after you get started. This senior brother Hua seems to have some connections. Fang Qing understood that this was the other party showing off his strength. Senior brother Hua has a dignified appearance and is excellent in his manners. Every disciple who comes here has to come up and say a few words. He interacts with different people, but he never neglects anyone. After a while, the seats in the booth were full. Everyone, we are all new disciples, we should get closer to each other in the future. Senior brother Hua raised his glass and drank it all in one gulp. Of course, everyone said yes, and a young man with freckles on his face complimented, Senior brother Hua's surname is Hua? Could it be that he is from Feiyu Island? Senior brother Hua immediately had a look on his face. Yes, relying on the shadow of my ancestors, I was lucky enough to join our sect. Where is Feiyu Island? A female disciple asked Fang Qing the question in his heart. Haha, this junior sister must be from the secular world. This Feiyu Island is the island where the Hua family of the Foundation Establishment Immortal clan is located. It has second-level spiritual veins and is rich in flying dragon silk and bamboo fish. Another disciple with an older appearance explained and looked at senior brother Hua. I didn't expect that senior brother Hua was from the Foundation Establishment Immortal clan. There will definitely be a bright future in the future. Sigh. The path to immortality is difficult, and I am also frightened every step of the way. Senior brother Hua smiled bitterly and shook his head. Besides, although we are called the Immortal clan, what are we compared to the Baihaman who have been cultivating alchemy for generations? The banquet continued, but Fang Qing found that something was wrong with the atmosphere. Everyone was quickly divided into several small circles according to their origins. Senior brother Hua, who was born in the Foundation Establishment Immortal clan, is naturally the center of attention and dominates the crowd. In addition, the disciples from the Qi refining family are also somewhat arrogant. While flattering senior brother Hua, they also vaguely reject disciples from casual cultivators and secular disciples like Fang Qing. Of course, these manifestations were very minor, and senior brother Hua was not stupid. He tried his best to mediate, and few of these inexperienced disciples noticed it. So the banquet still seemed harmonious, and the guests and hosts were enjoying themselves. Fang Qing was enjoying himself while drinking and eating vegetables. Unconsciously, it was the end of the banquet. Brother, I sent it here to wish all the junior brothers and sisters an everlasting immortality. Senior brother Hua sent all the junior brothers and sisters out, shining brightly. Fang Qing, on the other hand, mingled among a few disciples with ordinary backgrounds and returned the gift together, very inconspicuously. At this moment, a stream of light flew over, showing a red color with colorful tassels. The crimson light fell and turned into a red ribbon, tied around the waist of a girl with skin as thick as gel and picturesque features. She looked around and asked, "Who is Fang Qing?" Under the surprised gazes of senior brother Hua, Yu Tao Hua, and others, Fang Qing stepped forward and saluted. "Qing below, I have seen this senior sister. Well, I am the Hualingsu of Dan Island. I have been ordered to take you to Dan Island to be promoted to an inner disciple. Let's go." Hualingsu raised his hand, and the red silk came forward like a living thing, wrapped around Fang Qing's waist, took him in and out of Qingming, and disappeared without a trace. Junior brother Fang. No, senior brother Fang really hit it very deep. A disciple couldn't help but gasped, and looked at senior brother Hua secretly. The expression on senior brother Hua's face remained unchanged, and his smile grew wider. "I didn't expect that junior brother Fang would have such a way. We should get closer in the future." A group of disciples thought for a while, and they were far away from each other. Dan Island was too far away, so it was more important to flatter senior brother Hua, and he quickly put on a flattering smile. Fang Qing climbed up and looked into the distance, and saw a dense fog quickly dissipating, revealing a small island. On this small island, there were strange peaks protruding, and there were many buildings of various colors, like precious stones. There seemed to be many hot springs. Of course, more places are still shrouded in thick fog, making it difficult to see clearly. Junior brother Fang, our Dan Island is mainly about water method alchemy. If you become an inner disciple on Dan Island, it stands to reason that you can have an elder as your teacher, but there is no elder there now. If you want to accept a disciple, you can use your disciple token to listen to the brothers and sisters at the Alchemy Terrace on the 1st and 15th day of each month about cultivation and alchemy. Sometimes the elders will come to give lectures. Hualingsu fell into the light and explained to Fang Qing, "Water method for alchemy? Isn't it the kind of alchemy furnace?" In Fang Qing's impression, alchemy seems to be indispensable for fire. There are also fire methods for alchemy, but in our Bihai sect, we still mainly use water methods. There have been many alchemy masters. Hualingsu smiled with a little dimple on his face, and, compared to the fire method, our water method of elixir has a milder effect and less erysipelas. It is even tempered with the island's unique cold and hot double springs, so more medicinal materials can be processed at one time. Of course, the fire method alchemy process is faster and more suitable for refining most fire attribute pills. Hualingsu will not talk about it. Besides, the water method alchemy is more suitable for us water spirit root monks. This last point made Fang Qing nod his head. Senior sister is right. Our water method for elixir making is better than fire method for elixir making. Fang Qing has always believed in the theory that the butt determines the head. Since he has a water spirit root, and water alchemy is popular on Dan Island, there is nothing to say. Water alchemy is good. If he has a fire spirit root and worships a fire alchemy master, then water alchemy is a crooked way. Okay, this is your cave. Hualingsu took Fang Qing outside a cave and was about to leave. Then he turned around and said, "Alchemy is one of the most difficult skills in cultivating immortals. Junior brother can go to Tianshu Pavilion to borrow the pharmacopoeia and start to familiarize himself with the properties of the medicine. Don't start practicing blindly." "Thank you, senior sister, for reminding me. Junior brother is awake." Fang Qing clasped his fists and thanked. He also vaguely felt that alchemy is not a simple matter and cannot be acted blindly. Not to mention this, but in the past life, those who blindly followed the trend were all leaks. Anyone who blindly invests in any industry without learning from the inside for 3 years will sooner or later be deceived to the point where nothing is left. Here? Entering the cave, Fang Qing looked around and saw that the place was not big, with just a few stone rooms. The layout was also very simple, with only stone tables, stone chairs, and a few pieces of furniture, but for some reason, he felt clear-minded and comfortable here. Could it be that this is the effect of the second-order spiritual veins? If I had the technique of cultivating immortals, this feeling would be even stronger. Fang Qing recalled what he had seen before. The spiritual energy in the secular world is thin, and the lakeside villa has a first-level spiritual energy environment, which is enough for disciples in the chi refining period to practice. The 7 islands in the inner lake have second-level spiritual veins at worst. If you practice here, you will definitely make faster progress than at the lakeside villa. Kung Fu. IFO. Forgot to ask about this matter just now. But except for the last mention, this senior sister Hua's overall attitude is average. Could it be that she doesn't like me who uses the back door? Or, you feel like you have nothing to say? Fang Qing touched his chin and began to look forward to tomorrow. The next day, Wanbao Island, Fang Qing got off the boat and looked at Tianshu Pavilion in the distance, which was wrapped in various restrictions, and kept walking. Finally the closer you get, the more you can feel the majesty of Tianshu Pavilion. It is made of a kind of agarwood and exudes a calming aroma. When you walk into the first floor, you can see various bookshelves surrounding them, full of various threadbound books. Tianbua Gong? Qi Shark Strength? 12 Transformations of Divine Power? They are all second-rate or even first-rate martial arts, huh? There is actually a secret code of divine martial arts? Isn't this the peerless martial arts rumored in secular martial arts? Fang Qing was secretly surprised after just glancing at it. A large number of miscellaneous books were piled up as if for free, allowing the disciples to look at them. Is this junior disciple a new disciple? At this moment, a Baihaman disciple came forward. I am a disciple of the pavilion guards, and I have taken over the task of explaining to all the junior brothers and sisters. The Tianshu Pavilion is divided into 9 floors. The first floor is about secular martial arts, geography, mechanical skills, almost everything. All disciples of this sect, you can browse and borrow at will. The second floor involves cultivation techniques, and each disciple can only borrow 1 copy. Only inner disciples can enter the third floor. The techniques, various secret techniques, and classics inside are all high quality. As for the fourth floor, only foundation building monks or true disciples can enter. That's it. Thank you for your advice, senior brother. Fang Qing took out his disciple token and showed the elixir mark that had just been placed on it by Hualingsu yesterday. I want to go to the third floor. Do you have any recommendations? It turns out that my junior brother is actually an inner disciple of Dan Island. I am really disrespectful. The expression of the disciple guarding the pavilion suddenly changed from casual to smiling. My name is Xingxu. We will all be the same disciples in the future. I wonder how my junior brother's spiritual roots are. Mid-grade water spirit root. Fang Qing replied, transferring 10 contribution points. By the way, the choice of exercises is a very serious matter. Even if he has the power to regret countless times, it is difficult to expose it. The more outstanding the skills on the surface, the better. In this regard, spending a little money is nothing. Xingxu did not expect that this junior brother would be so wise, and his smile became more sincere. The basic exercises on the third floor are all high quality, and the ones suitable for water spirit roots include white water Ju and white water Ju. Guansong Hai, Shui Jingzhu. Among them, white water Ju was originally an inherited skill of the Wu family of Baixian Island. It is said that although the spiritual power cultivated is of water attribute, it also has a chill. During the battle, the enemy's body will be frozen if he is not careful, and he will be eaten. Big loss. Guankenghai is an ancient skill, famous for its powerful magic power. It is said that the magic power of brothers and sisters who practice it will be 1 or 2% more than other monks at the same level. Shui Jingzhu is derived from the Bihai Gong, the main skill of the founder of our sect, Bihai. If you can build a foundation with it, you can switch to Bihai Gong without any loss. Xingxu, who has benefited from it, thinks that it is nothing. The explanation was very detailed. Potential, this is very important. After listening, Fang Qing had already decided in his heart, the Wu family of Baixian Island is just a foundation-building family, and there is no follow-up chapter in Whitewater Ju. Guan Songhai is also a fragment of an ancient martial art. It is said to be very famous, but there is no follow-up in this sect. Although these two martial arts have their own characteristics, and Shui Jingzhu is just mediocre, it has fewer bottlenecks and can be seamlessly connected in the future. If you are the kind of person who only cares about foundation building, it doesn't make much difference which technique you choose. But for Fang Qing, foundation building is definitely not the end, and there is obviously nothing wrong with choosing Shui Jingzhu carefully selected by Master Baihai. Even if the other two techniques may have opportunities in the future, it is obvious that this opportunity is still more suitable for him. Just Shui Jingzhu. Dan Island, Cave Mansion. Fang Qing sat cross-legged, looking at several brand new books in front of him. One of them is the Shui Jingzhu, which covers everything from the first level of introducing the spirit into the body, to the 9th level of qi refining, and even how to build the foundation. After he lent the original, he swore not to spread it to anyone else, and then copied it stroke by stroke in Tianshu Pavilion. It is said that after building the foundation, the consciousness can be separated from the body, and all the exercises are recorded on jade slips. They can be remembered easily by scanning them, so there is no such trouble. Fang Qing shook his head and looked at several other pharmacopoeia and alchemy books. Encyclopedia of Spiritual Medicine, Flying Waterfall Alchemy Sutra. These books are also recommended by Xingxu and are the basis for water method alchemy. Fang Qing plans to memorize it first, and then get familiar with the properties of the medicine. As for alchemy? Naturally, you have to go to the back. The most urgent thing is to practice cultivation first, otherwise it will be inconvenient to go out and use magic weapons, and you have to take a boat like Immortal. Fang Qing opened the first page of Daoshengzhu and saw a diagram of the meridians of the human body. My body is from the ancient Shu world. I hope there is nothing wrong with it. He secretly remembered it and looked at the formula behind it. The first step in getting started in cultivating immortals is to meditate, sit and forget, where you sit in meditation and absorb a ray of spiritual energy from heaven and earth. If you can completely absorb that wisp of spiritual energy into your body, circulate it in the meridians and acupoints, and finally return it to your dantian and become mana, then you have completed the skill of introducing the spirit into the body and become a first-level chi refining monk. Of course, it sounds simple, but it is very difficult to do. Fang Qing spent a lot of effort to memorize that meridian diagram. The many professional terms in the formulas gave him a headache. He had to go to Tianshu Pavilion and borrow many medical books and Taoist scriptures. In addition, he went to attend public classes on the 1st and 15th day of every month and shamelessly asked his brothers and sisters. It took more than a month before he finally understood the first level of formulas. Sigh. In comparison, those disciples from the Foundation Establishment Immortal clan and the Chi refining family have an advantage in this aspect and are far ahead. Fang Qing sat cross-legged and looked at the contribution points on his disciple's token with emotion. As a new disciple, there is a 1-year adjustment period as usual, but daily expenses, even asking questions, it is impossible without making a contribution. Now that I think about it, it's a bit tight. It is better to practice Taoism quickly and become a monk in the Chi refining stage. Then you can go to Wanbao Island to take on tasks, earn contribution points, and exchange them for spiritual stones, elixirs, and other cultivation materials. Outside the cave, the moonlight was like water. On a bright yellow futon, Fang Qing sat cross-legged, silently running the formula for sensing spiritual energy. Ever since he was confirmed to have fully mastered the first level of the Daoshengzhu, he has been sitting cross-legged and meditating every day, trying to sense the spiritual energy in the void, and he has become vaguely sure of it. He almost completed the last step yesterday, but he was too excited and failed. Today, I will definitely succeed. Fang Qing held a belief in his heart and entered a state of selflessness and oblivion. Just when everything was forgotten, he sensed the wisps of coolness in the void. Working silently according to the formula, the coolness pours into the body from the acupoint between the eyebrows, passes through the spine, and travels through the limbs and bones. Immediately afterwards, he seemed to switch from breathing through the mouth and nose to innate fetal breath. The pores in his body suddenly opened, and he greedily breathed in the spiritual energy. Boom! A large amount of spiritual energy was circulating in his body. After several weeks, it finally rushed into a mysterious place in his abdomen. The dantian is opened, and mana is born. Introducing the spirit into the body, it's done. Feeling the cold black water mana in the dantian, Fang Qing opened his eyes. In an instant, he found that his eyes seemed to be nearsighted, and when he put on glasses, the whole world became much clearer. Besides, his ears moved slightly and he could hear the rustling sound of insects crawling a few feet away. Immortal cultivators have sharp ears and eyesight. It is indeed completely different from martial arts training, more similar to human body evolution. I am now considered an immortal cultivator at the first level of Chi refining. The next step is to continue to accumulate mana. When the first level is complete, I can try to break through to the second level of Chi refining. It takes me a month to figure out the first level formula because I have no foundation. Now that I have completed it, I can rely on my own understanding and occasionally ask my brothers and sisters to thoroughly understand the Daoshengzhu technique, and once you have magic power, you can practice spells and sacrifice magic weapons. It is truly otherworldly. Fang Qing sighed with satisfaction. If it were in the ancient Shu world, he still didn't know how long it would be to waste time. Unlike here, he was almost escorted all the way, which made him sigh with emotion at the simplicity of the people here. However, although there is a Qingyezhou magic weapon on his body, and the Daoshengzhu finally appended several magic techniques for the Qi refining period, this is not what Fang Qing is most concerned about. Daosheng Pearl. With a thought in his mind, the Daosheng Pearl rolled around, and within the dantian, the wisp of black water mana instantly dissipated and turned into the purest Yuan Qi. In terms of conversion rate and quality, it is simply higher than the red sand hand skill that I have practiced for 10 years. Sure enough, mana is superior to strength. Fang Qing worked a little, converting all the mana into red sand hand skill. In an instant, his palm turned from white to red, and then from red to white, 7 times, and there was a faint and inexplicable energy. Expose the Gang Qi. An innate martial artist who is almost extinct in the secular martial arts world? Fang Qing smacked his palm slightly and released the Gang Qi, flying 3 feet across the air and hitting the stone wall in the retreat room, causing stone powder to rustle down. And, are you still a martial arts innate accomplished with the third-rate martial arts skills of Hongxia? Unfortunately, to immortal cultivators, innate warriors are just bigger ants. A spell can solve it. He used the Daoshengzhu pearl again to convert his whole body's skills into the black water mana of Daoshengzhu, but he felt that his mana had only increased by a negligible amount. It's probably equivalent to my ability to meditate for several days. This is 10 years of red sand hand skills. Sure enough, in the world of cultivating immortals, practicing martial arts has no future. At least, the martial arts I came into contact with were completely crushed. A few days later, Dandao. In front of the cave, Fang Qing looked excited and took out a green leaf-shaped magic weapon from his arms. This is the standard magic weapon issued to disciples by Baihaimon Qingyezhou. It can only fly slowly and is considered a first-level low-grade weapon. He spent a whole night and finally succeeded in refining this magical weapon. Get up. Fang Qing made a hand gesture, and the green leaf continued to grow in size, eventually turning into a small boat half a foot long and several feet wide, suspended in the air. He jumped onto the Aoba boat, and then began to try to fly unsteadily. At the beginning, Fang Qing's flight path was very confusing, and he almost fell off several times. Fortunately, he didn't fly too high. The feeling of flying freely is different from flying on a plane or being taken by others. After Fang Qing became familiar with it, the speed of Qingyezhou continued to increase and he began to do some tricks. Flying forward, flying backwards, flying diagonally, flying backwards. Occasionally, he would rush into the clouds and come out from the other side. Haha, it's really fun to ride on the wind, but it's a pity that I don't have much mana left. Fang Qing felt the thin mana in his dantian, shook his head, looked at the direction, and landed on Wanbao Island. Elder Wanbao, who has the highest cultivation level on this island, has already reached the late stage of foundation building. The General Affairs Hall he is in charge of is a place that many disciples of the Bihai sect cannot avoid. The General Affairs Hall is located on the largest flat land on Wanbao Island. It is an ancient bronze palace. It is very tall and majestic. It has 8 doors. At this time, a large number of disciples came in and out of each door. Fang Qing walked in and was immediately attracted by the lively scene. Many Baihaimon disciples even set up stalls directly on the roadside to trade or barter with spiritual stones. On the bronze square, dozens of huge bronze pillars rise to the sky, with various runes shining brightly on them. Hupanhuangzi No. 17 Medicine Garden. Recruiting a spirit planter requires a master of Xiaoyunyu, and the salary is 300 contribution points a year. Long-term recruitment of spiritual farmers. Salary 100 contribution points a year. Wanted order: the 3 evil spirits of Haikwang, who are in the late stage of Qi refining or have perfected Qi refining. A bounty of 1,000 contribution points is placed on each head. Long-term acquisition of Qinglong carp. Preferential rewards. Fang Qing glanced around and saw various tasks and bounties. Some of these are promulgated by the sect, and some are promulgated privately by elders and disciples, which is dizzying. Guardian and bounty tasks require fighting skills. I am still a little shrimp and can't do it at the moment. We can only look at the production and construction type first. The pay for spiritual farmers is too low, right? Fang Qing looked at the alchemy type. The rewards are generous, but it's a pity that he doesn't know any alchemy skills. After searching around, I barely found a similar one frowny face task: refining 300 bundles of biling silk. Task reward: 200 contribution points if the employer provides raw materials, 500 contribution points if you bring your own raw materials. Fang Qing continued to read, and then he realized that this kind of biling silk needs to be washed and refined in the cold spring from a spiritual plant called celestial green ma. Its texture is flexible, light and breathable, making it an excellent material for refining inner armor and scarves. The best cold springs in Baihaimon are all on Dan Island. As a disciple of Dan Island, you can still go there. This should be a benefit specially given to the disciples of Dan Island, right? What else can you say? Take it. Fang Qing immediately took out his disciple token and went to accept the task. He took a few bundles of celestial green ma and carried it all the way back to the cave. Because I did not expect to bring raw materials with me on the return trip, the Aoba boat carried too much weight and almost lost its magic power and fell into the lake halfway. The next day. Early morning. Fang Qing carried a bundle of Tian Qingma to a peak on Dan Island. This peak is extremely beautiful and has a sense of coolness. On the top of the mountain, there is a waterfall that hangs down like a jade belt, forming a cold pool. Around this cold pool, there are also cold springs, like pearls connected in series. From time to time, you can see several Dan Island disciples washing and quenching medicinal materials with spring water. The first step in water-based alchemy is extraction, extracting the essence of various medicinal materials and turning them into liquid medicine, which takes a long time. Although Fang Qing has not really gotten started, he has seen a lot and can talk about it. Just for the first step of extraction, there are 4 major schools of sinking, dividing, combining, and gathering. If you really delve into it, it will be endless, broad, and profound, and the most important prop for water method alchemy is not the alchemy furnace, but a good mouthful. Spiritual springs. Those senior brothers and sisters who became alchemists spent a lot of money to install spiritual pools or spiritual springs in their own caves. This spiritual spring is related to the underground water veins and requires specialized earth masters and formation masters to set up the formation. Not only is it expensive, but once established, it is difficult to relocate. In comparison, if an alchemist using the fire method encounters trouble, he can roll up the alchemy furnace and run away, while the water method alchemy monk cannot carry the spring and run away overnight, which is a small shortcoming. The best springs on Dan Island have a 3rd level. They belong to the Lord of Dan Island, who is also the first alchemy master of Baihaman. The remaining 2nd level springs are also occupied by the foundation building elders, and a very small number fall into the hands of true disciples. Most of the springs in the wild are not the 1st level, and a small number are considered 1st level. Those 1st level spiritual springs are naturally occupied by disciples trying to make alchemy. Fortunately, Fang Qing is not preparing to make an elixir, but is just washing the yarn. There is no requirement for the 5 elements of the spirit spring to be balanced, or even the cold and heat attributes. He randomly found an unnoticed spring and put Tying Qingma in it. Hiss, as soon as his hands entered the water, Fang Qing felt a chill running up the skin of his palms. He quickly used his magic power to protect his hands, which made him feel better. No wonder no one is interested in this spring. The alchemy water is gentle and soft, and the cold is a bit violent. Even if I use magic to protect myself, I'm afraid I won't be able to last for long. It's a hard job. Fang Qing also knows that the real job with more money and less trouble is not his turn, so he can only continue to work hard. After soaking the azure hemp in the cold spring, as time goes by, the original azure hemp gradually spreads out and turns into strands of threads. At this time, use magic power to refine and collect it, and it will be a bunch of biling silk. The finished biling silk is translucent, thinner than silk, and has a little green aura. Fang Qing only worked for a while before feeling a little weak in mana and had to meditate aside to recover his mana. The biling inner armor refined by Bilingsi is very famous in our sect. It is a first-class high-grade magic weapon. Looking at this posture, even if I finish all this, I'm afraid I won't even be able to get the biling inner armor. Even half of the materials for it are not enough. Those who are covered with silkworms are not silkworm farmers. After resting for a while, Fang Qing took out a big pill and took it, preparing to continue working. At this time, there were gradually more disciples in the surrounding spiritual springs. Senior brother Fang? Clea. Our voice sounded, with a childish tone. Fang Qing looked over and saw that it was Zhuer, accompanied by Gong Susu and Hualingsu. Junior sister Zhuer. A smile appeared on his face. Long time no see, how are you doing lately? Zhuer has grown a lot taller, but the closeness on her face is lighter than before. She said, Junior sister Zhuer is okay. Junior sister Zhuer has been floating clouds by my master. Z will be accepted as a disciple. After 10 years, there is hope for the true inheritance, Gong Susu said from the side, and glanced at Tian Qingma on the ground. Junior brother Fang is Huansha? Well, although studying weapon refining is a bit unprofessional, it is still a proper way. After a few greetings, Zhuer left. Just before leaving, he stuffed a dusty, palm-sized bag into Fang Qing. Huh? This is a storage bag? In our sect, generally only disciples in the middle or even late stages of qi refining can equip it. Fang Qing was overjoyed when he sensed about a cubic meter of space in the mana refining bag. Finally, I don't have to carry sacks around every day. Even though this storage bag is only the smallest one, it is enough for him to use. In the storage bag, there are also several low-grade spiritual stones. Fang Qing became a little silent when he saw this scene. Junior sister Zhuer. After Jia Zhu and Gong Susu walked away, Hualingsu thought for a moment and said, that storage bag just now. I already have a better one from my master. That low-grade storage bag was given to senior brother Fang. Jia Zhu patted the small sachet on her waist, and the smile on her face faded. My grandfather always said that the Sea Dragon King Dan used others to prevent disasters, and I felt very sorry for him. After this time, the two are in peace. Well, junior sister, you have a bright future, so you don't need to be too involved in the cause and effect. Gong Susu nodded, and she was very happy with Jia Zhu's change. As for a low GRA, the storage bag and a few spiritual stones? I really didn't take it to heart. There is no time to practice. 3 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Baihaman, Dan Island, inside the cave. Fang Qing has grown much taller. He is sitting cross-legged. His spiritual power is flickering. He is obviously trying to break through. Boom. I don't know how much time passed, but he felt the black water mana boiling in the chi sea of Dantian. It cheered and roared and rushed into another circle of meridians, making the Dantian much wider and deeper. Finally, the third level of chi refining. Fang Qing opened his eyes, with a flash of light in his eyes. This speed is neither fast nor slow for middle-grade spiritual roots. It is still a little worse than Zhuer's superior qualifications. According to the news he received, Zhuer has now reached the third level of chi refining, and is ready to sprint towards the bottleneck of the middle stage of chi refining. For upper-level qualifications, there are basically no bottlenecks in the practice of chi refining period, and the probability of breakthrough is very high. Thinking of Zhuer and the past 3 years, Fang Qing's expression gradually became calm. Zhuer and I gradually reduced contact. Naturally, it's good for her and me. After sighing, he thought more about his own path. The practice in the early stage of chi refining is the simplest. Even so, I also spent a lot of time. It took 1 year to complete the first level of chi refining and break through to the second level. It took another 2 years to complete the second level of chi refining and reach the third level. It might take 3 years to complete the third level of chi refining also. Although I have average qualifications, I have broken through to the third level of chi refining. There won't be much of a problem in the middle stage, but it's hard to say in the later stage of chi refining. The cultivation in the chi refining stage is more difficult than before. According to the scriptures, the best age for monks to build a foundation is before the age of 60. There is no way to build a foundation. Although it does not mean that there will never be a chance to build a foundation, the probability will be greatly reduced. Fang Qing estimated that even if there is no bottleneck, he is still a little worried about whether he can reach the 9th level of chi refining before his 60th birthday. Sure enough, we still need to invest more resources, and even take pills. In the past 3 years, he has mainly relied on his own hard training, and he has understood that he is not a genius. If you want elixirs, you have to earn contribution points. Some ordinary tasks in the sect can only allow me to barely survive. If I want to get rich, unless I become an alchemist or even take on more dangerous tasks, whether it is arresting murderers or joining the fishing team, there are generous rewards, but they are also very dangerous, and Fang Qing does not take them. In the past 3 years, in addition to practicing and working, I have read the pharmacopoeia, identified the properties of medicines, and attended lectures at Dandingtai. I have also mastered the water control method, plus the accumulated contribution points. Mian Chan can gather enough raw materials to refine the Yuhua spiritual water. Then give it a try. If you find some talent in water method alchemy, you can earn spiritual resources without going out to take risks. Half a day later, next to a spiritual spring. Fang Qing took a deep breath and patted the storage bag on his waist. Amidst the fluctuations of mana light, 3 jade boxes emerged and were opened one after another. They were all raw materials for refining the jade flower spiritual water. Qi tonifying grass, Hessian flower, and the most critical main ingredient, the fish juice of Yuhua Baoyu. Fang Qing checked again and confirmed that the raw materials he spent all his money to buy were of high quality, and couldn't help but nodded. Xiao Huanhai's method of alchemy gives full play to the spirit of relying on the sea and eating the sea. The materials of spiritual objects and sea beasts in the sea account for a large proportion. This Yuhua spiritual water is more suitable for monks in the early stage of chi refining to increase their magic power, especially Shulingen monks. This elixir recipe and materials. I have spent the rest of my savings in the past few years. Fang Qing's face was a little ugly, but he quickly calmed down and made a hand seal. Crash. The mana of the black water surged, and the spiritual spring rippled slightly, quickly turning into a whirlpool. The first step is to extract the chi-building grass. Fang Qing threw the chi-building grass into the spring water, made a seal with his hands, and let the vortex devour the chi-building grass, and then, smashed and rotated. This is a water control method he practiced. Shanyuan 3 transformations. Among the water method alchemy techniques, the water control method is extremely important, and 3, 6 and 9 are different levels. It is said that Zhuer's master, Fuyunzi, is a second-level alchemist who masters the water control method of the 6 whirlpool flying stars. The Lord of the Alchemy Island, the #1 alchemist of the Bihai sect, has practiced the water control method to the level of the 9 dragons together. When the water method is used to refine the alchemy, the entire Cold Spring Peak spiritual spring has 9 twists and turns. Every time it surges and flows, the purity of the medicine will be improved to a higher level. Furthermore, water method alchemy is notoriously powerful, and many alchemists can be summoned to help. Whenever there is a large-scale alchemy task in Baihaman, the entire alchemy island is like a celebration, with medicinal springs washing the entire peak. While thinking, Fang Qing made secrets with his hands, causing the vortex to spin faster. Gradually, the cyan liquid began to separate into layers. This feels like a centrifuge. Fang Qing complained in his heart, quickly put away the most essence of the medicinal solution, and then poured it into the Hessian Hua. 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. Fang Qing looked at the faintly black spring water in front of him, but he looked depressed. It's going to fail. To be honest, the failure of refining spiritual water for the first time was completely expected by him. But it's a headache if you don't know where it failed. The nature of fire is ever-changing, so it is difficult to control fire. But the nature of water is latent, and when you find something wrong, it is like a dam collapse, and it is difficult to recover. In fact, the mistakes have been buried for a long time. The key is not yet known. Fang Qing scratched his hair in distress. This is the pain of not having a teacher to tell him. Next, you can either spend a lot of money to ask an advanced alchemist to give you some advice, or you can spend your own money to buy more materials to increase your proficiency. Unfortunately, he can't do both. Alas. Once the refining is wasted, all the savings will be wasted. Fang Qing sighed, but his eyes gradually became determined. He took out the flying boat from the storage bag and went straight to the General Affairs Hall of Wanbao Island. In the Bronze Hall, many disciples were coming and going, as noisy as before. After he turned around a few times, he began to look for a suitable task. Junior brother Fang? At this moment, a gentle male voice sounded. Fang Qing looked over and saw senior brother Hua Lianhua, with Yu Taohua standing next to him. These two people also entered the inner gate, but one was on Wanbao Island and the other was on Array Island. Senior brother Hua, junior sister Yu, Fang Qing greeted. What? Junior brother is ready to take over the mission? Do you want to join my fishing team? Senior brother Hua smiled and said, I rented a double-toothed boat, which can go into the deep sea. If Fang Qing has no other plans, joining the fishing team is indeed a good idea. Not only can you practice your fighting skills, but you can also eat a steady stria of monster fish and meat. Even if the effect is worse than the elixir, over time, it is no small matter. Thank you for your kindness, senior brother, but I still like to act alone. Fang Qing refused directly, accepted a mission from the sect, and left in a hurry. Looking at his back, Yu Taohua was a little unhappy. It's just good luck to meet a disciple who is expected to be the true disciple. Senior brother Hua, haven't we already inquired that junior sister Zhazhu has gradually become alienated from her? Why are you so polite? It's just superficial, and it doesn't lose actual benefits. What's the point of being polite? Senior brother Hua smiled very playfully. Maybe junior brother Fang will be able to turn around in the future. After all, he has a middle-level qualification, not comparable to those of the inferior. Fang Qing randomly accepted a task of purchasing treasure fish, and then left the Baihaman mountain gate. This kind of purchasing task requires visiting many fishing villages, which is very cumbersome and has little profit. It has always been useless. But for him, having an honest excuse to go out is the best mission. After flying for a day and night, Fang Qing landed in a wilderness and found a cave to rest. With a thought, the world suddenly changed, and he had arrived at the land of ancient Shu. Instead of taking risks to capture the monsters in the sea, it is better to explore the world of ancient Shu. After all, the benefits are obviously greater here. His eyes were gloomy, and he began to take stock of his family fortune. Cultivated, he entered the third level of qi refining for the first time, and practiced water control, water arrows, wind control techniques, and sky eyes, a storage bag, which also contains 2 bottles of Bigu pill, a golden blade talisman with the strongest attack power, an earth wall talisman. The magic weapon is still the Qingye Zhou. No matter how you look at it, you feel poor. You don't have an offensive magic weapon or a defensive magic weapon. Fang Qing sighed. Even if he doesn't choose to spend all his money to refine elixirs, his savings are not enough. Buying a low-grade attack weapon and taking the risk of refining alchemy in order to gain a stable life. If he had the choice, he would definitely choose to stay in Baihaman and practice until he reaches the bottleneck, and then come to this world to explore opportunities. At this time, it is almost a desperate situation. If he still stays at Baihaman, he can already see the future trajectory. He will fail in alchemy many times, lose his fortune, and even delay his cultivation. In the end, there will be no hope of building a foundation. In order to build hope, we must give it a try. What's more, I'm just doing a preliminary exploration. As long as I can find monks and even trading channels in the market, and be cautious, I can use both worlds to gain huge wealth. Disease. In the mountain forest, Fang Qing pointed with his hand, and a water arrow flew out, like lightning and flint, and engulfed the forehead of an eye-catching white-breasted tiger. The big insect fell to the ground without saying a word. The spells from the Bihai Gate can actually be used here. Fang Qing took back the spells and was a little surprised. This is a lot more convenient. I can also sense spiritual energy in the void, but something feels wrong inexplicably. In his induction, the spiritual energy here is thin, and it is slightly different from the Bu Island. The golden and fire spiritual energy is strong. Is it because ancient Shu is located inland? Or is it the reason for the 2 worlds? That's it. I definitely can't figure out such a high-end issue. I'd better contact the immortal cultivators in this world first. Before that, I need to disguise myself. With a thought in Fang Qing's mind, all the magic power in his dantian disappeared without a trace, and most of it was stored as yuan. Gee. Only a few strands fell down and turned into Shenwu power. This Shenwu power comes from the Shenwu secret book, and it is a peerless martial arts. Fang Qing's I watched it casually while studying for 3 years. At this time, even if I face a foundation-building monk, I can only see that he is immortal and an innate master, without any magic power in him. Well, it is enough to be a mortal martial arts master. Fang Qing touched his face. If 3 years ago, he was still a young man, now he has become a young knight with a tall body and sharp sword eyebrows. Even if the Luo family issued a wanted order for him 3 years ago, his portrait will definitely not look like him now. Why is this Bajuan so messed up? Fang Qing slapped to death a rebel who wanted to rob, and frowned since he went on the road disguised as a knight in green. This was already the 3rd wave of robbers, and from the other party, he also learned a lot of news since the plague broke out in Ba County 3 years ago. It has never settled down. A group of rebels came from nowhere and attacked the city, causing countless refugees and bandits to run rampant. The Tianfu city that Fang Qing had visited before had been ruined and almost turned into a dead city. 3 years after the epidemic, there was another military disaster. The epidemic was caused by the black gangsters. What about the military disaster? Just as he was thinking, there was another noise in front of him. Fang Qing strode forward and climbed a hillside. He saw a group of knights below, surrounding a convoy and attacking. Although the convoy was small, most of them were women and children, but there were a few martial arts. A relatively good young man, guarding each other with swords. The bandit cavalry could not hold them down for a while. These gangsters also seemed to be from a broken army. There was a hint of military skills in the movement. They were divided into several waves, consuming the physical strength of those martial arts masters. Once the opponent's internal strength is exhausted, they are afraid of disaster. As a bystander, Fang Qing has a clear view of the situation. Sure enough, within a moment, a cold arrow passed through the sword light and penetrated the chest of a young knight. The young knight spit out blood and fell to the ground unwillingly. Third brother? When the young knight led by him saw this, his eyes were almost splitting. You hold on. I will assassinate the enemy leader. The 3-foot green blade in his hand was flying, and there was a faint dragon's roar. He guarded his whole body airtight, and he actually rode into the formation alone. Well, when you encounter a desperate situation, you don't run away, but fight to the death? What a man. Fang Qing secretly nodded to himself. To be cautious, he converted a bit of mana, and silently activated the Sky Eye technique. This is a spiritual eye spell practiced by Bahaiman cultivators. It can observe the fluctuations of spiritual power and mana. Of course, it is useless in front of high-level cultivators. But at this time, he was surprised when he saw some faint auras in the convoy. There are spiritual power fluctuations, but it is not a cultivator, but a spiritual object? Finally, found the clue. He felt happy when he saw the knight roaring angrily and rushing to the place where the leader of the chariot riders was. Good swordsmanship. The leader roared loudly, and struck across with a ghost-headed sword in his hand. Ping-pong, the swords struck each other, and the knight was suddenly shocked. No. This man's skill is actually better than mine. Haha, the little brat is not good at martial arts, and he still follows others to see injustice. Did he get himself involved? The leader laughed, and the ghost-headed sword flashed with black light. With only a dozen moves, the sword flew out of the knight's hand. My life is at stake. The knight's face was grim, and he was abo. To die when suddenly there was a loud noise in his ears. The ghost-headed sword fell to the ground with a bang, and there was a spinning pine cone next to it. The knight looked towards where the pine cone was flying and saw an incredible sight. A young man wearing a bamboo hat was strolling towards him. The surrounding bandits were shouting, but no matter whether they were swords, guns, or arrows, they couldn't get within 3 feet of the opponent. It was like there was a chi wall 3 feet around the opponent's body. Immortal? The leader of the rebellion also changed his expression greatly, and quickly shook his head. No. It's the great master of martial arts who shocked the past and the present. Mother, even if this person practiced martial arts from his mother's womb, could he have reached this level? Without thinking, he ran away with his head in his arms. However, with a slight step, Fang Qing caught up with the man and flicked his right hand. Stab, a force as straight as a spear hit the leader in the back, exploding a bloody hole. The leader is dead. Run. That's not a human, it's a monster. The surrounding cavalry saw that their leader was dead and Fang Qing was invulnerable, so they fled in fright. Are you okay? Fang Qing looked at the chivalrous man and had a pretty good impression of him. Although he did not claim to be a good person, he still admired such chivalrous people and liked to make friends with such people. After all, even a villain wants his friends to be good people. Li Rulong, I have met my senior. Li Rulong's Chinese character face, with firm lines on his face, solemnly stepped forward to express his thanks. Although Fang Qing looks a few years younger than him, he is obviously an old monster with good looks and should not be taken lightly. Senior? Fang Qing touched his face. I am about the same age as you, just call me Fang Shuibian. Age, about the same? Li Rulong's eyes widened. Fang Qinghan smiled and touched his head. When I was a child, I fell off a cliff and found the mantle of a senior, and there was a red fruit tree next to it. After eating it, my power increased greatly. This is the origin he made up for himself. The image of a simple and honest boy can make people look down upon, and it can also explain why he basically doesn't understand anything. What's more important is that the identity of this Fang Shui is protected by the Daoshengzhu, which has a layer of as if calculated effect, and is not afraid of people's investigation and calculation. Is that so? Li Rulong felt that he was obeying the story in this novel, but his heart moved again. However, this person leaked the details as soon as they met, and he did seem to be inexperienced. The two returned to the motorcade together, and Li Rulong introduced Fang Qing one by one. There were originally 7 people in his group, and they were the children of 7 martial arts families in ancient Shu. They all had the same spirit, so they became sworn friends with Jinlan, known as the 7 Swords of Shu Mountain. It's a pity that in today's battle against the strong and the weak, 3 people died. There are still the eldest brother Li Rulong, the second child Lu Wansu, the 6th child Zhu Zhenheng, and the youngest 7th sister Gua Tianhong. Everyone was losing at this time, but Li Rulong was the one in the best condition. Thank you, Fang Qian, brother Fang, for saving me. Lu Wansu was dressed in a green shirt and looked like a Jade. Gee, master, but at this time he was covered in blood. Zhu Zhenheng broke his arm. Only Gua Tianhong was slightly better, but his face was like gold paper and he suffered serious internal injuries. You're welcome, Fang Qing said a few polite words and saw a matron coming over from the convoy. I am Pu Failing, from the Yulin Pu family. Thank you for your help. After that, he gave Ying a gift. At that moment, he quickly ordered the doctors to come up and bandage everyone, then clean up the dead bodies, and continued on their way. Everything was taken care of in order. The 7 swords of Shushan, no, all 4 swords were injured. Under Mrs. Pu's kind invitation, he had to get into the carriage to nurse himself back to health. Fang Qing also agreed and escorted the other party to the next city. A few days later. At night, the moonlight is like water. Beside the bonfire, Li Rulong was drinking with Fang Qing. After spending this time together, he was convinced that this brother Fang Shui was indeed a lucky young man who was ignorant of the world. And he also has lofty ambitions. You want to seek immortality? Li Rulong took another sip of wine and stared directly at Fang Qing. Of course, I still have an immortal calendar at home. Immortals must exist, but I can't find them, Fang Qing answered honestly. I have also read the immortal calendar. It is said that some aristocratic families have secret versions. Li Rulong also had desire in his eyes. After all, who doesn't want to become an immortal? To be honest, the 7 of us brothers wandered around the world with the same intention of seeking immortality, but we didn't expect. Li Rulong couldn't help but feel sad when he said this. The two got very drunk and went back to the carriage to rest. Unexpectedly, after Fang Qing put down the car curtain, his expression suddenly became very sober, with a faint smile on his lips. He concentrated his magic power on his ears, and his hearing suddenly improved. In the distance, in the carriage, Pu Failing was sitting cross-legged, and opposite him was a young girl with a round face and a slightly plump face, making her look round and round. Mother, that Fang Shui, is it really okay? At this time, the girl spoke doubtfully. He should be, as he said, a secular warrior who had good luck and swallowed the spiritual fruit. Pu Failing had a look of determination on his face. I gave him the name of the Yulin Pu family to test. If he is really a practitioner, it is impossible that he does not know the name of the Zifu immortal clan. Moreover, I have deliberately tested him in the past few days and found no flaws. Fang Qing overheard this and twitched the corner of his mouth slightly. He really doesn't understand the practice of this world. He can only say that he acted in his true colors and tested his loneliness. I see, this time my family suffered a disaster. The 7 swords of Shushan and Fang Shui both contributed, so we should repay. The girl pondered for a moment. Mother, can you? No. Pu Failing's expression immediately became extremely serious. Mother is just a branch of the Pu family. How could you have any dignity in this family when you married so early? I changed your surname to Pu this time just to go back and recognize your ancestors. If you have the qualifications and can practice cultivation, then all the spiritual resources will be prepared for you. Do you know that? How valuable is the first Jinchi that you enter the Tao? Even if the monks of this family have to work hard for several decades to get it. Who else do you want to support if you don't even care about it? The girl suddenly stopped talking. At this time, I heard Pu Failing say, what's more? I don't think the 7 swordsmen of Shushan have the qualifications to cultivate immortality. But that silly boy had an adventure when he was young. Maybe he has some destiny, so he can form a good relationship? What does mother mean? We don't have the ability to help people become Taoists. But it's not difficult to give some advice. Calculate the days, the floating boat shop will be opened, and it happens to be nearby, so they can try their luck. As for spiritual talents? Of course we won't sell any of them. Pu Failing said firmly. Little did he know that all the conversations that the mother and daughter thought were secret had already fallen into Fang Qing's ears. After hearing all of it, he suddenly laughed. How can a sparrow know the ambition of a swan? Are you trying to tempt me with rotten rats? Although there are several spiritual objects in the convoy, they are not in Fang Qing's eyes. Even if they are rare enough, how can they compare with the low-key and smooth integration into the world of immortality? The Yulin Pu family? Zifu? It sounds like a big force. We should avoid it as soon as possible. That Fuzifang City seems to be a good place to go. Yunying City. This city is located at the southern end of Bajuan. Further south is beyond the scope of Bajuan. The closer to this city, the more order Fang Qing feels. I will send you here. He saw the Pu family's mother and daughter's motorcade lining up to enter the city, and said goodbye directly. I can't thank my benefactor enough for saving my life. Pu Failing took her daughter and bowed. We, mother and daughter, remember our great kindness. As my benefactor said before, do you want to ask for immortality? I do know some clues, huh? Hearing this, Li Rulong and the other 4 swords also became interested. Please ask Mrs. Pu to clarify the doubts. We also have the ambition to seek immortality. Not far from this city, there is a floating boat Fang, where it is said that monks make a living. Pu Failing took out a wooden token. The token was bright yellow and seemed to be carved from wood. It had the word Pu engraved on the front. Although Fuzhou Fang is not open to mortals, if a few people show this order, it's... Who'd give the Pu family a face? Thank you, madam. Fang Qing did his job, took the token, turned around and left without any hesitation. Thank you, madam, for your advice. If we succeed in seeking immortality, we will be rewarded in the future. Li Rulong clasped his fists and saluted, and quickly took the 3 swords of Shushan to catch up with Fang Qing. I didn't expect that Mrs. Pu's family looks soft and weak, but she knows the fate of immortality. On the way, the youngest Gua Tianhong finally couldn't help it and said, maybe when we rescued people, she was still watching the joke secretly. There was obvious dissatisfaction in the tone. 7th sister, please don't be so rude. Li Rulong quickly stopped. I know that the death of the 3rd brother and the others made you care a lot, but they are gone. A few people were silent for a while and continued on their way. Finally, a mountain peak shrouded in thick fog appeared in front of Fang Qing. Floating boat Fang. It turns out that the clouds here are shaped like floating boats. Fang Qing has already transformed his magic power and is now immortal. He looked at the clouds in the sky and sighed. I wonder if we can become immortals. When Li Rulong and others saw the dream of immortality close in front of them, although they tried hard to stay calm, their hearts almost jumped out of their chests. Becoming an immortal, haha, what's so good about becoming an immortal? At this moment, an old voice suddenly came from the side. Fang Qing looked over and saw a sloppy old man strolling over, with a joking look on his face. Even if you become an immortal, you still have to work as a horse for the immortals above. No, they are not immortals, but devils. One by one, those who let the plague go, those who killed people, those who took the blood. What will the land of Bajuan become like? Releasing the plague? Could it be referring to the Black Sect? Does killing people and taking blood refer to those rebels? Old ears? Unlike Li Rulong and others who were astonished, Fang Qing knew some truths and immediately made the connection. This Bajuan, the ground has not been calmed down for a long time, and a large number of people have died. It seems that there is something hidden. This practitioner in Ba County seems to be more inclined to the devil. Fang Qing has been struggling in the Blue Sea sect for 3 years, and of course he also knows some inside stories about the birth of the Sea Dragon King. After all, the tasks are all in the General Affairs Hall. He is just glad that the people who take the tasks are some qi refining disciples. They can't see clearly. The monitors on the island will naturally not find anything wrong with him. And, even if Baihaman wants to feed monsters, it only kills some mortals occasionally, and it also wants to cover up the name of offering sacrifices to the Sea Dragon King. How can it be so blatant as here, slaughtering the city directly? Fang Qing thought a lot for a moment, and then heard Li Rulong shout, "Who are you?" Haha. Everyone in the world knows that gods are good, but their conscience cannot forget them. Where are the emperors and generals now? A pile of dead bones and a grave disappeared. The sloppy old Taoist looked at Li Rulong with some pity in his eyes, and walked into the thick fog. In an instant, the figure disappeared. He was also an immortal. Lu Wansu among the 4 swordsmen of Shushan said in surprise, "Why are you so unkempt?" "No, Maverick? Maybe immortals have the aesthetics of immortals." Fang Qing was alert, took out the Pooh family token and walked into the thick fog. Not long after, an archway appeared in front of the 5 people. On the archway, there are 3 big characters of Fuzufang written with flying dragons and phoenixes, and there are many shadowy buildings behind it. A man in Guyi was leaning on the archway and taking a nap. He suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Fang Qing and the RS, mortals? What are you doing in Fuzufang City? I am here to seek immortality, and I would like to ask the Immortal to make it convenient. Fang Qing stepped forward and handed over the token. Pooh family? The man in Guyi's expression changed, and then he said, I want to teach you that although our city has a fairy fate, you are still mortals. Even if you have the reputation of the Pooh family, you must verify your capital if you want to enter. It doesn't matter, my family has quite a lot of assets, Li Rulong said confidently. It is not worldly gold and silver, but spiritual resources, that is, spiritual objects. The big man in Guyi shook his head. If there are no spiritual objects, you will not be able to trade in the market. You might as well go back and forth from where you are. Spiritual object? Even if the 4 swordsmen of Shushan are rich among mortals, they were dumbfounded when they heard this request. I wonder what kind of objects can be called spiritual objects. Guo Tianhong stepped forward and bowed Ying. I hope the Immortal will take pity on us and tell me, spiritual objects are supernatural objects and are not limited to one shape. The Fuzufang market will be open for another 3 days. It depends on your opportunity. Go, the man seemed a little impatient and flicked his sleeves. Who? The breeze is howling and the fallen leaves are flying. When Li Rulong came to his senses again, he found that he and others had arrived at the foot of the mountain. Zhu Zhenhing experienced the pain of breaking his arm and losing his friend, but also found the fate of immortality. He was so excited that he lost it again. He almost cried and knelt on the ground and kowtowed. I beg the Immortal for mercy. The Immortal has mercy, alas. Br Li Rulong sighed and pulled Zhu Zhenhing up. It's useless to think too much now. Let's go find spiritual things. You can try century-old ginseng, Ganoderma lucidum, and the mother and daughter of the Pooh family must have them on hand. Guo Tianhong said sadly. 7th sister. Li Rulong quickly stopped. The first reason is that he does not want to retaliate for kindness, and the second reason is that the relationship behind the person who can produce the Immortal Fate token is of great importance, and 7th sister cannot be allowed to cause a big trouble. What's more, this kind of thing can be discussed privately, but now there is an outsider. Fang Qing touched his nose. I am also going to find the spiritual creature. We will see you later. See you soon. Li Rulong cupped his fists and sent him off. When Fang Qing's figure disappeared completely, Lu Wansu said, the fruit this person swallowed must be a spiritual object. I wonder if there are any more. As soon as these words were said, several knights rolled their eyes and sighed again. The martial arts is too high, haha. Sure enough, in order to seek immortality, the benefactor can kill and sell anything. I wonder if the brothers will turn against each other in the end. In the distance, Fang Qing listened but did not take it seriously. He only valued Li Rulong's character and seemed a little closer to him. As for the other party's 3 sworn brothers and sisters, they really can't stand it. Are there 3 days left? Fang Qing used his body skills and galloped all the way. It wasn't until he was far away from the crowds that he found a cave, used his magic power, and performed a magic trick. A ray of light fell on the wall and disappeared quickly. This is a little trick that all monks know. It is used to set it up during retreat. It will alert you when someone else breaks in. After doing all this, he communicated with Daoshengzhu and returned to Bu Island. Sanhua Fishing Village. On the pier, a large number of fishing boats are busy, and many fishermen are drying their nets and sorting their catch. At this moment, a green leaf boat descended from the sky and landed in midair. On it was a young man in blue robe, with jade trees facing the wind, like a fairy. Meet the gods. The Immortal Master is here. A group of fishermen quickly knelt down to salute. That's all. Are there any treasure fish recently? Fang Qing said directly. I would like to inform you, Master Immortal, that no one in this village has caught treasure fish recently, but I heard that someone in Sanshan Fishing Village caught an autumn killer. After a while, an old fisherman who looked like a village chief came forward and answered respectfully. Yes, not bad. Fang Qing asked for directions again, threw down a silver shell, and drove away on the Qingya boat. His mission was to acquire treasure fish, for which he also received a lot of gold and silver. Of course, this kind of half-demon fish requires a large number at one time, which is very cumbersome, and there is not much contribution value reward. Few disciples are willing to run like this and delay their practice. But for Fang Qing, it was just a pretense for public benefit. He rushed to Sanshan Fishing Village, but the lucky fisherman had not yet sold or eaten the fish. Fang Qing was overjoyed when he saw it, and immediately dropped 120 silver shells to buy this autumn kill. Floating Boat Square. Under the archway, the man opened his eyes and saw Fang Qing again. Is it you? I have seen an immortal. I wonder if this fish can be used as a spiritual resource. Fang Qing showed the autumn kill sari in his hand. Of course, it was already a dead fish, and even the fish's brain had been cut off. Only half of the shiny silver fish body is left, with a sharp aura, like a bright silver sword. Oh? It's actually Zhen Xue's spiritual creature? It's rare to be able to enter the city. The man looked a little surprised and nodded. What is Zhen Xue's spiritual object? Fang Qing was a little curious. Zhen Xue is located in Shenxi. The water returns to the southeast and is also known as Big Sea Water. The man replied and waved his hand, obviously too lazy to say anything more. Zhen Xue? Big Sea Water? So, Zhen Xue, spiritual things mean seafood? Why are you doing this nonsense? For the sake of style? Fang Qing complained in his heart, but still gave a respectful salute on his face, and entered the floating boat shop with the autumn swordfish. This floating boat shop is really not big. There are only a few scattered shops, and some people with different looks and strange clothes are setting up stalls. He observed and found that most of them were bartering, and it seemed that most of these monks were not too high in cultivation. Fang Qing has seen foundation-building major cultivators in the Bihai sect. Although these monks gave him a dangerous feeling, they still seemed to be inferior to the foundation-building cultivators. It looks like it's at the level of the Qi refining fair over at Baihamen. It's pretty good, and it suits me very well. With a thought in his mind, he successively tried to watch the transaction or come forward to bargain. After half an hour, I had some idea of the price of the Mid-Autumn Festival sori fish. It's actually quite tall. In Baihamen, this kind of half-demon fish is only attractive to monks in the early stage of Qi refining. Wait, the spiritual energy in this world seems to be a little thin, and the production of spiritual objects is also rare? So there is a premium? But the Taoism is quite subtle. The gatekeeper flicked his sleeves before, and there was a vision of falling leaves in the breeze, which I couldn't understand. With some thinking, Fang Qing finally came to a stall. This stall is very simple, like a fortune-telling stall, with a yellow flag hanging on it that says spiritual testing and fortune-telling. There was an old blind man sitting behind the stall, with dark holes where his eyes were, and he looked particularly scary. There was a dark yellow bone bowl in front of him. Old gentleman, please. Fang Qing sat down and bowed. Haha. It's rare to see mortals come here. It seems like today is the day for the old blind man to open his business. The old blind man smiled and showed his ugly yellow teeth. You can just call me the old blind man. If you want to become an immortal, you must first test your soul and fortune. I wonder, how much will it cost? I only have this, Zhen Xue, spiritual thing. Fang Qing put the autumn kill sari fish on the stall. Although this is nothing to him, he must pretend to cherish it very much. The old blind man touched his hand and nodded. This spiritual resource will calculate your destiny and qualifications. You can ask the old blind man any questions you may have. To be honest, in this floating boat workshop, no one can sue. We're past the old blind man in terms of fortune-telling. Fang Qing was non-committal. After all, Wangpa sells melons and boasts about herself. The old blind man sneered and pointed at his eyes. You don't believe it? When the old blind man was young, he once traveled to the West Pole and entered the secret realm. He threw a pair of tricks there, but he also brought out this bone bowl magic weapon, which can detect spirits and determine lives. It's all accurate. What is the secret realm? Fang Qing didn't understand, so he asked directly. The old blind man was startled and said with a wry smile, the secret realm is located in the west of ancient Shu. All you need to know is that it is a place of great darkness and great terror. He paused and continued, it's a lot to ask for your whole spiritual fish, but you have to know that you are just a mortal, holding a spiritual object, like a busy city. If you don't spend all the money, the old blind man is afraid that you will suffer as soon as you leave this market. This reminder is true. Fang Qing nodded. That's the price. Very good. You put your hand on the spiritual bowl. The old blind man asked Fang Qing to hold out his hands, and finally held up the yellow bowl. Gulialu. Fang Qing looked at the bone bowl again and felt a little uncomfortable. But during the thought, a gurgling sound came from the bone bowl, and water gushed out, as if there was a small spring in the bowl, and a fountain was constantly flowing out. Who? In addition, there is another breeze blowing slowly, surrounding the bone bowl. Well, you are the destiny of Jishui, and your energy is like a leopard's pattern. The tiger follows the wind, and the leopard follows the wind. The old blind man said, Jishui has a good wind. It is the water of Mengquan, and it can also be called Baoda water, also known as fountain water. The person with this destiny has a sharp tongue, and the Lord can speak eloquently. When a gentleman changes, his culture will also be great. If you want to maintain your life, you must read more and learn literature to nourish your own culture, After hearing this, Fang Qing's heart trembled, and he thought of San Chueo and the Fang family. He calmed down. So, I have the qualifications to cultivate immortality? Of course there is. If you practice Jishui and supplement it with literary energy and literary style to support your life, they can complement each other. In addition, Xin Shui, and Bai Shui exercises can also be used. Generally speaking, Shui De exercises can be used. Of course, the premise is to take a sip of water to practice the true energy and enter the Tao, the blind man side. Voice, true Qi is precious, and one spiritual object is far from enough. The old Taoist has a few Qi collection methods that he can give you to repay the spiritual fish. It's just the last step of Qi collection, which requires the power of a monk to combine Qi. It all depends on your luck. Fang Qing heard a look of disappointment on his face, but his heart moved. I have magic power, maybe I can complete the last step without the help of other monks? This old blind man seems to be an honest person. You can ask more about the spiritual world. He thought for a while and then asked, I can only practice Shui De Kung Fu? Ji Shui, I don't know if it is powerful. Haha, the main thing among monks is Taoism. If you have a high level, you will naturally be invincible. However, there are indeed conflicts between various Taoist traditions. The Golden Fire Taoism is the most prominent Taoism in the world. If you avoid it, the old blind man laughed. Fire overcomes water? Isn't this right? Why does metal and fire show the way? Fang Qing's eyes widened. This was obviously different from what he had learned at Baiheman. It was purely anti-Tiangong. You don't read the immortal calendar? Niujin, tail fire, Kongjin, wing fire, the 12 years, alternate. Dominate the world, all belong to the sun and the golden fire Taoism, and have produced unimaginable power, so the Jinhua Taoism is the revealed way. There was a hint of trembling in the old blind man's voice. 4 years later. Dan Island. In the cave, Fang Qing looked at the jade bottle in his hand. After opening it, you can hear the whistling sound of wind and the sound of spring water coming from the bottle. Inside the bottle, there is a clear, transparent, moist and shiny qi, which is the 5th level middle grade earth spring quenching qi. It's not easy, Fang Qing sighed with emotion. Originally, he estimated that it would take 2 or 3 years to completely refine an earth spring tempering, which was originally correct. But Fang Qing ignored the competition for the cold spring and the burden of the mission. The Bihai sect devotes its spiritual veins, techniques, and resources to cultivate its disciples, which naturally requires the disciples to work hard. Unless there is a background relationship and you can choose an easier task, otherwise you will have to bear it hard. As a new disciple, Fang Qing only has a 1-year adaptation period, and there are mandatory tasks every year thereafter. Fortunately, Baiheman has not started a war with other forces, otherwise the mortality rate of mandatory tasks will rise sharply. Even so, Fang Qing was lucky enough to get through the first few missions, but his boat capsized 2 years ago, and he was incorporated into the sect's fishing team to hunt monster fish in the deep sea. He accidentally suffered some minor injuries and was delayed in his training. Originally, he estimated that he would be able to perfect the 3rd level of qi refining in 3 years. However, 4 years later, he was still a little short of perfecting the 3rd level. Next, there is the bottleneck from the early to the middle stage of qi refining. After the bottleneck, the middle stage of qi refining can easily last for 5 or 6 years, not to mention the late stage of qi refining. At my age, I want to be in time for the best time to build the foundation. It has become increasingly difficult to break through to the 9th level of qi refin. ING. Is this the difficulty of immortality? If you encounter a slight setback, your future will immediately become bleak. Of course, his slow cultivation speed is also due to the lack of use of resources. Except for maintaining the minimum necessities of life, the contribution points of the past 4 years have been reserved by Fang Qing, preparing to purchase several spiritual objects that are common in both worlds and have higher premiums in ancient Shu for resale. When he was in Fuzufang City, Fang Qing saw a lot of spiritual objects. Some of them were not seen on Bu Island, but some had similar or even identical spiritual objects. Furthermore, the value of the same spiritual object in the 2 worlds is very different, and there is a lot of room for a premium. I have almost mastered the disguise technique. It took me 4 years. It's time to earn a lot of resources, improve my cultivation and alchemy skills. As long as you become an advanced alchemist, the sect's mandatory tasks will also become alchemy tasks, and production-oriented talents such as alchemists will not be allowed to risk hunting monsters. With a thought in his mind, Fang Qing took out the Qingyezhou magic weapon and came to the General Affairs Hall. The hall was still buzzing with people. There are more people than before. Haha. The tasks of the dragon transformation pond of the sect have increased, and it is obvious that a group of first-order high-grade snakes have broken through to the second level. I don't know how many second-order demon cores can be produced, and how many of them can be refined by Elder Tianding. Base pill. According to the convention, the Foundation establishment pill is distributed once every 10 years, and true disciples have priority in redeeming it. There are a lot of true disciples in this class. If the number of second-level demon cores produced by the sect is insufficient, I am afraid that the five-toothed ship will be launched to Ent. Are the base. Go into the deep sea to catch the second-level demon fish, kill the demon and get the core. The casualty rate for this kind of mission is only slightly lower than that of the sect war, and they will definitely be forcibly assigned. Listening to the discussions around him, Fang Qing's face's expression also became very solemn. Foundation establishment pill, second-level demonic core. This kind of thing has nothing to do with him for the time being, but if the sect's own second-level demonic core is not enough and a deep-sea fishing is to be carried out, then he will most likely become cannon fodder. We must take action immediately. Fang Qing came to the disciple's stall and began to buy several spiritual materials of his choice. Huh? There has been an increase in the prices of some immortal cultivation materials, especially high-quality magic weapons that can temporarily increase combat power. Is this related to the Foundation establishment pill? He came to a stall selling elixirs and spiritual herbs. I saw a strange flower as big as a bowl. How to sell this fierce sunflower? 20 contribution points and take it. The stall owner was a middle-stage chi refining monk who was reading a book and answered without raising his head. This kind of fierce sunflower can only refine some elementary yang attribute elixirs, which are not worth much. But in ancient Shu, due to the scarcity of spiritual objects from the great sun, the premium is particularly high. Fang Qing saw one last time in Fuzifang City, and it was the treasure of the store in a drugstore. But, after buying the spiritual grass, he looked at the elixirs again. When he saw one of the black water pills, he felt a little moved in his heart. This is the black water pill? Senior brother is an alchemist? Yes, the black water pill is particularly suitable for assisting water spirits. The breakthrough of the root cultivator from the early stage to the middle stage of chi refining. The young stall owner put down the scroll in his hand, and a flash of light flashed in his eyes. I see that you are not far from reaching the third level of chi refining. Do you want one? This, Fang Qing thought in his heart. He has a middle-grade water spirit root. According to common sense, he will not be stumped by such a small bottleneck. But it's hard to say how much time it will take him. Taking the black water pill to pass the level is indeed a good idea to save time, provided you have enough contribution points. I wonder how much the price is? Only 200 contribution points. Excuse me. Fang Qing turned around and left. Haha, senior brother Su, you are mistaken. This junior brother Fang is short of money and cannot afford the black water pill in your hand. At this time, a monk in blue shirt walked up next to him and taunted him. It was Li Yudan, what did you call me? Fang Qing stopped for a moment. Junior brother Fang, what's the matter? The title among fellow monks in this sect is based on strength. I have reached the third level of chi refining and am about to enter seclusion and enter the middle stage of chi refining. Can't I still call you junior brother? Li Yusu laughed heartily. Junior brother Yudan, have you missed the rules? Despite this rule, those at the same level of cultivation are still ranked according to the order of entry. Therefore, until you break through the fourth level of chi refining, I will still be your senior brother. Fang Qing didn't know why. Apparently after he cut off the contact with Xia Zhu, the semblance of malice from Gong Susu disappeared, but this Li Yusu still refused to let go. Perhaps, this was the jealousy of the young man, right? Although it is ridiculous, the reason why people are human is that sometimes they do some nonsensical things. I won't argue with you. The sect is about to conduct a big fishing, and you must be on the list of the ocean-going fleet. I'm waiting for you. Li Yusu smiled happily, then just wait. Fang Qing turned around and left, too lazy to argue with this person. Not far away, Hualian and Yu Taohua also saw this scene. Senior brother Hua, you seem to have made a mistake. Yu Taohua smiled sweetly. This Fang Qing is still young, so older may not be good. But that Xia Zhu, I heard that he has reached the fifth level of chi refining? Given time, the threshold of the late stage of chi refining will never be able to trap her. She is indeed the proud daughter of heaven. Senior brother Hua sighed in admiration and watched Fang Qing leave. His good family tradition made him one of the few people who remained in the same state as before when Fang Qing was in decline. As for that master Fang brother, it takes 3 days to test the jade, and 7 years to identify the material. It has been 7 years since I started, and it does seem a bit mediocre. But the more this happens, the more I have to smile when I see him in the future, and not just arouse resentment. Look at Li Yusu, who humiliated his former senior brother as soon as he became successful. How good is his reputation? In a sect, reputation is very important. Otherwise, even if it becomes a true successor, who can borrow a large sum of contribution points from the Foundation Establishment Pill? Foundation Establishment Pill. This time it is not our turn, and the next 10 years will not be the stage for our group of disciples, but I believe that Senior Brother Hua will definitely be among the true successors and famous in Bihai in the future. Yu Taohua stared at Senior Brother Hua obsessively. There seemed to be some kind of light in her eyes. This time the fishing team will be more dangerous than last time. In the cave, Fang Qing looked solemn. He didn't care at all about some of Li Yudan's words, and even liked hearing them. After all, the other party had a foundation building master who could hear a lot of sect information and would leak it unintentionally. After knowing this, we must respond immediately. There is not much time left, we must break through the alchemy skills as soon as possible. He took out a piece of bright yellow talisman paper from his storage bag, pasted it on the door of the cave, and hung a sign for retreat. This is a talisman that can protect the monks in retreat. Even if spiritual consciousness forcibly breaks in, it will automatically turn into ashes to remind the monks. After taking protective measures, Fang Qing made secrets with his hands and began to practice the disguise technique. As he muttered words, the flesh on Fang Qing's face seemed to come alive, and his eyebrows were only slightly adjusted, as if he was a different person. Not only that, the aura on his body also began to change. It was vaguely different from the local monks, but had some characteristics that convinced the Qi Dao monks. It's a pity that it's just a barely simulated product. Once you actually use it, the magic will be broken immediately. Moreover, if you encounter a foundation-building monk, or a Taoist overhaul over there, I'm afraid it will be difficult to hide it, for years of hard work, and the exquisite secret techniques of Baihaman, are also this is the only level. That's it, take over the sect's mission immediately tomorrow, and then go on an adventure. Count the days, this year's, by Luo Feng will also be opened, since knowing the power of the high-level monk's spiritual consciousness, Fang Qing has tried his best to avoid using the Taosheng Pearl in the sect. I heard that after building the foundation, not only can I monopolize a peak, but I can also arrange a second-level formation to protect the cave. Even the ancestor of the pill formation will find it difficult to unknowingly explore the privacy within the formation. Unfortunately, I am still a little far away. Biluofeng. This city is located on a green lake. It is composed of more than a dozen large boats, which have been drifting and trading along the water veins. The last time Fang Qing was in Fuzufeng City, he had inquired about the situation of some cities near Bajuan, and he knew it well. This time, he used the disguise technique and turned into a middle-aged man with a sinister face. He simulated the mana fluctuations of the Qi Dao and came to Biluofeng. This fellow Taoist, please. Sure enough, the monk guarding him no longer made things difficult like when he was immortal, and directly bowed his hand. Fellow Taoist is a stranger, but a casual cultivator? Exactly, I want to buy exercises for the younger generation in the family. Fang Qing's voice was slightly hoarse. The exercises? There are quite a few classics on the book boat. If fellow Taoists can wait, there will be an exchange meeting among fellow Taoists in the evening, and a lot of exercises should be leaked out. The shipkeeper chuckled lightly. I wish you, fellow Taoists, that your wish will come true. Fang Qing nodded, and did not go to the book boat immediately, but wandered around on several other boats. Well, the main thing here is barter. I thought it would be like the Qi refining Dao on Jasper Island, where spiritual stones are mined as general equivalents. Could it be that spiritual objects here are already so scarce? Or is Jasper Island too rich in products? He walked around and found that the local monks were indeed very poor. An ordinary magic weapon could be used as a ship-combing treasure, and various spiritual objects were extremely rare. This is especially true for elixirs and talismans. Not only are they small in quantity, but they are also even smaller in variety. The rarest thing is a 5th-level high-grading corpse Qi. This Qi seems to be not a righteous thing at first glance, but the asking price is extremely high. There are also the most powerful monks on the ship. Eve. And just a glance at it gives Fang Qing a feeling like a light on his back. What a broken place. He complained and came to the book boat. Fellow Taoist, welcome to the Jiuchuan Water Pavilion. What book do you want to buy? A beautiful woman with skin as smooth as gelatin, a jade hairpin on her head, and a bookish look on her face came up to greet her and spoke with a sweet smile. Purchase the Jishui method for the children of the family, Fang Qing answered calmly. Now that he has the earth-quenching Zhen, he only needs a copy of the Jishui technique before he can try to conquer the Qi and enter the Tao, becoming a Qi Tao monk. Although this Jishui skill is not too rare, the old blind man in Fuzufeng does not have it, and he claims that even if he had it, Fang Qing would never be able to afford it after measuring his fortune, solving his doubts, and giving him a Qi collection technique. Jishui, Kung Fu? The beautiful woman thought for a while and replied, there is only one collection in this water pavilion, called Guanhailing Book, and the foundation of Taoism is Jiu Gonlin, only one? Fang Qing frowned slightly, and then relaxed. Although he has no choice, he has the Tao to produce pearls, so it is not a big problem. Being convinced and entering the Tao is a major matter in choosing the path. Naturally, it needs to be carefully considered. The beautiful woman, it seems that he understands this very well. After all, once the Taoism is chosen, it cannot be changed. Even the first breath of true qi determines the quality of the future mana. If the Taoism is mixed, it will be difficult to purify it. You can pay with the qi refining Tao. There is a certain price to change the cultivation method, but qi Dao is so demanding? Fang Qing was a little surprised. Oh, so I can change it at will? There are some in this water pavilion. There are several fragments of Jishui, Kung Fu. Fellow Taoists can also read it, but if there is no chance and no follow-up, I am afraid that I will be trapped in the realm of submission for the rest of my life, the beautiful woman said sincerely. I want to read it first. Fang Qing pondered for a while, with a look of hesitation on his face. Of course, all the books in Benshui Pavilion are restricted. You can only read the first 3 pages. Fellow Taoists can read them by themselves, and then go to my place to purchase and unblock them. The beautiful woman smiled slightly, sat down on a wicker chair, and began to drink tea and read a book. Fang Qing's face was expressionless. When he came to a pile of books, he glanced at Book of Swordsmanship, seeing Ho Tao killing the Jiao, Su Wen, Geography of Bajuan, Quan Jian Book of Life, Essentials of Immortality, Mei Hua Yi, huh? There are also geography books and miscellaneous notes? They shouldn't be worth much. You can buy them to increase your experience and literary style. Most of the exercises are incomplete, and there are few who can really practice to the Taoist realm. Looking at the beginning, there is no chapter on Zifu. Yes, this is normal. How can the Z mansion be sold in a small market? If I don't have the Taosheng pearl and by this inferior skill, I may be destined to be in the Qi realm for the rest of my life. Even if I am lucky enough to build the Dao foundation, I will not be able to peek into the Z mansion. What a misfortune. Huh? He first read a few fragments of the Ji Shui technique and confirmed that it was exactly the same as what the beautiful woman said. On top of this bookshelf, there were volumes of Qi gathering secrets. Fang Qing's eyes briefly paused on a dusty book in the corner, and his heart moved. There is actually a Qi gathering technique of the Great Sun Purple Qi? However, he quickly glanced over, and with a thought in his heart, he pulled out a Qi collection technique, Yu Liu Guang. After opening it, it turns out that the beginning is exactly the same as the Qi collection method passed down from generation to generation by the Fang family in Sanshuao. Yu Liu Guang is ranked at the top of the 6th level. Is it this Yu Liu Guang that the Luo family practices? But this kind of information, if I run a few more towns, I will definitely be able to find out. Fang Qing's heart moved. He has never forgotten the hatred of the Luo family for a moment. Even because of his weakness, he was forced to hide on the Jade Island most of the time, which is even more unforgettable. Fellow Taoist is interested in these Qi collection methods. The beautiful woman came over at some point, carrying a fragrant fragrance. There are many children in the family, so we must take more paths to avoid being restrained. Fang Qing shook his head. Everyone has his own talent, and you can't force it. My fellow Taoist plans for his descendants, and I admire you for this thought. The beautiful woman smiled and said, if your fellow Taoist buys the Book of Guanhailing, I can make the decision and give you a few copies of Qi gathering techniques. Sure enough, this Qi gathering technique is worthless. Fang Qing complained in his heart, but a look of emotion appeared on his face. A few Qi gathering techniques are not enough. I have to add a few miscellaneous books. As he spoke, he picked up a few Qi gathering techniques, then went to the nearby bookshelf and picked up a few geographical records and biographies. Fellow Taoist, there are not so many additions to the head. The beautiful woman looked a little ugly when she saw this scene, and saw Fang Qing pick up a hexagram book and ask, does this plum blossomy involve deduction techniques? Of course, fellow Taoist, are you interested in divination? If you really want to practice this technique, then I really have to admire it. The beautiful woman's words were somewhat teasing, and then she saw Fang Qing throw out a jade box. This thing can be exchanged for the Book of Guanhailing, and it comes with these miscellaneous books, which should be more than enough, right? This is, the beautiful woman opened the jade box and saw a strange flower as big as the mouth of a bowl. A wave of heat hit her face, and she couldn't help but be shocked. Fire sunflower? This item is more than enough to exchange for these books. Okay, I'll pick a few more books. When Fang Qing heard the words, he immediately picked up a few miscellaneous books casually, and the copy of the Great Sun Purple Qi collection method was also mixed in. This, the beautiful woman knew that she had made a mistake, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. When she saw that Fang Qing was holding worthless things, she breathed a sigh of relief. Is this divination and deduction technique difficult? At this moment, Fang Qing suddenly asked, it's not a question of whether it is difficult or not. When the beautiful woman saw Fang Qing changing the subject and no longer holding the book, she immediately explained, "Fellow Taoists, you need to know that no matter what kind of divination technique, it is all about asking the secrets of heaven. But there are too many people with great supernatural powers in this world, and the secrets of heaven have already been mixed together. We, the convinced monks, even if they practice for a lifetime, they will not be able to predict accurately a few times, unless they are specially cast into the divination and easy-to-number ways. Daoji monks can barely get some signs, but they still need to be interpreted, and there are many errors and omissions. Only the Zifu magical power may be able to see the cause and effect, such as looking at the lines with the back of the palm, but this is also looking at the cause and effect, and it will be difficult to succeed if it is slightly interfered with at the same level. Fang Qing probably understood that the art of divination is too difficult, and precautions it is easy to defend, difficult to attack, and it is thankless. Even those who specialize in cultivating the relevant daoji and magical powers must reach the daoji to get some accurate hexagrams, but they still need to make their own judgments. Only Zifu can calculate the details clearly. But even Zifu can only calculate the daoji. Convince. If you encounter interference at the same level, you will be blinded. In addition, it is difficult to get started with divination. But he has the ability to make predictions, so he is naturally interested in the art of divination. This book Plum Blossom E is also a good match. Fang Qing clapped the Plum Blossom E in his hand and smiled, but that's all. The beautiful woman agreed quickly, as if she was afraid that Fang Qing would regret it, so she immediately carried the books to the counter and began to unseal them one by one. After a while, Fang Qing walked out of Biluofeng with a trace of satisfaction on her face. Very good. All we need to do next is find a place. Breakthrough. I am a monk convinced by Qi Dao. I hope this 5th level mid-level earth tempering will not disappoint me. Fang Qing patted the storage bag, and the green leaf boat flew out, turning into a green leaf, carrying him away from Biluofeng. Fellow Taoist, please stay. At this moment, a voice came from behind. Fang Qing turned around and saw a big man in black, riding a shuttle, which was much faster than Qing Yezhou. When he saw him turning around, the big man in black immediately raised his hand, and a bright light flashed above his right hand. No. Fang Qing screamed secretly, his eyes stung, and he shed tears. But at this moment, the big man rubbed his hands, and balls of earth and rocks flew towards him, and the target was Qing Yezhou. Boom. A large amount of sand and gravel exploded in the air, revealing a khaki-colored wall. However, at this moment, the wall had been torn into pieces, and in the blink of an eye it exploded into little khaki-colored auras. You're still conducting a sneak attack? If I hadn't secretly deducted the Earth Wall talisman, I would have been seriously injured even if I didn't die this time. Fang Qing rubbed his eyes and gritted his teeth when he saw that the Earth Wall, which had excellent defense in qi refining, was easily shattered by rocks. The cultivation of this calamity path is not bad. There is actually a talisman? What a fat sheep. When the man in black saw Fang Qing using the talisman, a look of surprise appeared on his face, and he drove the shuttle closer and closer. Water arrow. Fang Qing raised his hand, and several water arrows flew out, which were easily blocked by the big man. Haha. The magic power is so weak, why is it like this? You didn't use the 3rd level of miscellaneous energy to enter the Tao, right? He was a little worried at first, but now he relaxed a lot, opened his big hand, and a black smoke turned into a giant palm, and he was about to capture Fang Qing. At this moment, a pale golden talisman appeared in Fang Qing's hand, which was suddenly activated. Stab it. Golden light flashed in the void and gathered into a golden blade, which was the golden blade talisman. However, unlike the ones on Jasper Island, this golden blade not only became more slender, but also had some primitive lines on its surface, like a sword of heavenly punishment, slashing with a sudden strike. Poof. The big black hand was cut open directly. The sword light continued unabated and passed over the neck of the big man in black. Before he said anything, a head fell out. Sure enough, in this world, the golden fire is manifesting the Tao, and the attack power of the metallic talismans will increase dramatically. Wait, does it mean that even the talismans of the qi refining Tao will be affected in this ancient Shu world? Fang Qing drove the green leaf boat, grabbed the big man's body and the shuttle, and quickly left the place. Soon after, several more escaping lights flew in, lingered for a few times, and then chased Fang Qing. Unfortunately, these monks are destined to return without success. Jasper Island. What a broken place, what a broken place. Fang Qing yelled. If he hadn't happened to have a metal talisman to protect himself, he would have died at the hands of Jia Shou this time. In the future, I will still need to carry more gold ND fire talismans. They are the most cost-effective in ancient Shu. Fortunately, I can run fast. I have to admire those monks who have the guts to chase me here. After all, Bu Island is the territory of Baihaman, and no one dares to rob and kill Baihaman disciples on the island. He took a few breaths, and then began to rummage through the monk's body and pick it up. This man is so poor. After a moment, Fang Qing's expression became even more depressed. The result of touching the corpse is very bad. This tribulation cultivator is quite poor and has no other magic weapon except a flying shuttle. There are no secrets of cultivating immortality in my arms, only a bottle of pills. After uncorking the bottle, the smell of blood assaulted my nostrils. Fang Qing used his half-skilled alchemy skills to make a brief appraisal and confirmed that the elixir was suitable for monks in the early stage of qi refining to increase their mana, but it was refined using magic means, and was mixed with an unknown amount of living human essence and blood during the process. He was naturally reluctant to thank him for such a blood pill. He could only keep it first and see if he could find an opportunity to sell it in the future. That Jia cultivator still has his accomplices. I will hide for 2 days and then go to ancient Shu to break through. Although Fang Qing already has a skill and a true qi, he is still convinced of qi Dao. He doesn't know if there will be any trouble if he breaks through on Jasper Island. Therefore, he chose to play it safe and go to Gushu to break through. While waiting, he could just get familiar with the exercises and then read other miscellaneous books. Fang Qing first took out the Book of Guanhailing, Jishui, and read it through from the beginning. With the foundation laid by Baihaman and the reference to the monastic knowledge in several miscellaneous books he purchased, he finally did not need to ask anyone for advice. He could understand it himself. It turns out that the first breath of Qi Dao is divided into 9 levels and 36 grades, and there are many profound meanings. It is difficult for monks who obey Qi Dao to change their path. The first breath of Zhen Qi is extremely important, and is directly related to future achievements. The fighting skills are much different. There is still hope for the 3rd level Zhen Qi to build the Dao foundation, and only the 7th order Zhen Qi and above can sprint to the Zifu in the future. Earth Tempering Zhen is only the 5th level mid-level, which means that there is hope for the Daoji in the future, and Zifu basically does not need to consider it. Unless you are very lucky and find a spiritual object from heaven and earth that can purify the Dao base. It really is a world as tight as a net. But I don't care. Anyway, I can transform and change the techniques at will. Just use Jishui to top it off. In the future, I will stop playing and practice the Great Sun Purple Qi directly. Isn't the 9th level top grade a perfect foundation? Fang Qing thought happily and opened the Book of Plum Blossoms. After a while, he put down the hexagram book with a serious look on his face. Who am I? Where am I? What am I going to do? As an immortal cultivator who had his marrow purified by the Book of Changes once, Fang Qing originally thought that he was already a genius among mortals. But watching Plum Blossoms gave him the experience of going back to college and failing high school math. Facts have proved that no matter how hard you push yourself, you will never be able to do math. The same is true for divination. Not a truly gifted person, even getting started is difficult. It is difficult to get started, and divination is difficult. It is almost useless at the low level. No wonder few people practice this. If I didn't have the Daoshengzhu Ruzai Zhong, I wouldn't want to practice hexagrams. A few days later. Bajuan, a cave. Fa. Yingqing blocked the entrance of the cave with a huge stone, and affixed a talisman, and sat cross-legged on a stone bed. The contents of the Guanhailing book were like a clear spring gurgling through his heart. There is a jade bottle in his hand, which contains quenching Zhen from Earth Spring. Let's begin. Fang Qing picked up the jade bottle, silently operated the method, and opened his mouth to inhale. The Zhenqi, which was like a clear spring in the earth's veins, suddenly turned into a white streak, fell into his lips, and disappeared. Crash! The sound of mountain spring hitting bluestone suddenly started. Fang Qing felt like the dry earth, greedily absorbing this true energy. Every time he silently runs the formula, the earth-quenching Zhen will circulate along the meridians of the whole body, transporting the great Zhou Tian, and entering the empty Dan Tian. Before the breakthrough, for the sake of safety, he had naturally turned all the black water mana of his qi refining path into Yuan qi and stored it in the Daosheng Pearl. At this time, he is just a mortal. As the earth-quenching Zhen entered the Dan Tian, it suddenly turned into a stream of Jishui magic power. This trace of mana moves around like the shadow of a dragon, snake, and a talisman seed, forming a whirlpool. This is the source of mana. The first fundamental magic power is completed. Fang Qing continued to run the technique, and saw an endless stream of Jishui magic power emerging from the whirlpool of magic power. Gulialu. In the cave, under the stone bed where he was sitting cross-legged, the earth suddenly cracked, and a fountain gushes out. In the cave, there was an unknown sound of wind. This is a vision? No, it's an image. Fang Qing opened his eyes, feeling the transformation of his body by Zhenqi, and then looked at the clear spring and breeze in the cave. He thought thoughtfully in his heart, this monk who believes in Qi Dao has a kind of magical power. Characteri. Sticks. I laid the foundation with the 5th level mid-level true energy. The current Jishui mana is much stronger than the water-based magic power of ordinary Qi refining Dao. If the true energy of the 7th level or above is used to lay the foundation, how mysterious will the quality of the mana be? From this point of view, Qi realm monks are probably better than Qi refining realm monks. Daoji monks have their own Taoist foundation, and they may be much better than foundation establishment monks. As for Zifu and Jidan monks, I'm afraid the gap will widen. He stood up and made a hand gesture. Who? A cyan wind blade emerged. This was the wind blade technique that he had been practicing hard but had not yet mastered. Jishui has good wind, so it is very helpful for me to practice wind attribute spells. The characteristics of magic power do not seem to be so simple. Fang Qing suddenly touched his chin. After being promoted to the 1st level of convince, he suddenly gained various insights and his words became more convincing. Does this also have innate spells? This ability can be called the power of speech. Jishui's magic power is truly incredible. Fang Qing thought to himself, of course, this ability can make my words more persuasive, but if the enemy doesn't listen to me, it will naturally be of no use. And as the cultivation level increases, the persuasiveness will naturally become stronger. If I can cast the Tao Foundation, maybe I can persuade ordinary Qi refining monks to commit suicide? He made another secret, and the magic power of Jishui turned into water arrows. In the cave, there was a sudden sound of wind howling. With the help of the wind, the power of water arrows will increase by at least 3 levels. Papa. The water arrow hit the rock wall, causing rocks to fly, mixed with traces of moisture. Fang Qing went over to check and saw traces of moisture appearing on the cracked rock wall, as if it had been dead by some kind of cold spring. Does it still have the property of water erosion? However, the most important thing is not this. The time has come to witness the miracle. He took a deep breath and opened the channel to produce beads. In an instant, the black water mana that he originally turned into Yuan Qi rolled down and was easily converted into Jishui mana. Crackling. In Fang Qing's body, the magic power of Jishui circulates, manifesting the image of a clear spring and breeze. In an instant, he breaks through 2 levels in a row and reaches the 3rd level of submission. With this strength, if I meet that calamity cultivator again, well, the opponent seems to have earth attribute skills. I have nothing to say, he complained, and then dissolved all the Jishui mana and turned it into black water mana. Crash. In an instant, the black water's mana overflowed in Fang Qing's dantian. Although it did not have the image of Jishui's mana, it surged and directly reached the realm of the 3rd level of Qi refining. Not only that, more Yuan Qi is transformed, making the black water's mana become more turbulent, attacking the meridians of the 4th level of Daoshengzhu. With the help of such majestic magic power, the small bottleneck was broken in an instant. Boom! In an instant, Fang Qing broke through to the 4th level of Qi refining. Not only that, the magic power of the 4th level of Qi refining continued to gather, until most of this level of cultivation was filled, and then it slowly stopped. In the middle stage of Qi refining, it's finally done. Fang Qing smiled and clenched his fists, feeling the black water mana in his body. The superimposition of the 2 techniques is absolutely invincible. However, the total amount of Yuan Qi is only so much. After the transformation, one has only 3 layers and the other has 4 layers, which represents a terrible gap in the quality of the mana. Although Jishui only has the 3rd level convince, Fang Qing somehow feels that if they were to fight, their own black water, with the 4th level of magic, might not be able to beat them, excluding foreign objects. By Heyman. Hongquan Peak. Fang Qing found a spring. This Wang Kuanyan lacks spiritual energy and has not reached the 1st level, but under the induction of his Jishui magic power, it has a vitality. It is a good choice to use it to combine medicine. Sure enough, there are still many things that can be explored in this image of Jishui. Fang Qing originally planned to use the mid-stage Qi refining level to try water method alchemy again. But today I had an idea to convert Jishui mana, but there was an extra surprise. Sure enough, there are still many things that can be explored in this image of Jishui pop. He patted the storage bag on his waist, and 3 jade boxes flew out. Inside were Qi tonifying grass, Hessian flower, and Yuhua treasure fish juice, which are all materials for refining the Yuhua spiritual water. After being convinced, Fang Qing wandered around many markets in Ba County in the ancient Shu world, buying low and selling high, becoming a profiteer in 2 circles. He obtained a batch of contribution points through bargain hunting, and bought all the alchemy notes, raw materials, and other items, preparing to spend money to improve his alchemy skills. Go. Fang Qing first extracted the Qi tonifying flower. He used the water control technique to create a whirlpool in the spiritual spring. He patted the storage bag on his waist, and 3 jade boxes flew out. Inside were qi tonifying grass, Hessian flower, and yuhua treasure fish juice, which are all materials for refining the yuhua spiritual water. This time, Fang Qing felt that there was an obvious difference. Many obscure things in the past were easily solved under his Jishui magic power. After being convinced, Fang Qing wandered around many markets in Ba County in the ancient Shu world, buying low and selling high, becoming a profiteer in 2 circles. He obtained a batch of contribution points through bargain hunting, and bought all the alchemy notes, raw materials, and other items, preparing to spend money to improve his alchemy skills. Although it is still the technique of Xianyuan 3 transformations, it has an inexplicable charm of 6 swirling flying stars. Jishui is also known as fountain water, and the spiritual spring belongs to it, so does my control over the spring water greatly increase? Fang Qing had a vague realization in his heart. At this time, his condition was beyond good. After cooking the qi tonifying grass, he began to refine the juice of Hessianhua and Yuhua Baoyu. Soon, it was the fusion and warming of various medicinal liquids. The criticism of water-based alchemy is that it takes a long time to make alchemy, which is much longer than fire-based alchemy. A long time passed, and the spiritual spring in front of Fang Qing had completely turned into a medicine pool, with a faint fragrance coming out. Very good. At this point, we just need to wait for the medicinal properties to settle and extract the spiritual water in the final step. Fang Qing exhaled a long breath, with a hint of excitement in his eyes, sat cross-legged and began to wait silently. Jishui is also known as fountain water, and the spiritual spring belongs to it, so does my control over the spring water greatly increase? According to the alchemy book, this step takes 2 to 3 days. Fortunately, it doesn't have to be like the fire method of elixir refining, where you have to guard the fire day and night, but it is also very energy-consuming. Fang Qing had a vague understanding in his heart. Huh? The smell of this medicine? Its color is like blue, and its aura is clear. It seems that the pool of elixir is about to be completed. It should be Yuhua spiritual water. I wonder which senior brother and sister it is? Immediately, it was the fusion and warming of various major medicinal liquids. Hongquan Peak is a public area, and there are many disciples on Dan Island. Someone immediately noticed the abnormality and exclaimed. The criticis of water-based alchemy is that it takes a long time to make alchemy, which is much longer than fire-based alchemy. That person seems to be Fang Qing? Oh? That disciple who went through the back door? A long time passed, and the spiritual spring in front of Fang Qing had completely turned into a medicine pool, and there was a faint fragrance. Hush. If someone can refine the first-level spiritual water, he can be regarded as a high-level alchemist. His status will be very different in the future. You should be more cautious and be careful of misfortune coming from your mouth. TSK. I heard that this person has some trouble with Liusu, who is a disciple of Master Fuyunzi. But Liusu is not very lucky. He said he wanted to retreat to break through the bottleneck in the middle stage of qi refining, but he failed and lost a lot of energy. Liusu? It should be a middle-grade spiritual route, right? How could he still be stuck at a small bottleneck in the middle stage of qi refining? It seems that his qualifications are average, and the evaluation is very reluctant. The surrounding discussions did not hide it, and they all reached Fang Qing's ears. I didn't expect there was news about Liu Dan. Hearing that this person failed to break through, he felt relieved, stood up, and saluted all around, fellow disciples. This pool of spiritual water of mine has not been refined yet, so please spare me for now. I will be rewarded when the spiritual water is refined, haha. I will stay away, so as not to disturb the spirit spring elixir. A group of senior brothers and sisters felt that Fang Qing's words made sense, so they kept a certain distance away. Fang Qing watched with cold eyes, knowing that his power of words had an effect. Well, those with higher cultivation and firmer will than me, are more resistant to language. And verbal persuasion must ultimately be based on actual interests or fists. If you promise heavy treasures in return, the persuasive power of words will increase a lot. 2 days later, Fang Qing's eyes lit up, he made a hand seal, and poured mana into the medicine pool in front of him. I saw that the originally clear medicine pool has now been divided into several distinct layers. The top layer is green and jade-like. Just a slight sniff will make people feel the mana in the body is slightly restless. It is indeed a pill that increases mana. Fang Qing smiled and took out a dozen green-skinned small gourds from the storage bag. These small gourds are only the size of a baby's fist and can be fully grasped by a normal person's hand. They are specially used to hold spiritual water. Get up. He stretched out his hand and a stream of jade flower spiritual water flew out and fell into a green-skinned gourd. It was filled quickly and was blocked by Fang Qing. After a while, a row of 12 green-skinned small gourds lined up one after another. This is another feature of water method alchemy. Although it takes a long time, the quantity is large. Congratulations, senior brother, the refining is successful. Around the Chandan Island, disciples congratulated one after another, and some looked sad, obviously thinking of their own great cause of alchemy. Thank you, junior brothers and sisters. This jade flower spiritual water has little effect on me. See, I only need to leave a gourd. Fang Qing stood up and clasped his fists around. It is an ancient custom for an alchemist to give the first batch of successfully refined elixirs to fellow Taoists. Now that these junior brothers and sisters have benefited and been affected by the power of words, they suddenly feel that Fang Qing is a trustworthy person. Li Yusu's nonsense may not be credible. Congratulations to junior brother Fang for successfully entering the rank. At this time, a middle-stage Chi disciple with a handsome face, half black and half white hair, and a medicinal fragrance came forward and congratulated with a smile. Xia X. Yu Wusu, it turns out to be senior brother Su. Fang Qing felt that the other party's magic power was stronger than his own, and he saluted quickly. I think your technique, although a little immature, is completely natural. It's wild fox Zen, right? Not long after, Elder Tianding, the owner of this island, is going to start refining elixirs. Junior brother should complete the certification as soon as possible, and then follow Elder Tianding. If you can learn a little bit, you can use it for the rest of your life, Su Wusu reminded. Yes, Fang Qing also has this plan. At least, he must report to the sect that he will officially enter the level and become an alchemist. In this case, there is no need to venture out of the sect for mandatory tasks. Allowing valuable production talents to be fillers is not what a mature force should do. The senior brothers and sisters here are nice to talk to. Even Li Yusu, they just exclude me and won't kill me. It's much better than that bad place. I like it here very much. It's best to keep refining alchemy in the sect and never go out. Dan Island, the main hall. Fang Qing specially converted 4 layers of black water mana and came to report. He planned to show off his cultivation in the middle stage of Chi Chain, so as not to pretend to be a pig and eat the tiger and eventually turn into a pig and be completely looked down upon by others. This Dan Island is mainly responsible for managing the sect's alchemists, and there are also quite a few disciples in the main hall. The person responsible for registering new alchemists happened to be an acquaintance of Fang Qing. Is it you? Gong Susu was a little surprised when she saw Fang Qing. Yes, junior brother was lucky enough to refine a pool of Yuhua spiritual water at Hongquan Peak, so I came here to report it. Fang Qing smiled and took out a green-skinned gourd. He made the elixir in public, so he was very confident. Unexpectedly, this person has been silent for 7 years, and he can suddenly explode? This person does not have much financial resources. He probably does not have many furnaces of refining materials. Is it possible that his talent in water method alchemy is so high? Gong Susu was surprised, but she still went through the procedures for Fang Qing. Junior brother, now you are the first-level alchemist of our sect. In addition to being in the General Affairs Hall, you can also accept alchemy tasks here. 7 days later, the owner of this island, Elder Tianding, will come to Danding Terrace to preach in person. Thank you, senior sister, for reminding me. Fang Qing handed over his hand, took back his disciple token, and left. Hee. Senior sister, do you feel regretful? Besides, Hualingsu saw this scene, and 2 beautiful dimples appeared on her face. No. After all, we have no conflict with junior brother Fang. Only the stupidly Yusu played his cards straight. Of course, we are the disciples of elder establishment. Even if this person becomes an alchemist, what can we do? Under the sect's rules, we can't do anything to him, and he can't do anything to us, Gong Susu said. Now I only care about the progress of junior sister Zhuer's cultivation. Junior sister Zhuer has always worked hard, and I think there is indeed some hope of building a foundation in the future. Hualingsu said solemnly. Foundation building. There are 3 levels of energy, and spirit, 1 level and 1 level. It would be great if there was a foundation building pill. True inheritance. True inheritance. A strong yearning appeared in Gong Susu's eyes. 7 days flew by. Danding Terrace. Fang Qing finally met the Lord of Dan Island, Elder Tianding. This foundation-building monk is an old man with white beard and white eyebrows. He is dressed in linen clothes with many traces of smoke and fire on the corners. At this time, his gentle eyes glanced at the alchemy masters, and he said, Today, I will explain the Formula O.F. foundation-building pill, as well as the techniques and precautions when refining. You must understand carefully. In half a month, Hongquan Peak will be closed. All advanced alchemists must assist me and participate in the sect's foundation-building pill refining task. This refining task is regarded as completing a sect's mandatory task, foundation-building pill? Many disciples' eyes brightened. Even Fang Qing subconsciously straightened his back and his eyes shone. Foundation-building pill? It's actually the foundation establishment pill? After the Chi chain reaches perfection, you can enter the foundation establishment stage. The lifespan of the foundation-building monk is close to 200 years, which is comparable to the rise, fall of a dynasty in ancient times. What's more, he is also very powerful and can dominate an island. This is the dream of all low-level disciples. It's just that it's difficult to build the foundation. Without the help of the foundation-building pill, if it fails, it will be fatal, so it has stumped many talented disciples. There is only one main ingredient for the foundation-building elixir, which is the second-level demon core. The demon core requires full and complete demonic power. Our sect is good at raising snakes, so the spiritual power of the second-level demon core is mainly based on water. It is most suitable for monks who practice water attribute skills to build the foundation. If it is to be used by other monks with perfect chain energy, the refining method must be changed accordingly. Elder Tianding's voice clearly reached the ears of every disciple. 3 months later. Hongquan Peak. Get up. As Elder Tianding shouted softly, bits of blue light emerged from the bottom of the cold spring at the top, shining like gems. Come together. His hand technique changed, and 9 water dragons suddenly appeared at the bottom of the cold pool, spitting ice mist, freezing the blue light particles, turning them into fist-sized ice cubes, and surfaced. The foundation establishment pill is finally finished. At the foot of the mountain, a group of disciples in the middle stage of the Qi chain, even if they can occasionally meditate to restore their vitality, are now extremely exhausted and their bodies are broken. Only Su Wusu steeled himself and sent out a transmission note. Not long after, the transmission notes came back. He listened to a few words and a smile appeared on his face. This time, Elder Tianding refined 20 genuine foundation-building pills. Well, compared with last time, Elder Tianding's alchemy skills have improved a lot. This alchemy refining is really tiring. I will take a good rest for a few days when I get back. All the disciples left one after another. Fang Qing was also ready to leave, but was pulled back by Su Wusu and said a few words. This person, maybe he wants to win over me? In the cave, Fang Qing recalled the interaction between Su Wusu and himself, and couldn't help but feel moved in his heart. Is my alchemy skill so valuable? Or is he an enemy of Fuyunzi's lineage? That's all, it's useless to think about all this. It's more serious to go to the General Affairs Hall tomorrow and prepare gold and fire talismans and various spiritual objects early. After the middle stage of Qi chain, the speed of cultivation slows down a lot, and the help of pills is still needed. The next day, Fang Qing summoned the Qingyezhou, first went to the nearest Dan Island Dan Palace, and took on several tasks of refining Yuhua spiritual water. This kind of spiritual water is more suitable for monks who are in the early stage of chaining Qi. After they are in the middle stage of chaining Qi, they need to take the higher first-order mid-grade green spirit water. The main ingredient of this kind of spiritual water is by Qi ginseng. Not only are the raw materials more expensive, but the key refining techniques are more difficult. Today's Fang Qing cannot challenge it. Therefore, he could only refine the Yuhua spiritual water first, and then exchange it for contribution points, and then exchange it for the ginseng green spiritual water, suffering a level of exploitation in vain. I just have to endure this period of time. When I go to Gushu a few more times, I will definitely buy a lot of green ginseng to improve my proficiency in ginseng green spiritual water. Fang Qing made up his mind and went to the General Affairs Hall of Wanbao Island, where he saw mourning people everywhere. Oh? It seems that the compulsory mission of the sect has been issued, and now everyone is rushing to buy life-saving magic weapons and spiritual elixirs and talismans? Fang Qing was wandering around, quite leisurely, and he could take the opportunity to pick up the missing items. Of course, it is not true to say that it is a leak. Each of these immortal sect disciples is more and more ghostly. The prices for items that they cannot see clearly are higher and higher, and the boasts are more fierce. They dare to say anything about nascent souls relics. Fang Qing only took advantage of the falling prices of several raw materials to start purchasing. In the land of ancient Shu, gold and fire were manifested in the world. There were more gold and fire spiritual objects. Of course, there are still not as many as here on Jasper Island. If you want to transfer the spiritual objects of the two worlds, you can sell the earth, wood, water and other attributes of the spiritual objects among the spiritual objects in both worlds, and exchange them for gold and fire spiritual object. You can make a lot of difference. Of course, there are some with high value, such as Dasun Purple Qi. If you pick one here, you might be able to sell it for a sky-high price there. But I am afraid that I will take the lifeless flower. I don't have the technique to practice the Great Sun Purple Qi. Furthermore, although the Great Sun Purple Qi is easy to collect, you only need to collect the Great Sun's vitality and combined energy towards the east every day when the sun is about to rise, but it will take at least several years to collect it completely. Isn't this junior brother Fang Qing? While Fang Qing was wandering around and occasionally taking action, a voice came. He turned around and saw Hualien. This Feiyu Island Hualien is a disciple of the main island of Wanbao Island. He works in the General Affairs Hall, which is regarded as a lucrative job. Furthermore, he knows a lot of secret information about missions and treats people very well. His contact with Fang Qing has never been broken. Recently, I heard that junior brother Fang was successfully promoted to a first-level low-grade alchemist. I wonder if I am here this time to buy medicinal materials? I know a few stalls, and the raw materials of Yuhua Lingshui are the most high quality and cheap. Hua Lian had a spring-like smile on his face. Thank you, brother Hua. I also want to purchase some gold and fire talismans for body protection. Is there any channel to introduce them? Fang Qing did not let this local snake go and made his own request. Metal and fire talismans? This metal property is nothing more than that. Fire talismans are naturally 3 points weaker in the sea, and they are 3 points weaker when encountering water attribute cultivators. There are very few practitioners in this sect. Hua Lian frowned and thought again. I remember that there is an inner disciple who happens to have a middle-grade fire spirit root and a physique suitable for drawing talismans. He has to Tootie this way. The stall is not far away. Because some are unsold, the price is relatively cheap. Thank you, senior brother. What Fang Qing wants is a cheap fire attribute talisman. Although the fire attribute talisman is weak in this small world, it will be very powerful in another environment. He was quite impressed by the golden blade talisman that showed great power last time. I see that senior brother has strong magic power. I am afraid he is about to break through the 5th level of chain energy, right? 10 years later, the true disciples may not be able to compete in a battle. Fang Qing said it in a nice way, since telling lies doesn't cost anything. I have no confidence at all in the true inheritance competition 10 years from now. But 20 years from now, my cultivation should break through the late stage of chain qi, so maybe I can give it a try. Hua Lian, however, knew how much he weighed and answered with a wry smile. Isn't there still a true place for cultivating immortals and hundreds of arts? Fang Qing asked what he wanted to ask the most. This senior brother Hua Lian comes from Foundation Establishment Immortal Island and is a disciple of Wanbao Island. He is well informed. Maybe he has more information? A disciple of cultivating immortals and hundreds of arts? This is probably more difficult than fighting. Hua Lian shook his head. Weather formations, alchemy, or drawing talismans, all require thousands or hundreds of failures to make progress. If your family is not rich, how many times can you try? Therefore, those who are obsessed with cultivating immortals and hundreds of arts must have the support of a force behind them. To put it bluntly, it is still the exclusive domain of those big shots. We and the outsiders should just fight it out. Is this strife so serious? Even Hualian, a disciple of the Foundation Establishment family, thinks that his family can only teach the true teachings of fighting? Fang Qing was surprised and CKLY asked for details. There are differences in the various arts of cultivating immortals. Can a spirit planter and an alchemist be the same? Hualian sneered. If you are an array mage, the 2nd level is enough to pass the assessment. The alchemist needs the 2nd level. Even the 2nd level of the talisman maker is a bit dangerous. Spirit planter? At least the 2nd level must be high to have the possibility of passing the assessment. And the examiner is still the elder of the sect, and the standards are all in the hands of others. Unless his skills are superior to those of the others, there is no dispute, otherwise, so, the only 10 places we, disciples with no background, can really compete for, are the 10 places in the martial arts competition? Fang Qing murmured. Hee. Although there are those descendants of the Foundation Establishment family who study fighting skills, after all, they still have to lose to us when it comes to risking their lives, Hua Lian said casually. Here we are. This senior brother Hua is also a disciple of the Foundation Establishment family. Why does he have the temperament of an outlaw? Worse than a casual cultivator, Fang Qing complained silently in his heart and looked at a stall in front of him. The stall was set up by a young man with red eyebrows. There were more than a dozen fire attribute talismans on the stall. Judging from the lack of people around, the business was not doing well. First-order low-grade fireball talisman, medium-grade fire talisman, and high-grade fire cloud talisman? Fang Qing looked at it and suddenly felt a little moved. Senior brother Hua Tianhua is an inner disciple. He possesses a bone talisman spirit body and is skilled in drawing talismans. Even the foundation building elders are full of praise. Hua Lian introduced. Senior brother Hua, I want to buy some talismans. Fang Qing saluted quickly and then started to scan the goods. Give me a fire cloud talisman, a fierce Fire talisman and a few fireball talismans. I'm a great patron. Senior brother Hua's face was filled with joy. I'll give it to you, junior brother. Fang Qing chatted for a few more words, and then began to inquire. I wonder, senior brother, are there any 2nd level talismans for sale here? That shabby place in Ancient Shu is too dangerous, and I can't worry without a powerful life-saving trump card. 2nd order talisman? Hua Tianhua laughed dumbly. this is equivalent to the power of a blow from the Foundation Establishment Elder. How powerful is the Foundation Establishment Elder? 1 drop of mana is equivalent to all the mana of us monks who have perfected the chain energy, so the power of a single blow is extremely terrifying. Even if you have a second-order talisman, you, who is at the 4th level of the chain energy, will not be able to use it even if your mana is drained. If you are in the late stage of Qi chain, you can still try it, but if you have not developed spiritual consciousness, you will easily hurt others and yourself, and even die together. Divine consciousness? Isn't divine consciousness unique to foundation-building monks? Fang Qing doesn't mind showing his ignorance, as long as he can hear more useful information. Furthermore, he has the gift of speech and his sincere words make it easier for people to tell him intelligence information. Spiritual consciousness is naturally unique to foundation-building monks, but some Qi-linking monks with extraordinary talents or adventures can also condense their spiritual consciousness during the Qi-linking stage. Otherwise, where did those true disciples who mastered second-level skills come from? Hu Tianhua smiled. If you can develop your spiritual consciousness during the Qi stage, it will have many benefits. Not only will it help you master the various skills of cultivating immortals faster, but it will also increase your chances of breaking through the foundation building by 10% or 20%. However, this method is too difficult and there is no fixed path. In order to prevent most mediocre Qi chain disciples from wasting away in vain, the sect generally does not talk about it, so. Do you need to have divine consciousness if you want to master the second-level skills in advance? Fang Qing immediately gave up his plan to buy a second-level talisman. According to Hu Tianhua, even if he had a second-level talisman, Fang Qing could not afford the price now. The first-order high-quality talisman should be enough. After walking out of the General Affairs Hall, Fang Qing let out a long breath. The next step is to continue to accumulate, strive to break through the late stage of chain energy, and at the same time develop spiritual consciousness and body training. The land of ancient Shu. Fang Qing, dressed in a green shirt, looked like a disciple of an aristocratic family on an outing. Physical training, spiritual consciousness, are difficult. He looked at the sky and the sun, feeling the dazzling brilliance, and suddenly sighed. In the past few days, he has inquired a lot about those disciples of the 100 Arts' true instructions, and found that they can develop spiritual consciousness. Some of them have special skills, some have swallowed some strange flowers and spiritual fruits by chance, and some have encountered life and death crises and naturally made breakthroughs. They may even have made up lies to deceive people, and there are no certain rules. What about physical exercises? There are many bodybuilding techniques in Tianshu Pavilion. The most famous one is the Black Water Dharma body, which is known as Black Water Tide, cleansing the world. After completing the training, you can even fight against second-level monsters with your physical body. But the exchange is too expensive. Training also requires many precious auxiliary materials. Fang Qing thought of the words of Xingxu in Tianshu Pavilion that day, and his face still darkened. Aren't poor ghosts worthy of body training? That's all, although I'm not poor, but I really shouldn't reveal my wealth. I don't need to be too pretentious. The ancient Shu side has mysterious Taoism and the Baihaman side has abundant resources. I want to make reasonable use of the advantages of both worlds. He came here mainly to earn a sum of contribution points and spend money on alchemy. Other than that, we are collecting some auxiliary skills, such as body training techniques and the like. Fang. The peaks are towering and the clouds are like floating boats. It's been, for years, Fang Qing couldn't help but sigh as he set foot here again. Back then, he was still a young monk in the early stage of Qi chain, but now. Finally convinced. There doesn't seem to be much difference. Due to the scarcity of spiritual objects in ancient Shu, many markets are not always open, and there are even caravans like Biluofeng that travel along the water veins. Therefore, if Fang Qing wants to make big deals, he must chase these markets. That old blind man is indeed somewhat capable of fortune-telling. He has traveled to various places and has extensive knowledge. He could ask about the auxiliary skills. He originally changed his name to Fang Shui and found out his qualifications for cultivating immortals here. The old blind man also gave him a book on Qi gathering techniques. Now that I have become a convinced monk and come to see the old blind man again, it seems like a reincarnation. However, it is normal to practice to the 3rd level of Qi for 4 years. It would be abnormal if he knew that I immediately promoted to the 3rd level after being convinced. So, either tell him that I directly bought a piece of earthly spring tempering Qi, or use the Daoshengzhu pearl to hide the 2 levels of cultivation. Fang Qing thought for a while and chose to hide his cultivation. With the Daoshengzhu pearl in his hand, his hidden magic power is so perfect that even the ancestor of Dongjia cannot tell it in person. And if you say that you bought the earth tempering, it would be too revealing of your wealth. Considering that he wanted to ask the old blind man about something, he must be someone he knew better, so he didn't hide his appearance. He walked into the market and was just about to find the old blind man when he suddenly heard a surprising voice. Brother Feng Shui? Huh? Fang Qing looked around in confusion and saw a heroic young man with a strong energy on his body, which gave people a tingling feeling. He was suddenly shocked. Li Rulong, you. Are you convinced and entering Taoism? This heroic young man is none other than the leader of the 7 swordsmen of Shushan, Li Rulong. That's right. I was Liu. CKY enough to get a spiritual gift, and when I entered the market, I found out that I had the qualifications to cultivate immortals. After a lot of hard work, I conquered the true energy and entered Taoism. Li Rulong had a look of regret on his face when he talked about the past. Behind him, Guo Tianhong was also there, bowing with his hands folded. Seeing Fang Qing's gaze, Li Rulong explained, 7th sister and I both have the qualifications to cultivate immortals. Alas, it's a pity that the 2nd and 6th sons, Lu Wansu, the 2nd among the 7 swords of Shu Mountain, and Zhu Zhenheng, the 6th among the 7 swords of Shu Mountain, are also famous young talents in Shu, but their cultivation qualifications depend entirely on fate. If you don't have the qualifications to practice, then you don't have it. At least today, Fang Qing cannot find a way to make immortal create qualifications out of thin air. The qualifications for cultivating immortals are rare, Fang Qing sighed, but he was filled with doubts in his heart. In his eyes, the heroine Guo Tianhong and Guo also had a spiritual aura, and she was convinced to join the Tao. I haven't been here for the past few days. Has the price of Jinqi in the land of ancient Shu been reduced and there is a big reward? Why is it so easy to become a Taoist nowadays? He chatted a few more words and found out that Li Rulong also had his fortune told by the old blind man, and he cultivated Kong Jin. Kong Jin is a sword weapon. No wonder when I saw my Taoist friend, I felt a sharp energy rushing towards my face. Fang Qing smiled, his tone was sincere, and his gift of sharp tongue was activated. Haha. I am also lucky. After my death, I originally wanted to collect qi for a few years, but I didn't want to find a fairy cave. I got a white sword in it. This qi is exactly the same as Kong Jin, and I also have a flying sword and sword art. I usually like to practice swords best. After a few years of exploration, I entered the door. Now I am convinced of the 3rd level of qi, accumulated some spiritual resources, and helped Qimei buy a copy of true qi. Li Rulong knew Fang Qing from the beginning, and now he unknowingly talked too much. It was not until Guo Tianhong pulled the corner of his clothes that he suddenly stopped and smiled apologetically. Convinced at the 3rd level, war sword cultivator? Fang Qing was speechless after hearing this. Although it took me 4 years to practice and it was not achieved overnight, the level is the same. An sword cultivator. In the land of ancient Shu, gold and fire were the most prominent orthodoxy. In the world between heaven and earth, there were more spiritual creatures of gold and fire. In the eyes of monks, those who practice the most powerful virtues must be sword cultivators. With a flying sword in hand, he can defeat all kinds of magic, making him the most popular person in the world. Various famous swords have been compiled into the top 10 flying swords in the world, which are widely praised and described in various biographies that Fang Qing has read. As for fire virtue? Then the alien fire cultivator is the most respected. This strange fire is the spiritual fire of heaven and earth, which is sacrificed and refined into the body by Huda monks. It is also extremely sharp when used in battles, conquering water, wood, and earth. There is also a list of spiritual fires of heaven and earth in the practice world. It is said that even the spiritual fire ranked at the bottom is a first-class spiritual object, which is not seen by ordinary Taoists. This Li Rulong is really unlucky. Wait, could he be a son of destiny like the protagonist of this novel? Or a child of temporary luck? If Fang Qing hadn't started reading Plum Blossom at all, I would have had the urge to tell Li Rulong's fortune at this time. Although his flying sword is definitely not a famous sword, as long as it is a flying sword. It is extremely valuable, and its value is far more valuable than a few rays of true energy. Fang Qing had to admit that he had the urge to rob the other party. But soon, this impulse was calmed down by him. You can't do this. I still have a certain bottom line, not to mention. I have a Daoshengzhu in my hand. As long as I work steadily, I will have a bright future in the future. If I am used to taking risks and make a lot of money once or twice, can I still make money 10 times 100 times? As long as I encounter fatal danger once, I will be dead. As long as I don't gamble, I will never lose. Li Rulong accidentally revealed his family background, and his expression was a little off. In addition, the foster sister next to him was winking again. He chatted with Fang Qing for a few words and left in a hurry. No matter what, this man is in trouble. It would be better not to hang out with him. Fang Qing said goodbye politely and turned into a herbal medicine shop. Fellow Taoist, welcome to our store. I wonder what kind of spiritual grass I want to buy. A waiter-like cultivator came up to him immediately. Fang Qing sensed that although this person had some magic power, the quality of his magic power was mixed. He was probably someone who had taken the third level of true energy to enter the Tao. Is there Xuanbi ginseng? Fang Qing asked. The so-called Xianbai ginseng is the nickname of Baiqi ginseng here, and Baiqi ginseng is the main material for refining ginseng green spirit water. If the price obtained here is lower, then the material price of the entire elixir recipe can be reduced, and then refined in large quantities to gain experience and cultivation in elixir refining. It depends on what fellow Taoists have to exchange for it. Generally speaking, it is 50 pounds of spiritual grain in exchange for a 10-year-old Xuanbi ginseng. The waiter answered quickly. Shall we use spiritual rice as a general equivalent? That's Ot bad. Fang Qing did some calculations and knew that the price here was higher than Baiheman, but he happened to have something he didn't want, so he could sell it here. He threw out a bottle of elixir, which was the blood elixir captured by the cultivator last time. How about this elixir? This is a pill to increase mana? The waiter uncorked the bottle, sniffed it, his eyes immediately lit up. He quickly looked around and lowered his voice. If the customer wants to change it in the store, he can change it to 5 Xuanbi ginseng plants. If he wants to change it with me, there will be 6. Is this considered a private transaction? Fang Qing smiled hoarsely. Sure enough, people must be selfish, and everything is inevitable. And this kind of elixir that increases mana may have an even more immediate effect on monks with mixed mana. I don't care, as long as you can get more Xuanbi ginseng, I will change it, Fang Qing said pointedly. After a while, he walked out of the herbal shop and patted the storage bag on his waist with satisfaction. There are many spiritual herbs in the two worlds with different names, but they are actually the same. It seems that we can collect some elixirs here and try to refine them there. Or can some Danfeng whose raw materials are cut off on Jasper Island find the main raw materials for extinction here? The more he thought about it, the more Fang Qing felt that he had a lot to do. Compared with the profits from trade between the two worlds, even if Li Rulong got lucky and got a flying sword, it would be nothing more than that. The old blind man stood in front of the stall. Fang Qing sat down, and the old blind man across from him was startled, and then he smiled so much that he showed a pair of incomplete yellow teeth, unexpectedly. The old blind man has been looking for death for so many years, and he has been criticized for many orders to become immortals. In the end, there are only a few people who are Yuli convinced and become Taoists, but today I can see 2 in a row, old mister. You're not blind, Fang Qing sighed and placed a skinned and scaled spiritual fish on the stall table. We monks recognize people by their qi. Fellow Taoist, you have the power of ji shui. In the eyes of the old blind man, it is easier to distinguish between beauty and ugliness. The old blind man stared at Fang Qing with 2 dark eyes, indicating something. I wonder if he would recognize me if I used the art of disguise? Fang Qing's heart moved and he sat down. Can I know what the last person came to ask about? He could probably guess that the person was Li Rulong, and he was a little curious about it. Haha. He's just a fool who wants to end the troubled times. Who does he think he is? The ancient human emperor? The old blind man laughed dumbly. Fang Qing was also silent, not talking about the troubled times in the world, nor about the land of ancient Shu. Even in Ba County alone, the chaos included the shadow of the Purple Mansion Force, the Black Sect. How easy is it to end it? Therefore, no matter how difficult the people's livelihood in the world was, he would not even consider it before he cultivated to Zifu. But Fang Qing still has the most basic respect for those who do it knowingly that they cannot do it. Maybe, people always have hope, maybe it can be achieved. You are so young. It makes the old blind man seem to see himself when he was young, as high-spirited and fearless. The old blind man murmured, and then came back to his senses. This fellow Taoist, what do you want to ask about? Fang Qing thought for a moment and then said, I want to find a body training method that is low-cost, effective, and can also increase the spirit. To be honest, he didn't have high hopes for this. After all, he had been to bookstores in various cities. There are body training techniques, but they either consume little money or have little power. It is either tyrannical, but consumes a lot of energy, and it has no effect of tempering the spirit. It can only be said that Fang Qing was a little greedy in his request for auxiliary skills, so he could not find one he liked for a long time. Hearing this, the old blind man was startled. Where did you find out about the old blind man's previous deeds? Huh? Fang Qing looked puzzled, but said in his heart, there is a way. He immediately said sincerely, please give some advice from the old gentleman. I still have some spiritual resources, Papa. While speaking, he dumped 2 more treasure fish on the stall. Ahem, you don't need to use your power of words on the old blind man. The old blind man coughed and touched the spiritual fish on the stall. Well, it seems that you really don't know. The old blind man will tell you about it. Everything in the world has gains and losses. If you want both, you are a bit greedy. However, those top-level body training skills, the method does indeed work, as the fellow Taoist said. Coincidentally, the old blind man had heard of a few techniques when he traveled to the secret area, such as the dragon and elephant prajna yoga secret technique. The dragon elephant, with divine power, prajna, and wisdom, is a top-level bodybuilding method that takes into account both body and spirit. Oh? Old sir, do you have this dragon elephant prajna yoga secret technique? Fang Qing's eyes were bright. Of course, not. A look of fear flashed across the old blind man's face. That place was too evil. The old blind man narrowly escaped death and left a pair of tricks there forever, but he could not get a magic weapon. There is also a magic formula. This method is called Horse-Headed Vitra Dharma Protector Magic Skill. It is a temple protecting skill of the Horse-Headed Vitra temple in the hidden area. It is said that it has some of the essence of the Dragon Elephant Prajna Yoga secret skill, which can improve the body and spirit. The most important thing is that the consumption is very low. Even if you have wisdom, you don't need special elixirs such as butter. You can continue to improve as long as you practice hard. Horse-Head Vitra Protector Magic Skill? Fang Qing calmed down at this time. Such a wonderful method, the old gentleman is willing to give it to me? Haha, it's not a wonderful method, it's just an evil method. The old blind man seemed to have a look of nostalgia on his face. The first part of the Horse-Headed Vitra Protector Magic Skill is a fragment of the original 4 levels. The old blind man only has the first level of visualization diagrams and formulas, so the value is much lower. The secret realm technique has hidden dangers, so it depends on whether you dare to practice it. Because of this, its value is very cheap, at least much cheaper than those top-level body training techniques. You only need 10 copies of the same spiritual resources, and the old blind man will sell it. What are the hidden dangers of the secret realm technique? Fang Qing was even more curious. The monks in the secret realm are different from us in ancient Shu. Their Taoism comes from the snowy mountains, and what they cultivate is not the Dantian Qihai, but the 3 rounds and 7 meridians. When they first entered Taoism, they were called monks, and then guru, Dharma king. The old blind man said slowly, those monks in the secret area do not need the first breath of qi to start their practice, but they need to worship a guru, follow his practice, and accept his great initiation precepts. According to it is said that the Dharma of initiation is the first secret of the snow mountain, and it has the most extraordinary features. The old blind man does not know what is so special about the Dharma of initiation. He only knows that after believing in the guru, accepting his precepts, and making offerings to the only secret deity, these monks, their life and death are all controlled by the master. Even if the disciples kill their parents and friends and then commit suicide, they cannot violate it. You don't need true energy to enter the Tao? Fang Qing was surprised. The Taoism of Daoshengzhu Mountain is different from that of immortals like us after all, the old blind man said. Some of those masters are not taboo about meat and vegetables. They like to select concubines to accompany them, and they can and bestow supreme power on the concubines. They also require believers to donate their property and body to refine thankas, gangdong, and other evil magic weapons. In short, they are very evil and bloody. So, what are the flaws in this Daoshengzhu technique? Fang Qing feels that if he is asked to do this, it seems a bit unacceptable. It does not require blood sacrifice, makes rapid progress, and has many benefits. Most of the techniques leaked from the secret realm are like this, but, after you have developed magical powers, if you meet a master from the secret realm, you might wave to them and you will take the initiative to become their disciples and protectors. The old blind man sneered. Fuck, what kind of crappy place is this? Fang Qing only felt his scalp numb. What is this horse-headed Vitra Dharma protector magic art? It seems that it has evil intentions and wants people to refine themselves into Taoist soldiers. Fang Qing also heard about Taoist tactics in Baihaman, which is very similar to this. Wait a minute. I have a way to produce pearls, and I am least afraid of hidden dangers in my skills. At least, change it first if it looks cheap, and then see if you can practice it. A hesitant look appeared on his face, and he suddenly gritted his teeth. Change. But old gentleman, I have another question. Could it be that the immortal Dao cultivation technique in our ancient Shu land has similar hidden dangers? Immortal Taoist nobleman, our qi convincing technique in the ancient Shu land naturally cannot teach you to cultivate yourself into a Dharma protector, King Kong, etc. The old blind man smiled slightly. That's okay. Fang Qing just felt relieved when he heard the old blind man say again, you just need to be careful not to reveal the name of your own practice. What does this mean? Fang Qing suddenly felt horrified. Old sir, if you make it clear, I will buy this horse-headed Vitra Dharma protector magic art immediately. The practitioners of the technique have similar origins. If they encounter a bottleneck and swallow up all the magic power of another person, they can use it to break through the situation. The old blind man sneered and said, but doing this is a demonic act. In our Ba County, you only need to be careful about the Daoji families. There are only some late-stage masters of qi and casual cultivation, especially those who are famous for the jishui technique. Therefore, you don't need to tell the old blind man the specific name of the technique you practice, lest he think that the old blind man wants to harm you. What kind of broken place is this? Fang Qing was completely speechless and took out a piece of spiritual treasure. Then, is there a famous jishui family in this county? Tianshui Luo family. The old blind man smiled and collected the spiritual treasure, took out a black and thread-bound book from his arms, and threw it to Fang Qing. You are an old blind man who has given up his life and entered the path of immortality. The old blind man doesn't want to see you die and die. I hope that one day you will achieve Taoism, Tianshui Luo family. Fang Qing seemed to be chewing these 4 words into his mouth, put away the thread-bound book, and clasped his fists to say goodbye. Every step he took was very solemn, and his brows seemed to be dripping with water. Tianshui Luo family? Is it that Luo family? The area near my home is indeed the county seat of Tianshui. It seems unmistakable, this house actually has a road foundation overhaul. Fortunately, I didn't act rashly before. Jishui? Will there be any problems with the Book of Guanhailing? No. That Jiuchuan water pavilion that sells exercises, could it be that the Luo family is secretly raising fish and spreading bait? So I have fallen into a trap without knowing it? At this time, Fang Qing couldn't help but have a bitter smile on his lips. Baihaman, Dan Island, Cave Manchio. And, after closing the door of the cave and affixing a protective talisman as usual, Fang Qing breathed a sigh of relief. The simple folk customs here can comfort my injured heart. As soon as he patted the storage bag, all the harvests this time emerged. Several emerald green ginseng plants, several golden and fire spiritual objects, and the book Horse-Headed Vajra Dharma Protector. Now that we have the main materials, we can collect a wave of auxiliary materials and try to refine the ginseng green spiritual water. Fang Qing exhaled a long breath and looked at the Horse-Headed Vajra Dharma Protector magic skill again. Originally, according to his idea, this cheating book can be read for reference, and it may not necessarily require actual practice. But now? Is there any technique for cultivating immortals in the ancient Shu land that is not cheating? No wonder the elixirs for improving one's cultivation are so rare and highly sought after over there. It turns out that the pills are directly based on human elixirs. Using human elixirs, that's it, 1 trap is a trap, and 2 traps are also traps. There are many problematic exercises. If I practice them all, maybe there will be a bug. He opened the book Horse-Headed Vajra Protector Magic Skills and smelled a strange aroma at the tip of his nose. The aroma was light and not fragrant, but it made his whole body's energy and blood move slightly. The entry point to the practice of the secret treasure realm is the blessing of the 3 secrets. The 3 secrets are body, speech, and mind. The body is the Mahamudra, and the speech is the secret mantra of the deity, which means the visualization picture. Gradually, Fang Qing gained some understanding of the secret realm body training exercises. Rustle. In the cave, Fang Qing seemed to be immersed in the secret realm technique, constantly turning the pages. Boom. After turning a new page, he saw the visualization diagram of the Horse-Headed Vajra Protector magic skill. This is Horse-Headed Vajra? Fang Qing seems to have only this strange god in his eyes. He has a horse face, 3 sides, and 8 arms, and is red in color. He holds a skull bowl, a Vajra pestle and other magic tools, and has snake ornaments on his ears. It is extremely majestic and reveals an evil meaning. Visualizing this picture is the secret deity, which can increase your spirit. After he finished flipping through it, he roughly understood the bodybuilding method of this secret realm. This Horse-Headed Vajra Dharma Protector magic skill has 4 levels. The first level is the ferocious donkey demon level, the second level is the mule-faced Vajra Prajna level, the third level is the horse-headed king wrath level, and the last level whose name is not even known, although there is only the first level here. The cultivation method of the steps only requires daily meditation, supplemented by mudra, mantra, and visualization of the image of the deity. It really meets my requirements. Fang Qing almost subconsciously sat cross-legged, forming the vase seal with his hands, and the energy and blood in his body rippled slightly, transforming into an inexplicable power. Crash! At this moment, the beads of Taoism in his body turned slightly, the clear and turbid chi flowed, and the clouds were steaming and glowing, like a cold spring, slowly flowing through his heart, and he suddenly felt inspired, returned to the origin. In the blink of an eye, all the powers he gained from the secret realm skills were transformed into Yuan Qi. It is indeed an evil method, which makes people want to stop. Fang Qing sighed and tried to transform the little bit of Yuan Qi in the Daosheng pearl again. This time, something magical happened. Although he still had the special power of qi and blood in the secret realm, Fang Qing felt that his heart was clear and he no longer had the urge to practice the Horse-Headed Vajra Dharma Protector magic art at all costs. It seems, the transformation of Daoshengzhu is also a kind of filtering? He calmed down. Have the hidden powers and even traps in the technique been washed away after a transformation? It seems that this technique can be used temporarily. This secret realm technique is a fragment, only the first level of the ferocious donkey demon stage is included. According to Fang Qing's speculation, after the first level of perfection, maybe it is comparable to the first level body refining perfection of the chi refining path. Can it defeat the chi refining perfection monks with the physical body? Even better, comparable to a quasi-second level or even a true second level body training? In any case, the goal of increasing one's body and mind, strengthening the essence and spirit among the three flowers of essence, energy, and spirit, without hindering foundation building, can certainly be achieved. There are pitfalls, and most people can't get through them. There is also the Book of Guanhailing, which can't be said to be pitfalls. Fang Qing complained and started to practice in earnest. The night passed. He stood up and stretched. Although I meditate instead of sleeping, I don't feel tired at all and am extremely energetic. At the same time, Fang Qing exerted a little force and made a fist with 5 fingers, and felt that the skin of his muscles and bones was once again strengthened and the hardness increased sharply. My physique was already at the level of a mortal innate grandmaster. But after just one night of practice, my strength increased beyond the blessing of peerless martial arts such as the mystic code of divine martial arts. Sure enough, compared with cultivating immortals, ordinary martial arts have completely fallen behind. If you see Antonil like this, as long as you persevere and complete the first level, your power will be endless, and it can be used as one of my trump cards. He adjusted his breath and swallowed a few more bigger pills. This pill uses spiritual grain as the main ingredient. It can not only fill the stomach, but also clean the body and strengthen qi and blood. After eating and drinking, Fang Qing came to Hanquan Peak, found a spiritual spring, and began to refine the Yuhua spiritual water. A few days later, a portion of Yuhua spiritual water was refined, and a biki ginseng was taken out, converted into jishui mana, and began to challenge the ginseng green spiritual water. Obviously, even with the magic power of jishui to assist in controlling the spring, this first pool failed quickly. Fang Qing calmly cleaned up the medicine residue and took out the second biki ginseng. Feeling the gazes of some disciples around him, he frowned and said to himself, "It's still a bit arrogant. It seems that it is imperative to build a spiritual spring in the cave, otherwise many pills that need to be refined in secret will be difficult to obtain. Hanquan Peak is good everywhere, but it is too public. No wonder those Dan Island disciples with advanced cultivation have to establish private medicine pools." With this thought in mind, Fang Qing threw the second serving of green ginseng into the spring water. Not far away, Li Yusa felt his face turn red when he saw this scene. The last time he mocked Fang Qing, his breakthrough failed, but Fang Qing succeeded. When we meet again, we still have to call him senior brother. Not only that. He could feel the disappointed eyes of his master and the vague disdain of his fellow disciples after he failed to break through. With the qualifications of a middle-grade spiritual root, it should be a sure thing to break through the bottleneck in the early to mid-stage of qi refining. The only explanation is that his mid-level qualifications are very reluctant, coupled with bad luck. After a failed breakthrough, it will not only damage the body and mana source, but also make the next breakthrough more difficult. The sect reduced its investment, and Li Yusu immediately felt that it was difficult to move forward, so he could only take on more sect tasks, such as Huansha, which he had previously despised. Of course Fang Qing also saw Li Yudan, but he was too lazy to pay attention to it. He only has eyes for the avenue of immortality. The bones of such a small person on the roadside might turn into ashes the next time they meet. Fang Qing concentrated his attention on the refining of this pool of ginseng green spiritual water. The first step is to extract the spiritual liquid, the second part, the third turn of Shanyuan, the medicinal liquid is combined. This change in medicinal properties? How to deal with it? Before he finished thinking, the water in the spiritual pool rippled, and a black liquid gushed out. Failed again, Fang Qing sighed. This is the case with alchemy. Without the guidance of a master, you will not be able to find the secret to getting started without failing dozens or hundreds of times. It's okay when it comes to low-level elixirs, but the higher the level, the more unbearable the price is. It's time to go back. Although I still have extra green ginseng on hand, it's not good to expose it too much. Fang Qing shook his head and sighed, came to the Dandao Hall, handed over the Yuhua spiritual water, and spent his contribution points to buy a gourd of ginseng green spiritual water. Now that he is a little richer, he will try to use spiritual water to assist his cultivation. Inside the cave, Fang Qing looked at the yellow gourd in his hand. This gourd is only about the size of a thumb. After removing the cork, you can smell the aroma of ginseng. He tilted slightly, and a few drops of emerald green water fell into his mouth, with a slightly bitter taste. After being stimulated By this, the black water magic power cultivated in the Daoshengzhu in his body immediately began to operate, with some hot and exciting impulses. Fang Qing quickly started to meditate and absorb the power of the medicine. Unconsciously, several hours have passed. He opened his eyes and felt a wisp of gaseous mana growing in the dantian in his body, and couldn't help but reveal a hint of joy. Okay, enough to be worth my 2 days of practice. This gourd spiritual water should be able to increase my practice by 1 month. Originally, according to Fang Qing's estimation, after he broke through the middle stage of qi refining, it would take at least 3 or 4 years to complete the 4th level of mana without other external forces. If you continue to Shen LV Ling Shui, you can save at least half of your time. And, Fang Qing used the Daoshengzhu to replace the foundation of his body with the magic power of Ji Shui. In an instant, there was the sound of clear springs and a gentle breeze in the cave. This ginseng green spiritual water should also have some effect on the practice of mana in the Qi Dao. He swallowed the spiritual water again and was surprised to find that his body's drug resistance and even his mana fatigue had disappeared. Originally, Shenlu Ling Shui can only be taken once a day, but after the transformation, I can take it twice? Could it be that the drug resistance in my mana has also been washed away? It seems that my mana can still improve by leaps and bounds. Maybe it only takes 1 year to try to break through the 5th level of qi refining? Fang Qing looked happy and continued to close his eyes. In the cave, the clear spring gushes and the breeze blows, which is exactly the image of the clear spring breeze of Ji Shui. Half an hour later, the young man on the futon slowly finished his work, with a hint of joy on his face. Fang Qing walked out of the retreat room and saw a bright yellow transmission talisman at the gate of the cave. His expression changed. Who is looking for me? Hualian. As soon as he made a seal, a breeze carried the transmission talisman and came to his hand. After injecting a bit of mana, a pleasant female voice came. Is it her? I want to see her, Fang Qing murmured and opened the door of the cave. Outside the cave, there are 2 monks, who seem to have been waiting for a long time. One of them is Li Yudan, no, Li Yusu, his face looks a bit down and out. The other girl, with a peach-shaped face, elegant and refined, turned out to be Jia Zhu. After so many years, the original little girl has become tall and graceful. With her ethereal temperament, it is simply unbelievable that she was originally a fisherman's girl. Zhuer, and this, junior brother Li, Fang Qing invited the 2 of them into the cave. The house is simple and crude, there is no tea, only clear spring water. Thank you. Jia Zhu showed a hint of apology. Brother Fang Qing, I have been in seclusion before, I didn't expect so many things to happen, it doesn't matter. After all, there is only an employment relationship between me and your family, and we are now clear. Fang Qing smiled and looked at Li Yusu. As for this junior brother Li, although his words and deeds are a bit outrageous, he is wholeheartedly doing it for your own good. He didn't know what Jia Zhu was going to do. Could it be that he was getting up again to try to save him? But to be honest, what does a mid-stage qi refining monk and a first-level low-level alchemist mean to Fu Yunzi, a foundation-building monk and a disciple of a second-level alchemy master? The 3 chatted for a few more words. Fang Qing sent Jia Zhu and the 2 out of the cave, and saw a green leaf flying boat landing. The person on it was Hualian. I don't know what kind of wind is blowing today. Come to my cave, Fang Qing laughed. When Hualian saw Jia Zhu, his expression became gentler. The sex big fishing has started, the fleet has entered the deep sea, and there are some cheap fishing in the nearby waters. I thought that my junior brother should be free, so I came here to ask, for Baihaman disciples, relying on the sea to eat and practice with spiritual fish is a daily routine.